In Seoul, South Korea, something has happened. Right now, Seoul has entrusted its future to a single person. It's a new development, but one that raises many questions. No one knows what his goal is, and the situation has taken an unexpected turn. A young man with white hair covered in wounds kneels beneath a rocky outcrop. He is none other than the master of the Chunghwa Guild. Jang Si-hwan stands before him. Another young man dressed in black stands tall nearby. Those around them are stunned, unable to believe what they are seeing. "The Chunghwa Guild is finished," the young man says with a sneer. He stares coldly at Si-hwan. "In the end, it's just us two left. Just you and me. You are the enemy of the entire world, Shin Kong-hu." Si-hwan leans on his hands, struggling to stand. He lashes out in anger, "All because of this meaningless war you started. Everyone has to suffer." His shout tears at his throat. "Just because of a monster like you," Kang-hu lets out a mocking laugh after hearing Si-hwan's nonsense. "How funny. Who do you think you are? The embodiment of justice." Kang-hu's sarcastic jab makes Si-hwan's eyes widen in shock. His fury reaches a breaking point. He grits his teeth and pours all his remaining strength into a final technique. "Shin Kong-hu, how dare you talk about justice?" Si-hwan screams in desperation. "I fight in the name of everyone, but you're always standing in my way." The people around them tremble at the chaotic scene. His words terrify the children nearby. "If you're not a monster, then what are you?" Suddenly the crowd starts chanting, "Jang Si-hwan, Jang Si-hwan." He accepts their cheers with a calm expression. "Jang Si-hwan, Jang Si-hwan." He attacks casually amidst the cheers. "Because everyone is rooting for me," Si-hwan says, as he swings his hand, launching his strike with that declaration. "I will never fall." Facing such a massive attack, Kang-hu seems frozen in place. He opens his eyes wide, terrified and disbelieving. A deafening explosion rocks the battlefield. Everyone watching is caught in the shockwave. Kang-hu is severely wounded, unable to dodge the lethal blow. He collapses, gasping for air as blood flows freely. The other man stands calmly before him. Seeing him unable to fight back, Kang-hu slumps down, his face covered in blood. Smoke and dust billow from the explosion, swallowing the area for a moment. The crowd is stunned by that sheer power. Then immediately after, cheers erupt like a dam breaking. "We believe in you, Jang Si-hwan, finish that bastard off." The crowd goes wild. Everyone raises their hands and screams, "Kill him!" Thousands of arms reach up to cheer for the power they just witnessed. "Kill him, kill him!" Si-hwan calmly declares, "No one wants you to live." He slowly opens his hand and powerful purple energy streaks appear, ready to strike. Realizing Si-hwan is about to attack, Kang-hu can no longer stay calm. He grinds his teeth, resisting helplessly. At that exact moment, an earth-shattering explosion tears through the silence of the battlefield. "This is the end for you." He painfully spits out a mouthful of fresh blood. The terrifying blow hits Kang-hu, sending him flying 10 meters back. His figure appears far away, from a distance. Si-hwan leaps up gracefully. He tilts his head back and laughs. The laughter echoes everywhere. He slowly says to the crowd, "Everyone, our preparations have finally borne fruit. Now the perfect freedom will be bestowed upon this land." The crowd is immersed in worship and awe. Some are even shedding tears. Their eyes are fixed on him as if they are looking at a god. Finally, Si-hwan begins to sing. Every note escaping his lips carries a strange hypnotic pull. It makes the crowd unable to resist. The sky is stained a terrifying crimson. The dark clouds swirl as if being torn apart by an invisible force. It covers the space. A burst of red light opens a giant circle in midair. In the center of the crimson circle, space begins to crack and a massive hand slowly reaches out. The fingers spread wide as if to cover the entire sky. The crowd is frozen in silence as they witness the giant hand appear in the heavens. Terror is etched on every face. The corners of Si-hwan's mouth curl into a satisfied smile, as if the destruction before him is exactly what he has been waiting for. That hand tears the sky apart. It slowly descends toward the crowd. A sense of despair fills the air. Everyone screams in terror, frantically trying to run away. "Get out of here!" A blue diamond drops. A thought flashes, just as I thought. When you inhabit someone else's body, it feels like Shin Kong-hu's past and experience are my own. A detailed status board appears. Here's Class Assassin, Constellation None, Short Jump Level 1, Teleport Level 1. Kang-hu thinks to himself, even though I'm still at this level. He suddenly collapses, causing the blonde young man to turn around in surprise. Kang Hu grinds his teeth, filled with regret and remorse. Damn it, my stamina is so low. I shouldn't have set my sensitivity to mana so high just because he's a villain. He picks up the diamond, his thoughts still racing. Just as I thought. This is the only way. The blonde young man runs over to Kang Hu worriedly asking, "Are you okay?" Kang Hu calmly replies, "I'm fine, don't worry." The blonde guy is still concerned. "I'll ask them to let you rest." Suddenly, Kang Hu sneers with contempt. "If they were the type to let you rest when you have a problem, they wouldn't have brought us to this place in the first place." Inside the detention center established by the Eclipse criminal organization, a towering wall blocks all vision. A shield and 3 swords appear. Kang Hu seems to understand the situation here all too well. Rookie hunters who can use mana are forced to work like slaves to mine mana stones. These are the powers exploiting the strength of the slaves. Forget about survival. After thinking this, Kang Hu speaks up, "Don't worry about me, you just keep digging." The blonde young man is silent for a few seconds. His gaze changes as if he just realized something important. He looks at him and asks, "Kang Hu, are you?" Kang Hu calmly speaks up, thinking about escaping. Before he could even finish his sentence, he was cut off and forced to forget it. "Just get back to work. Otherwise, the guards are going to beat you to a pulp. And don't do anything reckless, you hear me?" The blonde guy replied with a shy nod. "Okay." Kang Hu returned to his work, but his mind kept racing. He had already warned the guy and done what he could. I was just a character I created based on a specific archetype after all. I couldn't just rewrite the novel to escape. As a blade slammed into the ground with massive force, his mind stayed fixated on everything that was happening. The prison setting was controlled by guards everywhere, with slaves working tirelessly, forced to follow every command. Kang Hu was struggling with it too. Suddenly, a cry reached his ears. He glanced over to see it was the same blonde guy who had spoken to him earlier, getting scolded harshly by the jailer as the guards turned their attention to the newcomer. "A piece of trash tried to escape. Watch closely." The jailer threatened, casually, making the man tremble in fear. He swung his sword high, declaring, "You're going to pay for this. For all those crazy stunts." He shouted and swung his sword directly at him. Blood splattered everywhere as all the slaves watched in horror. It happened so fast that everyone was terrified. The jailer was beyond furious, his eyes bulging and his face twisted with rage. He acted with such cruelty that even the slaves watching had to close their eyes. Blood kept spraying out. Kang Hu trembled, biting his lip hard while the blood continued to spurt rhythmically from the blade. By the time it stopped, the blonde guy was lying there silently, no longer drawing a breath. Standing before the body, Kang Hu lashed out at himself. "You stupid idiot, I told you not to do anything reckless." He stood there in silence for a long time, unable to speak. The jailer walked over and smirked triumphantly. "Why aren't you stepping up like you did before? There's no one here to stop you, so I'll just finish you off too." Responding to the jailer's smugness, Kang Hu replied calmly, "Whether he dies or not, I couldn't care less." That sentence worked. It stoked the jailer's frustration. He frowned and glared. Suddenly, Kang Hu turned away and said, "More importantly, I need to use the toilet," leaving the jailer shocked. "What?" The corners of his mouth curled into a mocking smile. "You pathetic piece of trash, you're going to the bathroom alone. Fine, follow me." The jailer spoke with a hidden motive, flashing a savage grin. Kang Hu seemed to be hiding an agenda of his own, watching the jailer's back. Once they arrived, the jailer issued a warning. "I'll give you 1 minute. If you take any longer, this place will be your grave." He gritted his teeth, glancing at Kang Hu's retreating figure. He opened the door, and before Kang Hu lay bodies that had been tortured and beaten brutally. Kang Hu walked around searching for something. It should have been around here somewhere, but he walked and walked, finding nothing. The jailer stood outside, silently counting down the time, keeping a watch on every movement. 54:53. A moment later, Kang Hu found what he needed. "I knew it." I used his hand to cut himself on a piece of stone. Amidst the countdown, 50:49, Kang Hu quickly collected his blood and frantically drew a large circle. Time was running out. The jailer kept counting 40:39 all the way down to 18. The jailer's calmness contrasted with Kang Hu's urgency, making the scene feel incredibly tense. 10:43. The final seal was complete. It was drawn in Kang Hu's own blood and began to glow. Kang Hu calmly spoke, "I know you're watching me. I know you're driven mad by the tragedies, the hardships, and the depression." The seal reacted intensely to his words. From outside, the jailer's shouting echoed, "You've got 10 seconds left, you bastard. Stop peeing and pull your pants up." Ignoring the warning, he continued to speak to the seal. Aren't you curious why a low-level guy like me is summoning you? In his mind, he thought. If I stay here any longer like in the novel, he will appear. Kong Hu's face was filled with shock. The scene suddenly flashed. His anxiety grew even more. If I hesitate for even one more day, the hope and the world I'm searching for will only drift further away. He couldn't let things spiral out of control. You'll say that to convince me to return to the present. Kong Hu thought, implicitly accepting it despite everything. Please answer my summons, because I will become the entertainment you've been waiting for. He grinned and said to the seal, the one who can use your power most effectively is me. Kang Hu flashed a crazed smile, asserting, I knew you would appear. What he wanted was the constellation. Having established the contract with the Kong Hu from the novel, he shouted, calling out for the space pirate. The seal appeared, commanding Kong Hu, you really are a piece of trash. Since you've caught my attention, I'll lend you my power for a while. Now prove yourself, he replied calmly. Just sit back and watch. The transaction was complete. Lines of text and images of Kong Hu appeared on the status screen. A loud boom echoed as the jailer's hand slammed against the door. He shoved the door open and shouted, Are you kidding me? Seeing the dust and smoke everywhere, he seemed to sense that something was wrong. The jailer took a step into the haze. A faint shadow appears. The warden's eyes widen as he realizes something is wrong. All his skills are suddenly operating at peak mastery. These are all of Kang Hu's own skills. He closes in on the warden with incredible speed, his eyes glowing with an eerie, flickering blue power. The warden realizes there's no one in front of him anymore. He glances around, searching for Kang Hu, panic beginning to set in. The scene behind him is deathly silent. Nothing appears. The warden is terrified to realize that he's not there. The nausea in his gut grows stronger. Right behind him, Kang Hu lunges, weapon in hand, stabbing the warden. The warden gurgles blood in pain, gritting his teeth and cursing. Kong Hu ignores the fact that his weapon is still buried in the warden's neck. You bastard! The warden manages to choke out despite his trembling. Before the warden can finish, Kang Hu rips the weapon out. Blood spurts out endlessly. The warden collapses and goes limp right there on the ground. With blood all over his hands, Kang Hu calmly says, Thanks, you idiot. His eyes are steady as he stares down at the man before him. Because of you today, I finally made up my mind to get out of this place. He glances at the warden's corpse, a dark satisfaction blooming. How interesting. The contract is complete. Kong Hu lets out a sigh of relief and drops the knife. He whispers to himself, With this, I've avenged you. As he straps a sword to his hip, a system notification pops up. System notification, a weapon has been registered. Kang Hu declares firmly that from now on, he will never look back. The moonlit scene flickers into view again. The warden is slumped on the ground. The one who took him out was Kang Hu. The cap of a gas canister on the ground is already off. He picks it up and tips it, pouring the contents all around. Kang Hu thinks to himself, then reaches into his pocket. There are many steps to getting out of here. Step 1, secure a guard's uniform. Kang Hu takes out a lighter and flicks it on, calculating the next move in his head. Next, set a fire and cause a distraction. He drops the lighter. Kang Hu walks away, leaving a massive inferno behind him, his only thought to escape while dodging the guard's eyes so no one spots him. In an instant, the flames engulf the area. The guards scream in panic. Fire, it's at Building 18. Everyone rushes into action, but terror is etched onto every single face. How could this happen? Call the fire department. The guards are running in chaos. The lead warden regains his composure, hops into a vehicle, and starts barking orders. Everyone stay calm and follow the firefighters' instructions. Send someone to the detention camp to see what's going on over there. He slams the door shut, urging the driver, move it, go. The driver replies immediately, yes, sir. The warden glances into the back seat and calls out, hey, you guard back there. Did you have business outside the sector today? Did you swap shifts with someone? From the back, Kang Hu replies calmly, yes, I did. A prisoner escaped from Building 18. The driver is instantly shocked upon hearing this. His eyes widen in surprise. What Kang Hu continues, he escaped toward the north building, then headed northwest past the temporary detention center, or so the investigation suggests. Kang Hu steers the conversation away. Shall we get going then? Seeing the urgency, the driver shouts, right, we're leaving now. Kang Hu sits silently calculating the route toward the northwest. It leads to Mount Jungmyung. It seems like a perfect escape route for anyone who doesn't know it well, lots of blind spots, complex paths, and few guards. But there's a catch: the trap set by the eclipse. That's exactly what makes it such a dangerous path. But because I have prior information that only the guards would know, I'll use it to my advantage. Kang Hu speaks up darkly. It seems he escaped along this route. But we haven't found any traces yet. He ran toward Mount Yungmyung. It'll be harder to search there. If we can't catch him, we'll at least need to bring back his body. The driver replies without a hint of suspicion. I understand. Reaching the gate. Every guard is on high alert. The two exchange the password, silver cigarette. A guard signals them through. Finally, Kang Hu's cold, sharp eyes are revealed. I is deeply satisfied. He's finally made it past the prison fence. After all that hardship, the first step is a success. The road stretches on, surrounded only by trees, with only this car driving through the night. The driver starts chatting. You must be pretty tired tonight, dealing with all this and now having to chase that escapee from Building 18. Kang Hu clicks his tongue, trying to stay nonchalant. Yeah, those bastards are stubborn. It'd be better to just take them out than have to chase them like this. The driver laughs in agreement. Right, they're just dumb bastards with nothing but the title of hunter to their names. What can they even do? The person in the back thinks darkly. True, they really do discriminate against the prisoners. In their eyes, prisoners are nothing. Then he probes further. So, officer, how long have you been working at Building 18 Bao, realizing he's being scrutinized? Kang Hu's gaze turns somber. He answers blandly. I only started working there yesterday. The warden nods understanding. Oh, so you're with Unit 9 in Building 18 then? Kang Hu confirms firmly, that's right. That answer made the prison guard suspicious. He grilled Kang Hu about Unit 9, asking him what that was, which made Kang Hu jump since such a unit didn't even exist in the building. Must have been formed just yesterday, huh? The vehicle kept speeding ahead, ignoring the impending disaster. Kang Hu smirked and played along. That's right. He unsheathed the sword at his hip and declared, This is for the work I've done. He swept his blade with terrifying speed, a perfectly straight strike that didn't waver in the slightest. Kang Hu muttered coldly after decapitating him. Simple. He stated it with icy indifference. Time to wipe out, you scum. His sword sliced through, sending blood spraying everywhere. The vehicle swerved out of control and Kang Hu scrambled to grab onto the two seats to keep from falling. The other two guys were sent flying out and broken glass sprayed all over. The prison guard lay there cold. The driver finally screamed, channeling his mana into his hands. His strike lunged forward, but Kang Hu tilted his body and dodged it by a hair's breadth. The attack brushed past him. It hit the rear chassis and flames erupted instantly. Kang Hu only spared a brief glance before leaping high into the air. The guard was stunned and roared in fury, How dare you trick us! His attack landed with the weight of a sledgehammer and a cloud of smoke exploded in the air. A triumphant grin appeared on the driver's face. That guy was a goner. It was as if victory were already in his hands. But then he peered into the rearview mirror, his face full of confusion. What he saw was the image of Kang Hu crouched on the ground, in the blink of an eye. Kang Hu's figure vanished completely so fast that only a swirl of dust remained where he had just been standing. Then in a flash his sword gleamed. It pierced straight through the vehicle toward the prison guard's seat. Before the guy could even regain his senses, he couldn't react in time. The tip of the blade burst through the window, spraying fresh blood everywhere. The driver was struck, his whole body trembling, his face twisted in clear agony. Without waiting for him to collect himself, Kang Hu drew his sword in a flash and kicked the driver's corpse out of the vehicle, ruthlessly. Suddenly, a sharp pain struck, making Kang Hu's lips turn pale. He clutched his head, breathing heavily. This isn't good. I've used too much mana. I'm getting dizzy. Just then, a loud, thunderous sound appeared, making Kang Hu freeze. He looked up, and the rearview mirror reflected another vehicle heading his way. Kang Hu let out a weary, resigned sigh. He hadn't expected to miss such a crucial situation. Are there patrol soldiers on this road too? I didn't foresee this happening. This is a pretty big headache, with no other choice. Kang Hu didn't hesitate to leap off the cliff. He stretched his legs out to try and slow his descent, sliding for a long way, but Kang Hu's face remained completely stoic. After the jump, he landed lightly at the bottom of the ravine. Someone's voice rang out, I really didn't think you'd be able to take down two guards and escape like this. From a distance, a pair of boots approached. The hunter, carrying an axe on his shoulder, sneered, You low-level scum. Kang Hu silently assessed him. There was a red mark above the guy's head. He's a hunter under contract with a constellation. He cautiously watched the guy's silhouette staying on guard, wondering what his power was. Information about him appeared right above his head. Skilled connection, neutral constellation. Constellation power. Ability to track the mana trails of others. Kang Hu calculated silently. Tracking mana trails. So that's how he found me so quickly. A triumphant smile touched his lips. That's interesting. The guy asked, "What's that?" "That you have a question." Kang Hu's eyes lit up with a thought. "I can see the constellation that has a contract with this guy. Because of the mark. He has a red mark on his head, and for some reason I can see it." An information panel appeared before Kang Hu's eyes. Third ability. By defeating another hunter, you can claim the victim's contract constellation. Across from him, the hunter stood there still incredibly confident and grinning. A blue notification panel appeared before the guy signaling, "You can seize the power of this constellation." Seeing this, Kang Hu was beyond satisfied. "This is my first time using nebula seizure." Kang Hu carefully calculated. "But since he's contracted with a constellation, his level must be at least 100. Therefore, I need to be careful. There's no way I can face him head on." With that, he stomped his feet into the ground and dashed off instantly. As Kang Hu ran, he thought about using the terrain and his own experience to close the gap and take the guy down. Seeing this, the hunter sneered in contempt. What a pathetic low-level idiot. Kang Hu immediately changed direction, his figure quickly disappearing into the bushes. The guy raised his hand to watch him. "Go ahead and hide. I'll find you soon enough." The hunter's eyes turned deep blue. He stood there staring at the bushes, thinking about his constellation contract. "I can see everything." The hunter slowly scanned his surroundings with a look of pure confidence, searching for Kang Hu's hiding spot step by step. He glanced to the left. Where'd he hide? Then the hunter looked to the right. The deep blue in his eyes flashed. His vision rapidly covered the entire area. His gaze stopped at an unusual tree. A brilliant golden-orange aura was emitting from it. The hunter laughed excitedly. "All right, I've found him." Without hesitation, he threw his axe straight at the trunk with immense force, cursing, "You bastard!" The attack shattered everything in its path, but Kang Hu still hadn't revealed himself. That caught him off guard. Where did he hide now? In the blink of an eye, something shot forward and pierced the guy's throat. No one expected that the blade was actually Kang Hu's attack. His eyes widened in shock. He had absolutely no time to react. Kang Hu held his pose sword still in hand and began to speak. "Honestly, you were way too overconfident with that tracking skill. Now you have to pay the price for it." At that moment, the guy could only stare in wide-eyed horror as his previous calm completely vanished. Kang Hu swung his arm and severed the hunter's head for daring to look down on his opponent. Finally, the guy couldn't stand anymore. His body collapsed onto the cold ground. A system notification chimed in, "You have defeated the target and successfully seized the Mastery Connection skill. Mastery Connection will now be acquired by the space robber. This contract cannot be lost." Meanwhile, Kang Hu panted, slightly exhaustion evident on his face after taking down his enemy. A series of notifications continuously popped up. "All the skills from Mastery Connection have been learned successfully." Kang Hu stood there, not rushing to react. He gently wiped away the remaining sweat, caught his breath, and then slowly raised his hand. He tapped on the notification panel and selected the options that appeared before his eyes. 2 skills had been added: Mana Tracking Level Max, Night Vision Level Max. Kang Hu breathed heavily. "I felt deeply moved. I did it." The reflection of the information panel shone in his eyes. As he glanced around, it seemed like everything was laid bare through these skills. It seemed like there were no hunters left following him here. Suddenly, a sharp pain shot through him. Kang Hu couldn't react in time. He quickly covered his mouth, unable to keep his footing. He collapsed his hand, gripping his sword and jamming it into the ground like a cane to support himself. Blood dripped down, forming large red streaks, and his complexion turned pale. Kang Hu gritted his teeth, enduring it. "I pushed myself too hard in this battle." Amidst the pain, memories of the recent battle suddenly flooded back into Kang Hu's mind. To hide his presence while being tracked, he had lowered his mana circulation to the absolute minimum and then channeled all that mana into a mana absorption stone. This was necessary. If he had let his mana circulate normally, the fluctuations would have been detected. Therefore, masking the mana flow and transferring it into the mana stone was essential. Finally, after concealing his presence, he threw the mana stone elsewhere. It embedded itself deep into a tree nearby. The hunter had fallen right into the trap and attacked it. That bastard Kong Hu had calculated everything. The hunter only felt the strongest mana fluctuations around there. Because of that he was deceived, which allowed me to take him down. But to get close enough to finish him, I had to use the short jump technique to close the distance. Kang Hu, exhausted, held his head, enduring the aftermath of such a series of actions. This new body just hasn't been able to adapt yet. That's why I'm so exhausted. I took small steps forward, understanding the problem. If he had to force himself to fight anymore, he might just die right here. No kidding, I'm okay for now. I need to find a safe place. The sun was already starting to peek over the horizon. A thought flashed through his head like lightning. That's it. Kang Hu silently calculated. The sand truck, it would help hide his aura. He dashed forward at full speed, his feet stomping hard on the ground before he launched himself over the space ahead. Kang Hu landed on his feet, knees slightly bent to cushion the impact. He looked up at the sky, and a slow, weary sigh escaped his lips. Kang Hu lay on the sand, reminiscing. Today I've taken out 3 guards in a row while on the run. That never happened in the original novel I wrote. He wearily wondered if the future was being altered. But regardless of anything else, I need to be stronger. I will make it happen. By using the things I already know from this novel. He glanced around, feeling a bit helpless, but with this weak body, even knowing so many things, I have to try much harder to change that damn future, where I have to die in misery at the end of the novel. Lying on the sand truck, as it raced diligently forward, Kang Hu leaned against the vehicle frame, feeling comfortable. I didn't think this place would be so beautiful and peaceful. He watched the scenery before him, marveling at it. The scene shifted to a building. A voice rang out incessantly. We're going to go catch those low-class bastards who specialize in mining mana stones. Don't worry, it's not hard at all. Someone else replied, understood. Donghun smirked, impressed. He's actually quite smart. He calmly praised, he knows how to pull off a series of consecutive actions to cause a distraction and then escape the detention center on a transport truck. At this moment, Kang Hu was leaning against a phone booth by the side of the road. This isn't good. I've used too much mana. I can't walk now. This mana amount can't recover that quickly. He reached out to press the numbers on the phone. Inside the office, Donghun asked with a hint of fatigue. Still haven't found that level 10 assassin. He took down 2 level 45 and 55 guards plus a Constellation-contracted hunter. The scene shifted back to where Kang Hu was calling. Hello, it's Kang Hu. The person on the other end replied immediately. Mr. Kang Hu, he announced, I'm in front of the Dachun station. Kang Hu leaned against the glass door and began, I have a favor to ask you. At the same time in the office, Donghun also remarked, nice, that's interesting. This will make the hunt much more exciting. Kang Hu suppressed the pain and quietly whispered, thank you, Hanso-John. He stole a quiet glance at the white bandages wrapped around his body, a reminder of the care he'd received. She asked him anxiously, what happened? Did you go to the battlefield? Kang Hu didn't hold back, telling her that the eclipse had captured him. At the mention of that name, So-John trembled violently. What? She asked, her eyes welling up. You went to the mana mine. Those people only use hunters for slave labor there. He nodded, not hiding the truth. At the mana mine, mana was constantly being drained. Hunters of his low rank were nothing but prey for the others. Yet a thought crossed his mind. Even so, he had trusted So-John enough to reach out to her. As So-John hugged him shaking, he sighed, glancing back at her silhouette. I'm sorry. Because she had been living in peace, Kang Hu was blaming himself. If I had stayed by her side more often after that incident, then you wouldn't have ended up in there. Kang Hu said nothing. These were just internal thoughts. When they had parted ways, she was still just a newly awakened hunter. But now she was level 150 and had a contract with a constellation. If she had still been with him back then, she would have been dragged into the Yongmyung detention center too. Thinking of this, Kang Hu shook his head and moved to stand up. You've done enough. Getting involved with me won't bring you anything good. The eclipse will target you. She gently helped him up. I'm level 150 now. I'm not the type to lose to some ordinary hunter. But Kang Hu firmly refused. You don't need to worry about me. Before leaving, Kang Hu warned her to be careful. Just use that power of yours to protect yourself well, and that's enough. So-John even took the initiative to pack things for him. Here, take this. I put some money and a phone in there. It won't be tracked, I promise. Kang Hu sighed and asked, so your guild isn't as simple as it seems, huh? That's right, both then and now. A guild like that is always the right place for me. She clasped her hands together, looking at him with teary eyes, asking for his opinion. Would you like to join our guild like we used to? We could. But Kang-hoo immediately cut her off. Sojan, don't get stuck in the past. She seemed to freeze for a moment. Sojan smiled, letting the tears stream down her cheeks. She truly accepted it. Right, that's what I thought. I'll follow your advice. I have a friend who is a guildmaster, with the info in the phone. Sojan looked at him with hopeful eyes. Take care of yourself. Live well. Kang-hoo nodded and smiled in return. Thank you. You take care too. Outside, a taxi was waiting. Driver, take me to Daejeon Station. The man behind the wheel glanced at his gestures and asked loudly, Do you mind if I turn on the radio? Kang-hoo looked out the window, indifferent. Go ahead. As soon as the driver pressed the button, a new headline popped up on the speaker's breaking news. The Neutral Guild has attacked the White Rose mercenary group. Following the Day of Judgment based on the White Rose headquarters in Seoul, criminal syndicates are increasing rapidly in Gangnam. The Day of Judgment. That day had come suddenly and silently. Inside a car, a man started to complain suspiciously. Things are a bit weird today, right? It's the weekend, but there's hardly any traffic. The car reeks of death, doesn't it, honey? But when he turned to face his lover, she was nothing but a shriveled corpse. Ah! He panicked and screamed, Honey, what the hell? At that very moment, a figure wrapped in a black cloak appeared, wielding a scythe, and finished him off. The black-clad figures began to hunt down the civilians. This is the rooftop of a building in Gangnam, Seoul. As you can see, the sky has turned purple. According to a report, this area has... The reporter didn't even get to finish. A monster lunged out and attacked. Monsters appeared, dungeons appeared everywhere. In the midst of the chaos, those who received power were called hunters. However, there were many unexplainable events. Those events caused humanity to lose faith in God. Hunters who used to hunt monsters started hunting other players instead. They did it because it meant they could loot more items. But soon, the entire hunter community condemned them. Just when everyone thought the apocalypse had arrived, a girl backed into a corner, knelt down, begging, Please don't. The guy holding the sword smirked mockingly. Someone might think I'm bullying you. Don't worry. Saying that, he raised his sword and lunged forward enthusiastically. Just a little more and it won't hurt anymore. Suddenly a hand caught the sharp blade. Despite blood pouring out incessantly, the savior of the world. Jang Si-hwan offered a sweet smile, glancing back at her. Are you okay? Jang Si-hwan had appeared. Starting from Seoul, he had created, helped, protected, and healed everyone, the Neutral Guild. All of this was just Kang-hoo's train of thought. That was why everyone wanted to go to Seoul. The White Rose group had been identified by Hunter Jang Si-hwan as the group responsible for the terror attack at Gangnam Station. White Rose is not a terrorist organization. But the driver shouted loudly, Wipe out the terrorist group, just as expected from Jang Si-hwan. And of course the terror attack wasn't their doing either. The driver kept praising him. Isn't he the best hunter in South Korea? But Kang-hoo saw through the situation. It was all a play directed by Jang Si-hwan. The driver was still busy rambling. My son just awakened and his dream is to join Jang Si-hwan's guild. But Kang-hoo wanted to go against the grain. If he planned to oppose Jang Si-hwan by exposing his actions, he would be the one branded a criminal. Wipe him out, the outcome was as clear as day. He sighed. That was why he had hoped to join the mercenary group, because the other guilds were all under his control. The taxi finally came to a stop. We're here. Kang-hoo stepped out of the taxi and looked up at the skyscraper. Becoming a collaborator for the mercenary group was the best fit for him. His dream was to join the Transcendence Association, but he wanted to go against the grain by planning to expose the guy's actions. He'll just label me a criminal and take me out. The ending is as clear as day. He sighed softly, which is why I've been hoping to join the mercenary group, because all the other guilds are already under his control. The taxi finally pulled over. We're here. Kang-hoo stepped out of the car and glanced up at the skyscraper. Becoming a collaborator with the mercenary group was the best move for him. Someone was already waiting outside. Hi there. I heard about you from Sozeon. She introduced herself. My name is Lee Jason. Kang-hoo glanced at the woman and thought to himself. It wasn't the time to reveal himself yet, so he coldly made up a name. I'm Chung Sun Kyu. Jason smiled slightly and replied, Nice to meet you. Right after meeting, she wanted to hand over a new job. I've got a good job for you. but he turned her down, directly brushing her off. I want something with a better reward. You can give me something harder if you want. Jason startled, glancing at the other person. What? But I heard you were level 10. He didn't hide it and admitted, that's right. This made her laugh, and Jason laughed even louder, to the point where she was crying tears of joy. You're hilarious. People often say being too brave is just asking for death. But as soon as her teasing ended, Kong-Hu showed her his strength. You want me to go clean up some corpses? He smirked and replied bluntly. Isn't a mercenary supposed to rely more on skill than level? Kong-Hu focused his gaze on the person in front of him. Meeting a character he had spent so much effort building, what a strange feeling. A notification screen immediately displayed Jason's information. Chaos Observer, a neutral constellation. A constellation with the ability to distort, warp, and obstruct an opponent's vision. Lee Jason, a mage with auxiliary support skills. She had signed a contract with an intermediate constellation and was a character I created to oppose the 13 stars. Thinking of this, a thought urged him on. I have to earn her trust. Right then, Kong-Hu answered nonchalantly. You only need someone with high skills. You don't need to worry about their level, do you? Isn't that the whole point of a mercenary guild? But Jason just sighed and reminded him, Sunkyu, reality and ambition are two very different things. But he stepped past her and coolly countered, prejudice and the truth are also very different things. Jason suddenly smiled. She found this guy rather interesting. Fine, then let's see just how good your skills really are. The two got into position. Jason smirked and used her mana. I'll only judge you on one thing, and that judgment will be based on whether or not you can dodge my skill. Kong-Hu scoffed, so you just want to see if I can protect myself. She gave a mocking smile. Exactly. Being able to dodge means you can create opportunities to attack. He quickly sensed the mana Jason was generating. That's using bones to create puppets, and it can track my position even from far away. The Mist Tracker. Kong-Hu started to assess the situation. This isn't an attack skill, so even if I get hit, I won't die. But if I can't dodge, it will leave a mark, and then the test will stop immediately. But that won't dampen his resolve. Let's start. Jason responded excitedly. I'm starting now. With that, she commanded the Mist Tracker to fly toward him. It rushed quickly toward its target. Kong-Hu stood still, waiting for the right moment. Then a thick smoke spread out, making it impossible for Jason to know what was going on inside. She looked around, bewildered, but just as she tilted her head to turn back, her eyes were filled with horror. No. Kong-Hu was using his parkour skills so skillfully that even Jason hadn't imagined this scenario. No way. At that level, jumping even 1 meter is hard. But this guy... She started to have a bold thought. He seems very proficient at using basic assassin skills, the short dash. Jason was surprised by this display. So your skills aren't too bad, are they? So this time, she intended to use a higher-level technique. Let's see if you can dodge this one. Jason switched tactics. She continuously fired beams of magic circles. The Mist Tracker targeted him once again, following right on his heels. Even so, Kong-Hu didn't feel a hint of fear. The Mist Tracker thought it had the upper hand, but just as it fired, Kong-Hu turned his head back and gave a sinister smile. Just as the Mist Tracker unleashed a powerful blow, Kong-Hu nimbly dodged to the left. Jason looked up, shocked. She couldn't believe it and stepped back. Jason's eyes were full of astonishment. He dodged it again, not to mention that was a teleportation just now. While Jason wasn't paying attention, Kong-Hu appeared behind her to strike, drawing his blade and holding it to her neck. His voice sounded deep in her ear. Let's stop the test here. But Jason just smiled and dodged the blade precisely. Even Kong-Hu had to admit she was faster than he thought. No wonder she was the mercenary commander. Once finished, Jason asked, What's your background? Have you ever been trained? But he shook his head. No. She laughed lightly, touching the blade, assessing him. Liar. A level 10 couldn't possibly have moves like that. But he didn't care much about that. So did I pass the test? Jason smiled and nodded. Fine. I think I could commission you if you were level 50. That was a number Kong-Hu could accept. Good. The white van sped down the road. Looking through the rearview mirror, Jason suddenly asked him a question. Are you interested in bulletproof glass? A gunman has been bothering me lately, so the car is fully equipped with bulletproof glass. Kong-Hu still stared nonchalantly out the window. A gunman? Mentioning that, huh? She giggled bashfully again. Honestly, those scumbags think they're all that, but in Kong-Hu's eyes, this is just a turf war. Then Jason pulled out a stack of papers. This is a commission to track down a wanted criminal. I'm the one commissioning you, and this authorization will come in very handy for you. Dungeon Abandoned Ruins. Target Kim Muk-hun, level 50 mage. Objective: retrieve the Tier 3 item Vatazan's boots. Kang-Hu stared at the paper and asked, "Do I need to bring him back alive?" Jezin gave a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "You can kill him. Too many innocent people have already died by Kim Muk-hun's hands. You can execute him right there on the spot. The National Hunter Security Agency would love to hear that, and it's a great chance for you to show off your skills." "Got it. I'll get started right away." Jezin dropped him off at the site. Before heading out, Kang-Hu remembered Jezin's warning the guy was probably hiding somewhere. It wouldn't be easy since the place was huge, but that wasn't a major concern for Kang-Hu. To him, this wasn't a bad area to start the hunt. This was a place that Shin Kang-Ho used as a hideout in the novel, so I'm pretty familiar with this area. There are some decent mid-tier bosses here too. He appeared amidst a pile of ruined buildings, and behind him, several beasts with blood-red eyes emerged. Kang-Hu glanced back and muttered, "There you are." He calmly sliced his own hand with his blade, letting the blood drip constantly. Fresh blood hitting the ground, this was a trigger. The red-eyed monsters hiding behind the scattered rocks caught the scent. The smell of blood made them bristle as they charged out in packs. Kang-Hu engaged them precisely using teleport, then a short jump. He used both skills back-to-back in an instant. The monsters were nothing to him as he kept slashing through them in a blur. A rare smile touched Kang-Hu's lips after taking down the pack. He didn't look back. Jezin was waiting, eager. "Task completed, item retrieved. Do whatever you want with it." Up above, a black-clad assassin had witnessed it all, watching him from afar. Jezin looked serious. "What reward do you want?" Kang-Hu's gaze was complex. "All I need is a second dungeon raid permit, the ability to steal skills from bosses, and access to areas with lots of mid-tier and high-tier bosses." I didn't hesitate to charge in. This was the best place to acquire their skills. Just as Kang-Hu answered Jezin, he met the person he wanted to see. "Nice to meet you, Ventus." The system notification popped up. "You can steal a skill from this target." Ventus exuded a heavy aura of death. "I will end you." But he didn't want to waste words on him. "Quit yapping." As soon as he finished, Ventus lunged to finish him off, but he nimbly stepped back. Ventus gripped his sword tightly. Then he dove down from above to attack. Once he was in close range, Ventus lunged forward with his sword. Kang-Hu narrowed his eyes, anticipating the attack as Ventus zipped toward him. Kang-Hu could only retreat, calculating his next move. Ventus suddenly leaped, appearing high above. Ventus's eyes flashed blood red as he timed his strike. He delivered a precise stab downward, but Kang-Hu immediately used teleport. Kang-Hu's eyes burned as he stared intently at his opponent. It looked like a simple fake-out attack. He had also drawn his sword, but the real attack was coming from this side. Kang-Hu leaped up, surging forward. A short jump, then while he wasn't looking, he stabbed into his side. Ventus started groaning in pain, but that didn't discourage him. He kept swinging his blade wildly. Kang-Hu remained completely calm. He used teleport. He's only a mid-tier boss by name anyway. Based on his assessment, the boss's head-on combat style still hadn't evolved. Thinking this, Kang-Hu kicked hard at the back of both of his legs. Ventus immediately bled out and collapsed. A sword quickly fell into his hand. The system screen popped up with the first notification, "You have now equipped the weapon." He grabbed the long sword, drew it, and stabbed straight into Ventus's throat. The boss no longer had the strength to resist and just had to take it. But Kang-Hu didn't stop there. He pushed the blade deeper into the flesh. Ventus slumped to the ground by inertia. The system began updating his stolen skills. A series of notifications appeared. "You have stolen the illusion skill from the target." Kang-Hu smiled. Behind him, a new item had been left behind. He turned back to look at a spot not far away that was glowing with a brilliant blue light. A light was shining toward Kang-Hu. They clearly saw him picking up the item and exclaimed excitedly, "That's a tranquilizer, not just one, but two. Did you see that, boss?" "That's pretty rare, isn't it?" He frowned in confusion. Who knows? To think he struck Ventus's weak point so accurately. The girl beside him had met Kang-Hu before. "Boss, I saw him at the market once." Back then, she had already been keeping an eye on him. "Let me buy some boar blood monster tranquilizers and daggers from my stall, please." Inventory daggers. It looks like he's planning to hunt monsters in the dungeon and farm. This made Dongsha sink into thought. Tranquilizers, huh? I was still watching Kang-Hu. He muttered, evaluating him. "That guy seems pretty skilled at assassination. I've never seen him before." His expression grew increasingly deep in thought. With that level, he shouldn't be here. The girl saw his expression and laughed, trying to reassure him. But he's still no match for you, boss. Should we drag him over here? If it were you, you could easily force him to his knees. But he flatly refused. No need. Dronzer was having a more sinister thought. It would be easier if we just let him keep doing that. We'll take him out later, she replied with eager excitement. Exactly, boss. We just need to stick close to him and wait for him to exhaust himself. The system screen is still showing the notification. You are at level 16. The next basic skill is at level 20. Kanghu sighed and muttered, I've dumped all my points into resistance. As long as I can handle this innate mana hypersensitivity, I don't need to put points into mana anymore. Now I'll dump everything into stamina, so I can get through this tough phase. Only after taking the sedative did he feel his body finally relax. He finally felt a bit of vitality. That sedative really has a soothing effect. It reduces pain and suppresses mana hypersensitivity. It's hard to find in regular dungeons, and since it grows naturally, it's very difficult to mass produce. However, there is only one person in this entire country who knows how to grow it, and that person is in Zone 0. Kanghu began, calculating the long path to what used to be called the DMZ. It's quite far. I'll have to prepare and buy as much as I can in case my sensitivity flares up during a fight. I'll be dead immediately thinking of this. He needs to focus on what's right in front of him first. To do that, he needs a lot of money. Jijin's car began speeding down the road. She sat in the driver's seat and started to frown. Just last year, the call quality wasn't this bad. It's getting worse and worse. The person on the other end of the line spoke up. They are interfering with that matter. So there's nothing we can do, especially since you're under the influence of the Eclipse Guild and the Black Lions. So things are only going to get worse. Jijin let out an, oh, maybe you're right. The man seemed to be worried about her. It seems you're having a hard time after getting involved with those people from Eclipse, right? But Jijin was already too used to this problem. It's fine, I'm used to having eyes and ears watching me. This has been going on for a long time now anyway. Just as she was focusing on driving, his voice rang out calmly. Can you recommend a hunter for me? The car immediately swerved and crashed into a pile of scrap metal ahead. The guy on the other end spoke frankly. I'm really short-handed lately. A subtle smile formed on Jijin's lips. The guy's voice remained steady and pleading. So I had no choice but to contact you. Jijin shrugged, appearing indifferent. I don't know. The person on the other end was none other than Officer Shi. I don't know if I can introduce a hunter that would catch your eye, Officer Shi. I think you'd just reject all of them right from the start. Then let's lower the standards. A little bit then. He sighed and changed his mind. Officer C offered another condition. I want to properly train some low-level people, she said bluntly. There is one hunter like that. On the other end, he smiled, genuinely happy, really. But Jijin was hesitant. But I think he needs a little more time. I don't want to jump to conclusions too quickly. Officer C gripped the paper tightly and nodded. You've never recommended the wrong person. Miss Jijin, it's just due to some unfortunate incidents that we lost them. Although a bit sad, Jijin still sighed, appearing relaxed. That's all in the past now, so you don't need to worry. I'll observe him for a while longer. If he meets the standards, I'll let you know. Oh, right, do you have any useful information? Officer Sai let out a sound. I accidentally got some inside information on a few criminal organizations. I'll send it to your secure email address soon. Hearing this, Jijin was visibly happy. It's embarrassing to keep saying it, but I still have to thank you. The guy on the other end smiled. It's nothing at all. Whenever you need information like this, I can help you with all of it. Our China Guild really needs a lot of talented people. Inside the locked room was a man being tortured to the point of a mental breakdown. If you send someone capable. Officer Sai's eyes flashed with a dark light at this moment. Then I will treat you as well as I possibly can, she sighed. Good grief, after hanging up. Jijin blamed herself. No matter how high my expectations are, how could I think of someone who just received their first mission like him? On this side, Kanghu was still trying to focus on the battle. He kept the upper hand, time and time again. He took down mid-level bosses. Another one was pierced through the chest by him. India glared red-eyed at the sword stuck by its feet just as he finished stabbing. He immediately retreated, not giving it a chance to fight back. India was furious and raised its sharp claws, continuing to lunge forward to fight. He just slightly tilted his head indifferently. Its sharp claws were transforming and growing bigger, preparing to swallow him whole inside the capture. Kanghu slightly crouched, pinpointing his target. Izia's claws had just touched his hand but passed through suspiciously. It froze, not knowing what was happening. In the end, what Izia captured was just a giant rock sitting smugly in its hand. He was using this weakness to attack illusion magic, the weakness of the capture skill. It's a sequence of actions that leaves a huge opening, and I'll take advantage of that opening. Izia realized it had been tricked painfully. It turned abruptly and threw it back toward Kanghu. He quickly hid to the side and then suddenly stopped completely. Kanghu just used a flick of his finger to shatter the big rock in front into hundreds of pieces, which then rained down over his head. Finally in the rubble. Only one human arm poked out, but the very next second that arm seemed to fade into the ground. Illusion Magic Izia was momentarily startled and looked back. Since when did he appear right behind him? Using teleportation. Kanghu drew his razor-sharp long sword and struck at the boss's weak point. Izia only had enough time to let out a cry of pure agony. It collapsed onto the cold ground and the notification screen popped up instantly. You have defeated a boss-level monster. You have leveled up. I'll dump all my attribute points into stamina again. He breathed a sigh of relief, thinking to himself that he also needed to save some solarium. The screen was confirming Izia is currently absorbing target skills. Skill proficiency reach max level. Then summon a target within a fixed radius in front of you. Kanghu collected the loot into his item bag and then used the claw hand skill to seize it. Next, he claimed its sword as well. Kanghu picked it up and inspected it. So it can be used for both items, and if I handle it well, it can even disrupt their movements. Afterward, he practiced a few swings to get a feel for the new weapon. Through binoculars, the others were truly terrified. Even though they had witnessed everything, the guy couldn't stop praising him. Look at him. That guy has real guts. Dongchi began to assess him. An assassin who took down Izia without taking a single hit. She watched for a while, also bewildered by his strange movements. But what on earth is he doing? He continued to guess. Who knows? Maybe he wants to increase his skill proficiency. Boss, should we go and beat that jerk up? But only after being called for the second time. Boss, hey boss, did he snap out of his daydream? Dongche was so furious he started cursing wildly. Shut up! I already said to wait until he gets tired. It's better if we target him then. His team members listened terrified and quickly obeyed. Yes, sir. At the port, Mukun was snacking while reading a stack of important documents. Black Snake had given his approval for Kim Mun-hyun to join the organization with a few conditions. Just feed internal information about Lam Dong to the mercenary group that Lee Jijin is managing. He had just finished off a few guys and was now sitting on his spoils celebrating. This is good news for me. Mukun laughed gloatingly, full of himself. Lee Jijin is already worried sick trying to catch me. I'm aiming for the heavenly faction, but Black Snake isn't bad either. It's been a while since I could set foot in Dachun. Suddenly, he sensed something sinister. Outside the port, someone was waiting. Kanghu looked up and stared straight at him. Mukun smirked. Oh, another one here for me to fleece. He started tapping the wall 5 to 7 times with an arrogant tone. All right, you mangy, bloodthirsty wolves, come out, it's dinner time. As soon as they heard that, they all came out drooling, rushing to the front line as if they were afraid of missing out on a good meal. Emerging from the ground, they all opened their mouths with savage ferocity, ready to attack. Kanghu just stood still, waiting for them all to fall into the trap. Up above, Mukun started to panic. Huh? The wolves began to behave, fawning around him without biting at all. Mukun, what is the meaning of this? This species never eats meat like that. Just when they weren't paying attention, he drew his prepared sword and thrust it down, taking one out, then a second, then a third. They were all taken down one by one without him breaking a sweat. Mukun was stunned, eyes wide. What is this? He replied nonchalantly. It's not for nothing that they like eating this meat. There's a reason for everything. I specially prepared these pieces of meat, just to suit their tastes. Finally on the ground, those wolves morphed. This time Kanghu warned him seriously. I'm warning you, if you want to keep your life, be careful. I trembled and cursed, you bastard. Then he issued a tough challenge. If you're so good, come up here. Kanghu had never feared anyone. Fine, have it your way. Mukun let out a twisted smile, muttering, preparing well, are we? But it seems you've got a death wish. What kind of idiot charges straight into the enemy's lair? He had already set up the trigger device. I'll blow you to hell. Before jumping up, Kanghu scanned the area, once identifying the mana traces. He's really planted a lot of bombs. Even so, Kanghu didn't hesitate, using a short jump. Mukun saw him getting closer and started to panic. Wait, you bastard! Yet Kanghu's steps didn't trigger a single trap. He jumped over all the mana traps I set. He gnashed his teeth in anger. This time, Mukun intended to play dirty. Damn you, you think I'm scared? He glanced at his enemy. Mukun began using his own magic power, chaotic gladiator evil nebula, disorienting the enemy and clouding their vision. As the one favored by the black constellation, I'll show you what true darkness is. Hell's magic. Facing the relentless barrage he fluidly used, teleportation followed by short jump. Kang Hu's eyes began to calculate. He's around level 50, a mage with a support constellation that disorients the opponent. After calculating his steps, he gripped his sword and charged. I know exactly what he's going to do next. Mukun smirked with contempt. Don't think you can dodge this one. Inside the pitch-black space, Kang Hu hesitated, stopping in his tracks. Not yet. Still not yet. Wait a second. His footsteps seemed to pause for a few seconds. The moment he got the signal, Kang Hu lunged inside. Right then, Mukun was stunned in the darkness. He screamed hysterically, "How could you possibly know the only way to counter this technique?" You smirked and replied clearly, "Why wouldn't I know? I'm the one who created it." Having confirmed his target, you ignored Mukun's panicked rambling. "What kind of nonsense are you spouting?" Kang Hu used the sharp claw item to engulf him, trapping him inside as he screamed, unable to escape no matter what he did. What kind of monster skill is this? To cast it without even a stance, is that even possible? You used a short dash to lunge forward. It's not that I've just streamlined my movements. Just then blood began to pour from a wound on his stomach. Mukun started to panic, burning more magic power. Your footsteps seemed to slow down. Thick smoke billowed out of the shadows. Mukun began to chase you. Once I break free from this restraint item, I'll burn you to ashes. First things first, I need to escape. Not only can he fire continuous fireballs, but they're abnormally fast too. Is he using some kind of item to boost his magic? Kang Hu suddenly leapt off the opponent's base. Seeing this, he flew into a rage. You damn brat, die! Mukun unleashed a massive surge of strange magical power. Just then you dove down through the air toward the ground freely. He sneered in contempt. How does a piece of trash like you dare to? But it seemed it was just a trap. A series of Kang Hu clones appeared below an illusion spell. He started falling into a state of panic over and over again. As you landed on the ground, terrifying fireballs rained down. You damn bastard, but no matter what, Kang Hu was still appearing right there. Without a scratch or a wound, Mukun was almost broken. What kind of crazy nonsense is happening here? But a sharp pain struck. A real Kang Hu appeared from behind and stabbed him again. You bastard, you stabbed me in the same spot twice. He collapsed to the floor in agony. Mukun clutched his wound. You dog, you dared to trick me. Kang Hu just smiled coldly and shrugged calmly. Yeah, that's my hobby. How could you not fall for it? That's top-tier tactics right there. Just then the screen suddenly flashed a notification. What's this? Constellation. The master of Blitzkrieg highly praises your attack tactics. You have consumed a small amount of nebula power. You received a buff EXP plus 0.1%. Kang Hu frowned and muttered, I didn't expect to get sponsored. Even though countless nebulas watch the hunter sponsors are quite rare. The reason is that sponsoring consumes the nebula's own power. In other words, it's nebula energy. Just then, the system changed to a golden screen which clearly read, the space robber, a shameful sponsorship from a pathetic low-level nebula. It even lowers the dignity of me, your contractor. You smirked and replied, are you jealous? Don't worry, choosing me was your best decision. In return, I'll give it my all. It just insulted you a few times. You maniac, focus on the prey in front of you already. As Mukun tried to run, Kang Hu caught him. That's enough. He screamed in defiance. You vicious bastard, do you think catching a small fry like me changes anything? Do you think you'll actually accomplish anything? Your eyes were filled with contempt. If catching a bastard like you can change the world, then so be it. Kang Hu raised his sword. If a single strike could finish the enemy, I wouldn't need to be here. He could only blink as he watched his own demise, unable to do a thing. The system screen immediately announced, you have eliminated the target and acquired his contract with the Chaos Warrior. The Chaos Warrior is now controlled by the Space Robber. There is no way to escape unless the contract is cancelled or terminated. All special abilities of the Chaos Warrior have been transferred to you. Kang Hu clicked, agree. Acquired underground chaos. Awesome, I got it. You smiled at the enemy, debating whether to take his gear too. Even though you didn't have a hobby of stripping men, you decided to take his clothes anyway. Kang Hu had stripped him of everything useful. His equipment is abundant. So much for being level 50 and stingy. Turns out he dumped all his money into items. You even found gloves that could link mana chains. Pair this with the dagger for precision plus a brand new set of armor. And I'll convert this to boost my stamina. The ring on his index finger would strengthen resistance. Those stats are crucial. Can't let them go to waste. And this, an amulet of the evil god. Consumes 1 mana per second while in an awakened state reduces skill casting time. Kanghu beamed at the pile of loot he had acquired. This buff is optimized for me. I've already taken his clothes. Might as well sell all these rank 9 items. I'm bound to make a killing. You were full of anticipation. If I can hit level 20, it'll be perfect. The assassin's bread and butter skill is right around the corner. As you ventured deeper inside, you began to wonder, this is strange. Why aren't there any monsters around? Isn't this place usually crawling with those thorny-legged rabbits? From above, 3 guys were watching from a distance, binoculars glued to their eyes. She excitedly watched his situation, planning to finish him off and loot his gear. Rongsha was brimming with anticipation, wondering if it was time. The teammates below waited for orders, eager to see their boss's expectant nod, and as soon as he gave it, they excitedly prepared a secret sack. The signal was received to mess with him. Those rabbits started catching the scent of blood on him, baring their fangs and claws as they lunged. Luckily, Kanghu was ready for them. Finally, you showed up, he said, and with a single sword slash, he wiped them all out. Blood splattered across the shards, rocks, and ground as the system pinged a notification. You have leveled up and reached level 20. I've been waiting for this, he thought. You have acquired the basic assassin skill multi-stab thanks to your nebula affinity. The skill upgraded to blood-soaked stab, which continuously interferes with the target's blood loss stats. Watching from above, she was speechless, stunned that they died so easily. But Rongsha broke into a sinister grin. Not so fast, this is my chance, he thought, sensing the guy had let his guard down and leaped to the ground to attack him with his blade. Kanghu realized the danger in a heartbeat, using a short dash. He looked at his opponent coldly, thinking, who the hell is this guy trying to rob me? A second slower and I'd have lost my head. Rongsha channeled his mana into his blade. Still too weak, huh? This time, he intended to pour all his strength into the strike. I won't miss this time. Kanghu nimbly ducked low, dodging the blade. I immediately used the skill he had just been gifted, blood-soaked stab. The screen popped up with a reminder, blood-soaked stab limits recovery ability for 10 turns. I need to use this a few more times, he thought, but something Kanghu saw made him nearly freeze. Rongsha smirked dismissively. You call that an attack? It's useless. The boss is a berserker. The more he fought, the stronger he became, his blade slicing the air near Kanghu's neck. He had to admit the guy was strong as expected of a berserker. Kanghu used his analysis technique on his opponent, noticing a massive opening. He laughed loudly, acting as arrogant as he could. Give it your all, come on! Kanghu chuckled to himself. Good, at least I've got 4 more turns. And with that, he dashed forward, leaving Rongsha stunned as he realized Kanghu was using his ultimate move. As he lunged forward, Rongsha ground his teeth in a panic. What the hell? What is this? Kanghu was unleashing blood-soaked stabs, striking repeatedly at his opponent, even though he still played it tough. How annoying, I didn't even notice those little cuts. Once done, Rongsha roared, look down on me, I see right through you. Are you done playing your little games? But his whole body started to sway. Yosha began to stumble. What is happening to me? I can't believe it. And that cheap slash? It's draining my strength, he thought. On the sidelines, his lackeys started panicking. Boss, what's wrong? Could it be? He started sweating buckets. No way. Yongsha tried to deny it all. The more I get stabbed, the stronger I get. Just then, Kanghu used his ultimate power once more, reaching out as his sword flew forward, piercing straight through the boss's chest. He smirked. Even if you have the berserker class at the end of the day, you're still just human. If you lose too much blood, you'll die. As the words left his lips, Rongchi collapsed to the ground, blood loss taking its toll. The 2 remaining lackeys fled in terror. Damn it, run! He's no ordinary guy. He wasn't going to waste time on those trash anyway, as they scrambled away toward the National Hunter Security Agency of Osan SPA. At that moment, the screen flashed. You have eliminated the target and acquired his contract. The Bloodthirsty. Kanghu looked at the system. How about it? What does the Bloodthirsty one taste like? I've already snagged 2 contracts in just 1 day. You should sponsor me, don't you think? Nebula muttered as the system kept firing off notifications. You have eliminated the target and seized the contract. Bloodthirsty. A bloodthirsty one, Kanghu murmured to himself, rubbing his chin. Just today alone. And I've already gotten 2 star constellations. Just as his self-questioning ended, The system displayed the statistics: constellation the bloodthirsty, neutral alignment. The more strength you lose, the higher your resistance to damage. He seemed quite satisfied with the constellation's traits. This time, a constellation that can boost mental state is pretty good too. Kang Hu kicked the loot at his feet. You picked up quite a few useful items. All the opponent's items now belong to him, including this precious magic-resistant anklet. These boots increase speed too. Kang Hu admired his glowing hands. And these gloves boost physical strength. He carefully inspected everything one last time. Then he smiled with satisfaction. If I wear these gloves on one side, with the disposable glove being the perfect touch. He left the scene without a second thought, leaving the body sprawled right there. Time to wrap up the mission right. Kang Hu quickly returned to the bustling city of Daejin. Jaejin looked at the loot he brought back, absolutely mesmerized by it. She held up the shoes and waved them in front of Kang Hu. I can't believe you actually found Vat Thao's shoes. That was fast. He stayed silent, just waiting for her to continue. Thanks, Jaejin said, unable to stop smiling. To be honest, the first mission was just a minor test. Only about half of the people actually make it through. Hearing that, he thought to himself, so 50% die. Kang Hu looked at her sitting there so composed and felt a slight chill down his spine. It was all thanks to her cold-blooded, calculating mind. That's why she had such a high success rate on these difficult missions. Jaejin slid a file across the table toward him. As promised, I'll allow you to enter a dungeon. It's full of mid-tier monsters, and this is all the intel on it. She slowly started providing the details about this mid-tier dungeon. The Howling Wind Dungeon in Gapyeong. There are 4 mid-tier monsters and 1 boss. Kang Hu took the file and started studying it with intense focus. Jaejin watched him and asked, Do you like it? He finished reading, looked up, and a perfect smirk tugged at the corner of his mouth. He thought, there are 5 skills in that dungeon that I can snatch. He put the file back on the table and looked at Jaejin. Book it for me for tomorrow morning. After getting the useful intel, he casually decided to surprise her. By the way, do you buy and sell items? She looked at the pile of loot on the table and exclaimed, Wow, Kim, you really got a ton of stuff. I'll sell them for a good price as soon as the trade is done. Kang Hu shifted the topic to other missions. So, shall we move on to the next one? He pointed at a photo of a person on the mission brief. Let's start with this guy. This is an escort mission from the National Security Agency, he explained, pointing out a list of details about the man named Heo Jung-tai wanted for theft of national assets and assault. The reward is 300 million coins plus a free dungeon rental for level 100 and below. Jaejin reviewed the mission and asked, You're going to find his base. That sounds pretty tough. Can you actually pull it off? Aside from being spotted near the deserted Gangtiaong station, Kang Hu looked at her with a confident expression and nodded. Don't worry, I've already got a way to find him. Very shortly after, I was already on a deserted street waiting for a phone call to connect his mind racing. After selling the items he didn't need, he had earned 250 million coins. He walked silently down the road while waiting for the line to pick up. Now that I've got the money, I need to create my own escape routes. Finally, someone answered on the other end. Kang Hu quickly stated his purpose. I want to buy 10 solariums. Location Dongsan Station. The man seemed to understand the code and replied, Understood. He hung up as soon as he heard the answer, then looked up at the night sky. There was still some time before the dungeon conquest. In front of Kang Hu was a sign lit up by purple neon lights. He whispered to himself, Let's go grab a drink and gather some intel. Inside, it was quite noisy, with a fight breaking out between 2 men. The long-haired guy got slashed by the other, blood spraying everywhere. He shrieked in pain and collapsed right at the counter. The opposing side roared with cheers of victory. Kang Hu walked into the bar, pulled up a chair, and sat down in front of the bartender, ignoring the ruckus behind him. Bet it all, take him out. He placed the money on the table, spreading out 5 fingers, and stared at the person behind the bar. 1 explosive solarium, please. The bartender stared at him blankly for a moment. Then she repeated the name of the drink Kang Hu had just ordered. An explosive solarium, that's a bold choice. She happily took the money he offered and smiled brightly. I didn't expect anyone to order that. It has a pretty strange taste, you know. Kang Hu replied coolly. That's my preference. She winked, turned around to head inside, and said, Wait a sec. As for Kang Hu, he was thinking to himself, since forever in places like these, bartenders usually have a lot of useful information. He glanced around. Of course, it wasn't all verified information. Kang Hu's eyes suddenly widened in surprise. A shortcut hairstyle caught his eye. A girl with a hot body sitting coldly in a corner of the bar. What the hell is that woman doing here? Kong Hu seemed to know a lot about her because he immediately recalled the devious face of Dong-hun, a subordinate of the Heavenly Enterprise CEO Kong Dong-hun. Cha So-hee, the hunting dog. He couldn't help but feel worried as he looked in that direction. Is Heavenly Enterprise starting to track me down already? Just then Benny pushed the drink in front of Kong Hu. What a shame I've never seen anyone as handsome as you. She chatted excitedly. It'll probably be hard to see you again from now on. Kong Hu turned to look at her with an unfriendly gaze and a cold voice. Why? Benny leaned in close and started gossiping. I've only heard rumors, but she leaned even closer to him. It seems like Heavenly Enterprise is aiming to take over this sector. A stream of information flowed from her quite naturally. Their plan is probably to round up the hunters here and force them into the mines. That's the typical recruitment method for Heavenly Enterprise. Kang Hu listened in silence, staring at his drink. He looked back at So-hee, who was sitting with her legs crossed over there. So that's why Cha So-hee is here. Can't even have a drink in peace. Kang Hu finished his glass, stood up, and decided, I'd better get going. But just at that moment, an incident occurred that startled both him and Benny. Kang Hu was so angry he had to laugh, cursing under his breath. Damn it! At the entrance of the club, a group of guys in black suits and dark glasses appeared, acting cocky. They walked in with smug smiles on their faces. Kang Hu muttered, I'm screwed. Hi, and everyone else stood there staring at the newcomers. A man with his hair tied back spoke up, Heavenly Enterprise. Benny had already scurried away. Someone else looked absolutely terrified, their face twisted in panic. You guys are here too. The leader of the Heavenly Enterprise group didn't even pay attention to the people in the club, just ordered his underlings, be careful, take action. The underlings, hearing this, rushed in with tenfold excitement. They're all such good merchandise. Just like that, the guy got grabbed instantly. He couldn't even fight back before being beaten down. Someone else tried to defend themselves with an iron pipe, but it was sliced in half by the Heavenly Enterprise thugs. Just then, the leader's eyes caught something unusual. He faced Kang Hu, who was standing there calmly, and arrogantly asked, What the hell are you looking at? His next move, without waiting for an answer, was to swing his axe, trying to die. But unfortunately for him, he had met his match. Kang Hu simply shifted behind his comrade's position and conveniently summoned his sword. A sharp, instantaneous flash cut through the air, silencing him mid-sentence. Damn it, how did that happen? Fresh blood sprayed across the floor. Both men collapsed, drawing the attention of the others nearby. So-hee, who had been quiet until now, showed some interest at Kang Hu's move. Rubbing her chin with a wolf-like smirk at her prey, she leaped from her position, aiming straight for Kang Hu, who was standing right by the bar. Realizing he was being targeted by a powerful opponent, Kang Hu tensed up. So he moved with fluid grace, drawing the dagger from her hip in one seamless motion. She decisively hurled the dagger toward Kang Hu. He watched her graceful, flowing movements with tension, but the blade didn't hit him. Instead, it embedded itself into the chest of the guy behind him. Kang Hu was taken aback as he turned. He hadn't even noticed the man sneaking up to ambush him, but he'd run right into So-hee's interference. So-hee didn't hesitate, sharply pulling the dagger back out of the man's chest. The man looked at her in pure disbelief. Why would she do that? So-hee didn't answer, instead delivering a kick that sent him flying. Kang Hu didn't understand her motive either, so he just watched, wondering what exactly is she planning. After taking down that guy, So-hee turned to look at Kang Hu. I've never seen you before, but I like your style. Which guild are you with? He answered bluntly, I don't like being tied down. She laughed, looking even more intrigued. Even better. Let's talk business, shall we? Naturally, So-hee turned to look at the Heavenly Throne members. They were fully armed, their attention shifting entirely toward this side. After leaving that spot, the others looked confused, whispering to each other, asking what was going on. The plan changed. Why did the undercover agent attack us? So-hee looked at them coldly. The whole group was stunned. Her lips moved silently, commanding them to attack the Heavenly Throne members. They were bewildered, not understanding what was happening, but they all rushed forward, following her cue. However, Kang Hu had already figured out the trick and intercepted them. This is all part of her plan, he thought coldly, eyeing the crowd rushing toward him. So-hee, feeling smug about her scheme, stepped forward. I'll help out too. Kang Hu looked behind her, thinking she must be testing my abilities. He suddenly smiled. Fine, let's play along and pretend to go along with it. And so the two of them joined forces, fighting together. Kong Hu's dagger plunged straight into the chest of the nearest man, panicking his comrades. He turned, shouting to rally their morale. Now that he was unarmed, Kong Hu smiled and raised his empty hand. The dagger was instantly retracted as if an invisible hand were doing it for him. Just like that, one man and one dagger decimated the crowd. His speed and precision surprised even Sohee. She hadn't expected this from him, to have such a special ability. It's telekinesis. Sohee stared at Kong Hu. He swung his bloodied dagger and smirked at her. Let's head to the exit. With that, he turned and ran first. Shouts erupted behind him. Giving a signal, Sohee followed while the remaining thugs yelled, chasing after that bastard. Chase him, hurry. The two ran at full speed toward the exit with the others hot on their heels. Take care of the ones in the hall. Sohee took advantage of the chase to ask for more info. Aren't you an assassin? Do you use magic too? Kong Hu looked at his gloved hand and smiled, thinking to himself, magic, huh? That would be convenient. He secretly thought of the thin thread at his index finger. This thing will connect to the dagger. Kang Hu smirked, glancing at her with disdain. Think whatever you want. There's no need to reveal anything about myself yet. He kicked a door open with one foot, his eyes scanning and spotting several men blocking the stairway currently descending. The club's intercom system blared an announcement. Attention customers, there are intruders from Black Lion throughout the club. Violence is breaking out everywhere, causing chaos in the club. The people inside had already taken control of the whole place. She laughed with sadistic glee. You low-life scum, let's head to the detention center. Stop talking nonsense. The announcement kept blaring, and Kong Hu's battle with them hadn't stopped. The Heavenly Throne members were trying to suppress them quickly. That Heavenly Throne member, riding his momentum, swung a hammer down at his spot, but Kong Hu dodged it. The man lost his balance and stumbled. Kang Hu, seeing the opening, helped him fall faster by slashing his throat and finishing with an elbow strike to his back. Suddenly, a system screen appeared, surprising Kong Hu slightly. He smiled at this latest update. The constellation Disciple of Justice is moved by your actions of punishing the hypocrites. They are consuming the constellation's power. To increase your strength, experience gained 0.1%. Kong Hu secretly whispered, Thanks, Justice. He crouched down to dodge a dual-blade strike from the next opponent. I thought it was funny. The guy was quickly taken out by a dagger thrown straight into his forehead, forcing Kong Hu to force a smile as he looked back. Something so weak. So he smiled at him, charmed. The two of them were working quite well together. Looking up at the men charging down, he thought, can things like these really exist in this world? Kong Hu wiped his mouth with a self-mocking grin. Who cares? He looked at the thugs in front of him. I can return the favor. An axe thrown by one of them flew toward him. Kong Hu tilted his body to dodge. It embedded itself deep into the solid concrete wall. He used the momentum to jump, using the axe as a stepping stone. In one leap, he soared over the head of the man in front of him. With a sharp, clean stroke, he ended all three of them at once. Short leap, constellation, Disciple of Justice. Kong Hu landed, and so he caught up, clicking her high heels. The three of them landed in a flash, Constellation of Justice disciples touching down right in sync with Sohee hot on their heels, the sharp click of her heels echoing as she caught up. I leaned down and pulled my dagger out of his forehead. I spun around to look at the stairwell littered with bodies just as I'd expected, then glanced at Sohee, who was violently kicking a door open instead of using her hands. I looked back and signaled for her to keep going. She smirked, realizing she'd picked the right person. They finally made it outside and paused for a second. Over the earpiece, the Heavenly Throne people were shouting at each other, "Search the place thoroughly." A chaotic crowd scrambled to find the two who were hiding behind a wall. Once things quieted down a bit, Sohee asked, "What do you think about working somewhere freer than the guild?" She held out a black card offering a pretty decent salary. Kong Hu snatched the card and started walking away. "I'll contact you after I handle a few things." He stuffed his hands into his pockets, leaving her standing there alone. As she walked towards the lights, Sohee tucked her hair back to reveal an earpiece. "Yes, master," she said, approaching the group of captives held by the Heavenly Throne. "The ones we just caught. We're done here." Sohee smiled confidently while speaking to the person on the other end. "It's easy to investigate. Just give me the name." Upon hearing that name, she grinned with even more interest. It seemed Kong Hu had just become her target. The Jungmyeong Detention Center, right? Meanwhile, Kong Hu was enjoying his recent act. These sponsorships were actually pretty good. Even the system was speechless at his antics. as the spatial robber time passed quickly and a new day began in the crowded subway station as he leisurely stepped off the train. Kong-hoo scanned his surroundings, calculating in his head based on So-hyun's father's reaction. He wasn't a wanted man yet. He had to be careful, but from now on he should probably watch out for Dae-chun. It was pretty annoying how the heavenly throne was expanding their influence. Kong-hoo didn't stop moving. They were monitoring incoming trains lately. Taeyeong Station. He smiled at his plan. Instead of going straight to Taeyeong, he would go through Dongsan Station, and Kong-hoo quickly grabbed the items he needed. His eyes lit up when he saw the blue object in his hand. It was delivered so smoothly. Kong-hoo turned, tucked the case containing the solarium into his inventory, and thought about the novel where Sin Kong-hoo used a hidden space near the station to receive solarium. It was a good thing he knew the way. Just then, a voice interrupted his thoughts. "This is the best part-time job ever." Some random guy whispered into his phone. "Just need to act a little and you can get in." What was that? He turned to see the guy looking his way, and the man snapped, "What are you staring at, huh?" The guy hurriedly turned and walked away, frantically explaining to the person on the other end of the line. "It's nothing, just come to Rongsan Station." On the LED screen, a man was performing fire dances. Two long lines of people waited orderly and solemnly at the entrance waiting for the dungeon, but after the structured arrangements, those were two extremes. Some looked like rays of light walking with their heads held high, but there were others too. Ragged, poor to the point of exhaustion, sitting in a corner, the place the Manhwa Guild monopolized. Dungeons were operated safely like collateral with guards carefully posted at the entrances at all times. It was also where the National Security Agency operated. Kong-hoo stood in front of a weapon stall, browsing ever since these massive supermarkets opened up. He looked at the price tag with its dozen zeros on a short sword and winced. The prices were highway robbery, but since the selection was 1.5 times larger than other places, it wasn't too bad. Kong-hoo picked it up to test it. Lukai Choi grade 5 weapon strength plus 50. I guess I'll have to practice using daggers from now on, he thought, while his other hand conjured a chunk of solid rock. Let's test this out. As soon as the rock formed in his hand, Kong-hoo squeezed. The whole thing crumbled like a soft cookie. He was satisfied and dropped the debris. Not bad at all. Kong-hoo looked at this weapon again. Lukai Choi increases recovery speed and resistance by double during 30-minute skirmishes. The passive effects are pretty good too. He liked it more the more he thought about it. Unlike the others, he didn't need to worry about mana, but using too much mana meant he had to worry about the pressure load. Finally, Kong-hoo decided to take it. He carried the weapon down the main road, but suddenly, something in front of him made him stop. How interesting. A happy family of 3 was walking by holding hands. The little child in the middle was cheering, "Mom, let's have chicken again tonight." A beautiful mother doted on her son, sure this is Seoul after all. The father also smiled at his wife and child. "The National Security Agency and the Manhwa Guild will protect us." Only Kong-hoo hung his head in silence as he passed by the family, thinking to himself, "True blind faith." As his thought ended, a shrill scream rang out, making Kong-hoo turn to watch. The father, who had just smiled and believed in their protection, was now sitting on the ground holding his swollen cheek, watching the masked men grab his son. "Please let my child go," the guy sneered. "Are you kidding me, old man?" He held the child and arrogantly continued, "If you want to request something, you need to be sincere." The boy was terrified, tears streaming down his face as he looked at his father for help. "Dad." The passers-by were also terrified. Someone from the National Security Agency suggested someone call for Han Sa-id. Only Kong-hoo just stood there, silently watching that unruly crowd. Are they really acting this brazenly in broad daylight? Kong-hoo gripped his newly bought weapon, thinking, "I'm such a fool. I should have just blown them all away and left the rest for Hensa to clean up." Just as he made his decision, someone spoke up. "I'll show you guys some real sincerity." Everyone was stunned by the newcomer's appearance. The crowd recognized the man approaching and couldn't stop whispering and murmuring. It was Guan-hung. He walked forward arrogantly, leaving everyone around him in shock. He was the leader of the China Guild. Kong-hoo glanced over and saw the information on Guan-hung's constellation. Constellation of the Demon War God, an evil constellation, one that specialized in swordsmanship and spatial manipulation. I'll be damned, he thought. Never expected to run into a colleague of Jiangxi here. He's not the type to get involved in stuff like this, is he? So why? Before he could finish his thought, Guan-hung waved his hand and a masked man caught a card that had been flicked at him. He stood there with his hands on his hips, staring suspiciously at the dark object in his hand. "What's this?" Guan Heng answered generously. "Just take as much money as you want, just let the kid go." The two masked men immediately signaled each other. "Drop the kid now!" He pushed the child hard toward Guan Heng and yelled at his partners to run. Guan Heng caught the child safely before looking back up at the group. The father rushed over in a panic to check on his son. "Are you okay, son?" Suddenly, Guan Heng pressed his hand against the pavement, his fingers elongating into sharp jet-black claws. In an instant, he had vanished from where he was standing, vanished into thin air. Kang Hu was startled as well. He really was strong. He had already cut off the kidnappers, a swordsman who used space as his combat attribute. His expensive shoes tapped lightly on the ground, and the entire area surrounding the kidnappers turned into a dark void. One of them, curious, reached out to touch the black barrier. "What is this?" Before they even knew what it was, Guan Heng lunged forward with his sword. A single sharp strike cut through both of them at once. The last one was hit by the sword's aura too. His mask was ripped away. Kang Hu suddenly realized, "Wait, that's the guy I met when I was picking up the goods. That's the guy I saw at the train station." The man backed away in fear, looking at his fallen comrade. You actually killed them." Panic-stricken, he begged. "Guan Heng, please let me go. I did exactly what you told me to do. You said it was all just an act." The people outside could only see them talking, but they couldn't hear a word of the conversation. They looked at each other curious. "What is he saying?" Someone guessed. "Maybe he used a skill so we can't hear anything." The thug tried to draw his sword, but his hands and feet were fumbling everywhere. He shouted to muster up some courage, but before his sword could even clear its sheath, his head was sliced off by Guan Heng. Guan Heng smiled, and the black circle was retracted. He walked toward the family of three. "You're safe now." Knowing all of Guan Heng's tricks, Kang Hu sighed. "Just as I thought." He watched the people who didn't know any better endlessly cheering for the ringleader who used thugs to manipulate their trust in the China Guild. "Thank you so much, truly the China Guild is amazing." Then by establishing a monopoly so conveniently, Guan Heng turned and walked away, secretly calculating, "Enjoy it while you can. I'll take everything these kings have." Elsewhere, the woman had arrived in person. "I am deeply sorry." The man fumbled as he handed the documents to So Hai. "So this is all the information we have. This is the file on the runaway you mentioned, right?" She flipped through the pages, her fingers intentionally or unintentionally digging into the stark white paper. She didn't say a word. Meanwhile, on this side, Kang Hu had gone to the dungeon entrance alone. He was negotiating with the guards. While So Hai was checking his information, she thought, "So this person is actually Kang Hu." His image and profile were displayed before her eyes. She smiled with interest, staring intently at the information. He looked so familiar. Kang Hu, at this moment, was talking to the guard at the dungeon entrance. "I think it's time. Can I go in now?" The two guards exchanged looks. "The dungeon reset is complete." After getting a nod from his partner, the guard looked at him with a cold expression, sizing Kang Hu up. "You say you're level 20. That's lower than the recommended level." He just stayed silent, ignoring the guard's question. "Will you be all right?" Deep down, Kang Hu thought, "If I want to steal this opportunity from these people, I have to level up." Guan Heng's arrogant face appeared in his mind. Constellation of the evil spirit of war. A constellation leaning toward evil. One that specializes in swordsmanship and spatial manipulation. Level 25. Kang Hu made a decision and placed his hand on his system screen. "If I keep going like this, not only will I lose this chance, but I'll be hunted down too. My minimum goal must be level 50. He tapped the screen once. "If I want to reach that level quickly, I have to at least be able to endure this." Then he looked up and smiled at the two guards. Of course, inside the wind-whipped dungeon, Kang Hu struggled to take steps in the blinding sandstorm. He muttered, "Visibility is terrible." Carefully, he turned back to check the footprints he had left along the way. "If I don't leave a trail, I'll definitely get lost." Suddenly, his eyes sharpened. Kang Hu's toes had nearly stepped right off into the abyss below. He stopped and looked across to the other side. That was close. Did the path just get wiped clean? Kang Hu turned around. Before he knew it, a whole crowd of glowing red eyes had appeared behind him, countless claw lizards swarming the ground. He grinned at the first wave of monsters. "Right on time. Time to pull out a weapon. If things go smoothly, I'll hit my goal faster than expected." The claw lizards rushed forward, trying to seize the initiative, while on the other side, So he was still studying the details on Kang Hu. She listened to a report. Even though we tried to simulate how he escaped that pursuit, only then did she look up at the man who had been standing there the whole time. So what are the results? Based on what we've seen, I think he took them down with magic. He got really lucky being able to trick a level 100 hunter. The man thought back to the scene. Kang Hu taking down a level 100 hunter made him break into a cold sweat. However, the absurd thing is how he predicted every follow-up attack. That shouldn't be possible for a level 10. So He's finger stopped on the paper, tracing a symbol in red ink. Ah! She folded the file and thanked him in a soft voice, handing it back to the man. To be honest, a few days ago, I met that escaped prisoner. The man was shocked. What? Her next sentence made his expression even more panicked. I predict he is at least level 100. So he set a fire, turning the file into nothing but ash. Then what about these things? You don't even know his true level. Meanwhile, Kang Hu was enjoying his own technique, swinging his sword. The claw lizards rushed at him in a pack. One swing and a lizard flipped over belly up. Kang Hu looked at the wound he'd left on it and thought, just as I figured. I aimed for the belly, but is that all the damage I can do? If it's like this, how am I going to catch them all? His finger twitched and the thread on his fingertip pulled. Instantly, the sword stuck in the lizard's belly was ripped out. Kang Hu swung his arm in a wide arc, the blade slicing through the entire group. He noted their numbers, only 2 were left unharmed. With one final strike, he finished off the remaining 2. The lizards all collapsed. He smirked, curling his fingers at them. Keep 'em coming. The lizards glared at him and slowly crept forward, then lunged simultaneously. Kang Hu silently did some quick math. There's one thing you have to be careful about when hunting monsters, and that's kill credit. He knew all too well that no matter how much damage you deal, if you don't land the finishing blow, no one acknowledges that you were the one who hunted it. He looked back at the lizards. But what if I can just deal a little bit of damage to them? Kang Hu dug his toes into the ground and spun around, running at full speed. Everything would change. The lizards chased after him aggressively. He leaped to the other side, a short jump. The lizards he had injured didn't understand and jumped after him blindly. By the time Kang Hu landed safely on the other side of the cliff, he turned back to see the foolish lizards. One after another, they tumbled down. They dove headfirst into the ground and died. The system popped up quickly to award points to Kang Hu. You have defeated a normal monster. Next came the rain of lizards falling headfirst. Kang Hu's system notifications rang non-stop, leaving him satisfied. He capped off the fight with a level up notification. You have leveled up. Very quickly, he reached level 27. Kang Hu smiled. Success. Back at the prison area, looking at the cell with the symbol she had seen in Kang Hu's files. Is this the drawing of a constellation? She stared intently at the drawing on the floor, deep in thought. He performed a blood ritual? For what was he trying to summon a constellation? She was busy thinking when her phone rang. Yes, master. Her master spoke. Have you finished the investigation? After turning to leave Kang Hu's cell, she replied, I'm still investigating. That escaped prisoner is no ordinary person. The other person said calmly, I think so too. She walked down the long hallway and suggested, I need one more person. Her master sounded confused. For what? After feeling annoyed at the memory of watching herself burn that man to death, the captain was vague about the jailbreaker. I was annoyed, so I finished him off. The sandstorm continued to howl through the rocky crevices. Kang Hu looked at the dead lizards lying on the ground. He wiped away sweat and looked at his loot, the stones he had just harvested. Kang Hu's eyes were sharp as he remembered his own grueling past. He tossed a stone up. Just so he probably knows I'm the escaped prisoner by now. I can't get caught that easily. As Kang Hu muttered to himself, a new creature appeared behind him, enveloped in red fire. The creature, glowing bright red, charged forward aggressively. Kang Hu smiled, satisfied with this timely arrival. I've been waiting for the first skill I'd get here. He faced the creature, unaware that someone was secretly observing him from afar. That person stealthily knocked an arrow on their bow. Kang Hu quickly finished off his opponent. His red flames hissed in a puddle of water, steam rising up. He stood there looking at the steaming pile in the water, waiting quietly for the system. You have stolen a skill from the target fire element infusion. Kang Hu smiled. You can upgrade the skill based on the constellation's power. You can infuse fire elements into all weapons. Meanwhile, the stalker still didn't dare to act rashly, just peeking and observing him. He looked at the scene below, terrified. He took down a mid-level boss that quickly, he recalled the earlier confrontation. His hunting skills were also very refined, a sword released and pulled back and the boss was wounded. The boss was also driven into a blind rage by Kang Hu. It followed his nimble footsteps chasing him headlong. First he lured the fire spirit to the oasis. Then he got hit by it, but it was just an afterimage. Using illusion magic to deceive it, our boss just blindly rushed into the oasis water. The observer watched anxiously as it threw itself right into the lake. He doesn't seem like a low-level player, no wonder the captain is interested in him. He recalled the mission Jejin had given him. I want you to keep an eye on him. He looked at the tattered photo of Kang Hu and held it up to examine it. Then Jejin spoke up. His test results are great, but his level is too low. It makes me a little worried. She looked at him. Step in to help if he's in danger. Jejin smiled. Give him a little hint. When the time comes, don't forget to list the benefits of joining a party for him. He watched the person who easily defeated the mid-tier boss and whispered to himself, he will definitely bring great benefits to the Lamdong Guild if we help him level up. The observer stood up watching Kong's figure. He was heading deeper into the desert. I should follow him a bit longer. His sword hilt was fired out again, but this time it was deflected by the boss's shield. It had reactivated its protective barrier. Just as Kang Hu pulled his sword back, he grabbed the hilt. Their defensive shield was certainly quite solid. 18 monsters were being dealt with one by one, the mid-tier boss defender. Their bodies were sturdy. The mid-tier boss center. It even had a full protective helmet. The mid-tier boss forward. The three bosses stood in a row. Are you trying to prove the meaning of these three positions? Together, huh? He teased while looking at them. A team to protect each other, Kang Hu told himself, which reminded him of Li Jejin's words. The conversation between him and Jejin that day flashed through his mind for a moment. I will contact you after I deal with the mid-tier boars, he said when he was about to leave. She stopped him. Wait a second, Suan. Kang Hu, have you considered working with us full-time? Dungeons aren't easy if you're all alone. He remained silent, tilting his head to look at her. After a long moment, Kang Hu smirked mysteriously and replied, I will politely decline. I like to keep things to myself. So back to the dungeon combat, Kang Hu dashed forward with a short step, charging like a bullet toward the three of them. The boss is defending firmly right there. Kang Hu slid past the forward's position, causing it to react a split second too late. Next, he decisively struck a sword blow into its shield, a loud clang, but there wasn't any significant change. Then without even giving the forward a chance to retaliate, Kang Hu kept sliding forward. The position he aimed for next was the center in the middle of the formation. Instant movement. A cloud of black smoke began to rise, startling the bosses. That black smoke quickly spread out, covering almost the entire shield of the three of them. Their vision was completely seized by Kang Hu's ability through that black smoke, a dark chaos. He backed off to keep his distance from all three. Short step. Kang Hu's eyes were locked on the formation, which stood like statues due to his vision-stealing ability, and he muttered, good. His toes pushed off slightly, and he was constantly calculating in his mind. This distance was perfect. While the three mid-tier bosses were still in a panic from losing their sight, Kang Hu's hand reached out to use grasp. The forward was the first guy to feel his power. It was still bewildered, turning its head to search for Kang Hu's silhouette, but he had already shattered its shield. He lunged with lightning speed. Grasp made it spin sideways and around, clueless, following the sound of Kang Hu's movement, but he had already deftly slid under its high frame and infiltrated behind it. The goal was to separate those three guys and target the remaining two bosses who were also stumbling around. Kang Hu said coldly, this is why I don't like teamwork. The center heard his voice and was startled, chasing toward the direction of the sound. You've already seen the consequences of relying on others when you can't even take care of yourselves. He moved like a ghost to a different angle. Instant movement. Although it detected Kang Hu's position, it couldn't see where he was at all. So it fell completely into a passive state, only knowing how to stand there looking confused. And that seemingly impenetrable shield was once again broken by Kang Hu. Short step. He laughed with interest, stabbing his sword straight into its spot, finishing his unfinished sentence. Done yet. The center was immediately wounded. It fell backward from the impact of the thrust, taking the defender down with it. The system notification rang out, recording Kang Hu's achievement. You have defeated a mid-tier boss. The vast space was now left with only him and the forward boss, which was charging in angrily. Kang Hu stood there waiting, completely unfazed. The forward was red with rage as its teammates were taken down so easily. It roared to the heavens to intimidate him, but the effect on him was likely minimal, as Kang Hu's expression remained very calm. It swung its fist, but he simply lowered his center of gravity slightly. A second later, the forward was startled. The person who had been in front of it had evaporated, shifting behind its back instant movement. It turned its body quickly, redirecting the punch toward Kang Hu, but at the same time a shield enveloped his body and the punch just passed through that phantom image. Just kidding. Illusion magic. Kang Hu mocked it, "You idiot." His actual body was to the right of the forward. A decisive sword stroke. It had no way to defend. The forward's body trembled for a while. With a roar of pain, it fell with a bleeding wound in front of Kang Hu. The system continued its work. You have defeated a mid-tier boss. Experience points increased. You have just leveled up and reached level 29. Kang Hu stepped on that massive body to gain momentum. He pulled his sword out. Once done, he looked up at the notification screen. You have obtained Skills Center Defender and Forward, combining the 3 skills above. Creates the skill, Protective Shield. He quietly read the system information. Protective Shield. A deployable shield that can persist until it is destroyed. His eyes looked at the display screen while his mouth kept munching on blue solasium to replenish energy. That's interesting. It turns into a deployable type after reaching the maximum level. He clapped his hands, watching the 3 mid-tier bosses evaporate while the observer behind him didn't know what to say about this situation. This is definitely more useful. He stared and thought. He's even better than I thought. After a long time observing, he decided to stand up. Perhaps he doesn't need a party. No, it's still too early to conclude. His straight silhouette watched Kang Hu, who had traveled quite a distance deep into the desert. I will be certain when he faces the boss. The weather boss in the dungeon was changing abnormally in the deeper areas. Thunder and lightning even appeared, accompanied by a dark red sky, as if signaling that the difficulty had leveled up. The boss of this stage had appeared, laughing and waiting for Kang Hu to come challenge it. The observer still stuck closely behind him, silently watching. He tried to stay calm to keep up. While Kang Hu remained surprisingly calm, facing the boss head-on, he finally encountered the thing he was looking for, seeing his challenger. The boss grinned ear to ear, laughing with delight, while Kang Hu stared straight back, boldly pointing at the boss, making his declaration clear from the start. You are the prey I've set my sights on. The very next second, Ijia shot up into the air, frantically raining down a barrage of magic spheres while shrieking non-stop. With every wave of its hand, another sphere tore through the air toward Kang Hu, yet amidst the magical downpour, he calmly weaved through every single attack. Dark fireball, blink, blink, blink. Ijia quickly realized Kang Hu was closing the distance step by step. A surge of mana exploded around its body. Immediately after, Ijia shot back up into the air, but Kang Hu was just as fast, accelerating to follow it. Defensive magic blink. It swung its arms, creating hundreds of magical arrows, a hail of them. Kang Hu kept a small charm in his mouth, carefully observing his opponent while silently calculating. It was tough to find the perfect angle to strike. Kang Hu landed on the ground, nimbly dodging each volley of magic arrows, thinking to himself, since he keeps spamming skills in front of me. He looked up. He eyed the small magic sphere floating behind Ijia and evaluated. The defensive magic is quite weak in the back. With that, Kang Hu risked it all, charging straight toward it. Close quarters combat is the best way to take down a mage. I can take a few arrows to get close, but... He gritted his teeth, thinking, I'm sure I'll get hit with a bleeding effect. And this guy's signature skill. But just then, Ijia flicked its finger. Snap. A gruesome, blood-soaked scene flashed in Kang Hu's mind. Blood explosion. That would definitely kill me instantly, I thought to himself. He kept running hard across the ground and changed tactics. I need a way to get to him. The skills he's thrown out so far must be all he has. Kang Hu watched the arrows hurtling toward him and muttered, but I've only shown him my narrow blink. He looked at Ijia's twisted expression and smirked mockingly. He doesn't know about the other skills I have. Meanwhile, behind a rock not far away, a masked man was hiding, watching the fight. He observed the two of them. Neither of them can land the finishing blow on the other. I didn't think he would take this long to find his opponent's weakness. The scene before his eyes made him widen them in shock. Ijia was shrieking ferociously, unleashing 2 massive surges of power, glaring madly at Kang Hu in front of him. Yet he only calmly curled his lips in a sneer. You must be getting annoyed, right? Kang Hu looked at the magic spheres falling like rain. Dark fireball. He spoke nonchalantly. I'll show you something surprising right now. Then he quickly dodged those attacks and lunged straight at Igia. Kang Hu's lips curled into an arrogant smile as if victory had long been secured. Finally, he unleashed a spell to bind it tight, secretly rejoicing, he's within range of my strike. Kang Hu suddenly appeared right in front of Igia. He loudly challenged it, immediately casting magic in his hands. Watching this, Kang Hu sighed to himself, damn it, he's still channeling spells even in a situation this dangerous. Boom! A thunderous explosion erupted, sending dust and debris flying everywhere. While Igia was frantically firing magic forward, Kang Hu had already quietly approached it from behind. Teleportation, you're dead. Igia noticed him quickly then. It laughed gleefully, seeing its own magic sphere curving back behind Kang Hu. The sphere grew larger, accumulating a massive amount of power. Kang Hu raised his hand and curled his lips into a mocking smile. You've been too careless. The moment a surge of magic crashed down, he quickly summoned a protective shield. Kang Hu gripped his dagger tight, elemental fire conversion. He slashed his knife down, dealing a critical blow to Igia. Kang Hu lowered his voice. Burn! A flame erupted instantly, engulfing its sagging body. In the blink of an eye, Igia was reduced to ashes. He excitedly said, elemental fire conversion isn't half bad. At the same time, the masked man poked his head out to watch them and marveled. He took down Igia at that level all by himself. The report to the leader has been sent. At that moment, the system status window suddenly popped up. You have stolen a skill from the target, blood explosion. Kang Hu read the notification and, satisfied, muttered, the main objective is complete. Now for this. He glanced down at the ashes and smirked. That guy left too. A series of other system notifications appeared. Your level has increased significantly. You have reached level 32. You have acquired the basic assassin skill acceleration. Kang Hu nodded in satisfaction. I'm leveling up pretty well. Following that, more notifications appeared. Nebula, the master of speed, praises your tactics highly. He grants you a small blessing of Nebula's power. Experience gain increased by 1.3%. He nibbled on a twig in his mouth and marveled, an unexpected reward. I didn't know the scale of the sponsorship was this big. The system responded, he continues to provide rewards without hesitation. At the same time, a flash of light shimmered right at Kang Hu's feet. A small item appeared and gently fell to the ground. He bowed his head to look at it, then exclaimed in excitement, this will come in handy. The scene shifted to an old building where a shrill voice rang out. Yes, my lord. After reporting loudly over the phone, I have found where Kang Hu is staying. She led her teammates to stand in front of an apartment and calmly continued, yes, it's locked, but I'll just burn it to ashes. She lowered her voice with determination. I'll go in and find something that could be evidence. At the same time, a curly-haired man hiding behind a wooden door was secretly watching them, his fingers tapping rapidly on his phone screen. Heaven's will has found your house. They're looking for signs of Shin Kang Hu. Through the peephole, the curly-haired man can clearly see Sohee's back, but I suspect the other end of the line is empty. Do-hun laughs while listening to her report. Shin Kang Hu. His deep, intrigued voice resonates. He makes me want to have him even more, he says. Sohee, hearing this, freezes for a moment and apologizes. Do-hun explains in a low voice. He doesn't hesitate to move into dangerous territory. He is both careful and reckless. She scans the room. She laughs as she replies, I knew you'd like him. Suddenly, Sohee pauses when she hears him say, his caution is a useful trait that you lack, Sohee. Do-hun continues, he'll be an excellent candidate for the title. For you, if he comes to work for me? Sohee involuntarily grips her phone tight. Competition. Then he softens his tone and asks, so did you find any traces? Sohee looks at the documents delivered to her and replies immediately, yes. She glances through each page, a cryptic smile curling on her lips. I think the owner of this house is a hunter. Meanwhile, Sojan is hiding in a nearby building. She's frantically trying to call, but since no one is picking up, she has to rush to send the information via text. Shortly after, Sohee leads her team out of the apartment and says with satisfaction, you can be happy now. I think we found a lead. At the same time, Kang Hu steps out of the dungeon gate, calmly calculating. Alyssa was truly important. The blood wrap skill I looted is the main prize. But the items that dropped aren't too bad either. He recalls the 2 items he just received. He starts calculating how to use them. Selling the Tier 6 magic stone will net me a good amount of money, 50 million. Kang-hoo ponders the book among the rewards and he can't forget about the ring. Upgrading the bleed effect. On top of that, I got a skill book. It's not for my character class, but I have a way to use it. That's how it is for now. Skill book, an item that helps you learn a skill. Thinking this. He pauses for a second, then Kang-hoo shrugs slightly and walks away. He's far enough from the dungeon now that his phone finally gets a signal. As soon as he turns it on, he's stunned as a barrage of notifications floods in. Messages from Sojourn keep popping up. I tried calling you, but you didn't pick up, so I'll leave a message. Heavenly Path has come to investigate you. I think they are tracking you. After reading the messages, Kang-hoo curls his lip into a smirk. Good thing I was warned. He remembers Sohee's expression and nods to himself. She's sharp. But deep down, his heart sinks. Han Sojourn. Kang-hoo thinks of her and the organization unable to shake his suspicion. Is this the information power of the Flower Society? As expected from a satellite guild of the Jungo Guild, Kang-hoo puts his phone in his pocket and sighs. If Heavenly Path is tracking me, they'll find Lee Jijin soon. Jijin's image flashes in his mind. To Jijin, he's just a business partner. She has no reason to protect him. I already refused to join her anyway. Also considering the tactical maps of the organizations, the Blue Copper is currently in conflict with Heavenly Path over Haojongtai. So there's no reason for them to help those guys and hand over my information. Kang-hoo quietly gets on the subway, but he can't help feeling restless as if his plan to chase Haojongtai. He frowns, calculating carefully. But I need some help for this. When I arrive, I should meet that person first. At the same time, Do-hun is standing below a building. He looks up at the apartment high above. He sighs repeatedly, pulling at his hair, wondering if he'll actually be able to catch Haojongtai. If it goes on like this, the organization's warnings echo in his ears. Do-hun, I understand you're passionate because this involves your fellow countrymen, the director says, spinning a cigarette in his hand. He sighs in frustration, but let it go. He emphasizes in a low voice, the incident at Trankeo is beyond our authority anyway. Do-hun frowns and hesitates, but he looks at the tracker in his hand, then back up at the apartment, the last house on the file. A short time later, Do-hun walks up the stairs cautiously. He knocks on the door and says politely, "Is anyone there?" A young man with blonde hair immediately runs over to open the door. "Who is it?" Do-hun lowers his voice. "Is there someone named Haojongtai here?" The guy frowns, confused. "Who's that?" The blonde youth continues irritably, "I live here alone." Just then, Do-hun's eyes catch a glimpse of a handgun resting on the table. He narrows his eyes and asks in a deeper voice, "Are you a hunter?" The guy is momentarily stunned, then looks back. "That gun? Are you talking about my gun?" The blonde youth lowers his voice to explain, "I have it because this world is dangerous. I'm pretty sure everyone owns one." Immediately after, Do-hun's gravelly voice echoes, in the quiet space. "My apologies." He looks down at his watch and sighs helplessly. How tiring. Not here either. While Do-hun isn't paying attention, the door behind him slowly creaks open. The blonde youth pushes the door slightly, stepping in with a handgun in his hand. A cunning smile curls on his lips, and he immediately points the muzzle at Do-hun. In that very moment, he spins around while drawing his sword from its sheath without hesitation. Do-hun swings his blade straight at the threat behind him. The sharp steel easily slices through the throat. With the blonde kid's fingers and his gun crushed, the guy screamed in agony. Do-hun stared down at him coldly, his voice dropping low. "So you're a sniper, huh?" He casually pushed the door open and stepped inside. "You really should have used a silencer," he muttered. Without a second thought, Do-hun slammed his foot into the blonde kid's back, sending him stumbling. The kid face planted onto the floor, letting out a gut-wrenching scream. Do-hun's two sharp blades suddenly slammed into the ground, turning the blonde kid pale with terror. Pinning him down, Do-hun growled, "Tell me everything you know about Haojongtai." Realizing he was cornered, the blonde kid stammered, I only saw him once. It was just a job, I swear. He said he'd kill anyone looking for him." The kid's words only made Do-hun angrier. "That's all I know. He's hiding really well, and I have no idea who he is. But he's got someone pretty terrifying backing him up." Do-hun narrowed his eyes in suspicion. "Someone backing him up, you say?" Not long after, the sky outside was as clear as ever. Do-hun stood before the building's entrance, mumbling to himself as he analyzed why the investigation into Jang Tiong had stalled. Suddenly, footsteps echoed nearby. He froze. Not far off, a group of security agents was marching straight toward him. He watched them muttering in disbelief. Seoul National Security Agency, what are they doing here? Do-hun immediately ducked behind a wall thinking, I can't go back yet. I need to avoid being seen and make it back to the safe house. Suddenly, an agent shouted loudly toward his direction. You said it was this way, right? Do-hun panicked. Damn it, what do I do now? Just then, Kong-hoo appeared, diverting their attention. You guys are from the National Security Agency, aren't you? Kong-hoo spoke politely. I've got a few questions. The security agent looked flustered. We're in the middle of a... Kong-hoo immediately cut them off, pressing further. Don't be like that. A hunter robbed me down the main road. While Kong-hoo distracted the security team, Do-hun took the chance and slipped away. He quickly ducked into a nearby alley. Do-hun peeked back at them and let out a soft sigh of relief. That was close. Seeing he had escaped safely, Mahu curled his lips into a satisfied smile. Time flew by. Do-hun reached for a book on the shelf. He stood silently before the shelves packed with books, staring at his old photos, speechless. In the photo, he and his old friend were slinging their arms around each other's shoulders, laughing brightly. Memories flooded back into Do-hun's mind. Congrats, man! You're heading to Seoul, aren't you? His old friend kept congratulating him, then asked, Man, you actually did it. I heard those guys have real power. Are you going to work with the Chunghwa Guild? Back then, Do-hun just laughed heartily. Cut it out! Hearing that his friend teased, all right, leave it to me. His friend pointed at his own chest, continuing excitedly, I'll handle the responsibility here. Don't worry, just go. I'll be here, you'll be in Seoul. His words still echoed in Do-hun's ears. Let's protect our justice in our own ways. Just then a man walked in, making him jump. Do-hun looked at Kong-hoo and let out a sigh. You're that guy from earlier, he said, his voice stern. How do you know about this place? Kong-hoo replied calmly, Do-hun. He marched toward Do-hun, rattling off his information. Estimated level 362. Do you work for the National Security Agency? Do-hun asked, his hand instinctively touching his sword, his guard up. Did you run a background check on me? Or are you with the agency too? Kong-hoo replied coolly. No, but I know why you're looking for Heo Jung-tae. He reached out a hand, looking serious. What do you think about teaming up with me? Meanwhile, Jae-jin sat across from a young man, sighing with regret. It's such a shame you're not interested in the mercenary guild. She looked at him and giggled. But you're incredible for a freelancer. Maybe in a while I could introduce you to Trang Shi-kwan. Suddenly a loud noise erupted, cutting their conversation short. Angry shouts echoed from outside. How dare you show your face here again? Jae-jin frowned, looking annoyed. What's going on? Right then. So he shoved past the guards and stormed in. She held up a piece of paper, boasting arrogantly, I finally found you. The young man immediately panicked. A bounty hunter. Meanwhile, Jae-jin stood up calmly and dropped her voice. How dare you? She glared at So-hee, her voice ice cold. Get out! So-hee just held the stack of documents even higher, provoking her. No need to be so defensive, I'm not here to start trouble today. So-hee pulled out information about Kong-hoo and lowered her voice. You've seen this person before, haven't you? Jae-jin hurriedly grabbed the documents, a flash of panic on her face. Do-hun carefully placed his hand on his sword hilt. So you've been investigating my past, have you? Kong-hoo stated with unwavering confidence, no. But I know why you're looking for Heo Jung-tae. He made an offer. What do you think about working with me? Do-hun furrowed his brow in suspicion. And what would I get out of teaming up with you? Kong-hoo bluntly pointed out the problem. Do you really think catching Heo Jung-tae is all it takes? He analyzed the current situation in detail. For a normal person, catching him is already hard enough. For you to catch him is even harder because you work in Seoul, and Kong-hoo even proactively pointed out that just digging up information on your colleagues there is already difficult enough. Isn't that right? In truth, Do-hun had previously been told that he couldn't find him because Heo Jung-tae was outside of his jurisdiction. He broke into a cold sweat. I heard that it was because that information was outside of my authority, he stammered just as Kong-hoo suddenly brought up the question, then why is it that they happened to show up there by coincidence? Do-hun, the more he listened, the less he understood. What are you trying to say? Kong-hoo firmly asserted his point. What I'm saying is that Heo Jung-tae has powerful backing. Kong-hoo could even conclude that it was a figure so formidable that even the ASA had to fear them to some extent. That is why Jung-tae can be so arrogant. There are those who even with a blade to their throat wouldn't dare reveal who backs him. They are terrifying, though I don't know who that person is. The pieces of the puzzle were slowly coming together. In any case, that cleaning up business is outside of your jurisdiction, isn't it? Dohun broke into a cold sweat. Is it really like that? I was anxious to know who it was. Just tell me Kong-Hu dropped the bombshell the person backing him is one of the core members of the Chunghwa Association. Dohun felt the clues in his head start to spin. He decided to act as if it were a joke, dismissing it as nonsense. He acted indifferent as if he didn't care. Believe it or not, it's up to you. I don't really care. Kang-Hu's next sentence made him stop in his tracks. But one thing remains unchanged. Both you and I want to catch Heo Jungtae. He provided more info. At 6 o'clock tomorrow evening, you can catch him if you go to the square. Kang-Hu understood his suspicion and preempted it. It's not a trap. If you're skeptical, feel free to investigate. He took the chance to make an additional demand. In return, if what I say is true, I need you to cooperate with me on something. At the same time, So-hee was arrogantly questioning her. You've met this person before, haven't you? Jijin stared intently at the file in front of her. This person is Sun Woo. She read out his real name, Shin Kong-Hu. She secretly concluded that if they had already sent out the hunting dog, then the heavens must have already taken a liking to him. Jijin outwardly insisted, I don't know this person. Ah, she screamed in frustration. Don't play games. Someone confirmed to me that someone introduced you to him. She clutched her head, conceding, it's true that someone introduced me to him. But because our conditions weren't compatible, we both went our separate ways. Jijin glared, lowering her voice in a threat. Are you done? Now beat it before things get ugly. So-hee pursed her lips, trying to contain her emotions. Her face darkened as she warned, if you're lying, watch your back. With that, So-hee kicked the door open and stormed out. She immediately ordered, send spies to follow that woman. I need to monitor her every move. Jaejin wore a calculating smile. If I let Shin Kong-Hu find out about that crazy bitch, then the relationship between him and Lam Dong might improve. Right. Not far away in a dark alley, a tip had been leaked. Someone is looking for Heo Jungtae. Jungtae sneered. How interesting. You bunch of idiots. He leisurely stepped out into the light. I'm right in front of your eyes, yet you don't even know it. But Jungtae didn't realize he had been followed. Kong-Hu appeared right then. Arriving home at 3 in the morning, he stared like a bloodthirsty predator, later than I expected. The system interface clearly displayed the information. Dark Monk Nebula. Enhances combat ability when facing hunters serving the Chung, or the Nebula itself. Kang-Hu locked onto his target right in front of him, Heo Jungtae. Jungtae panicked and hurriedly denied it. Wrong person. He discreetly used his clairvoyance ability. Jungtae flinched and backed away to a safe distance. He stomped hard on the ground. In an instant, he seemed to turn into an afterimage, and Jungtae quickly bolted from the danger zone. Kang-Hu didn't even bother to move. Unexpected, he dodged the clairvoyance right in front of me. His magic resistance is pretty high, huh? He furrowed his brows in tension. Is that the bastard who's been looking for me all day? He leisurely turned around to look around. Jungtae summoned a few daggers. He already knows about my skills. He quickly attacked. I have to finish him. At that exact moment, someone's shoulder suddenly exploded. He cried out pitifully, I don't know anything. But So-hee didn't bother listening. I don't know who Shin Kong-Hu is. She directly burned the person in front of her alive. So-hee's gaze was as cold as if looking at an insect. Kang-Hu had previously said, I will contact you after I resolve these urgent matters. But she had been stood up. Not only did he not contact her, but he had also vanished from the city for several days. He had recognized her from the start and had gone into hiding. So-hee still remembered clearly. Moreover, she had received a phone call. If he comes here to work for me, he will be a worthy rival for you. The more she thought about it, the angrier So-hee got. She muttered as if she had lost her mind, if you intend to come and take away the love the master has for me. So-hee's eyes were filled with hatred. So he's my enemy. Pull yourself together, man. Right, that's it. Making a mistake once in a while is no big deal. He was brimming with confidence, sure that his boss would go easy on him. Even if I accidentally took Kong-Hu out, so what? Not far away. Trung-ta was aiming for his life, but his hidden weapons were deflected by a defensive layer. He narrowed his eyes in shock, a shield. Trung-ta was stunned, but he moved quickly. He's an assassin. He whipped out 4 more hidden weapons, all aimed straight at Kang-Hu accurately. His blue eyes flashed with a sharp light as he effortlessly dodged every single projectile. Trung-ta gritted his teeth, feeling the pressure. His reflexes are insane. He's keeping his distance from me. Could he be dodging and analyzing me at the same time? He darted, changing positions. All right, Trungta had regained his composure. He decided to change tactics. I'll switch to close quarters combat to finish this. But Trung T's body was hit by a massive shockwave. He was stunned, unable to understand what just happened. Trung Ta panicked and tried to dodge. No, how is this possible? Kong Hu gripped the knife in his hand and lunged. He easily landed a lethal blow. He calmly explained, I marked you with my mana wherever I thought you might hide. The marks appeared so clearly. Wherever there was a disturbance, that's where Trung Ta was. He thought he was well hidden, but Kong Hu had him in the palm of his hand. No matter how many times you tried to move, I could always track you. I could clearly see your path every single time. Kong Hu's gaze never left his opponent. Trung Ta writhed in pain from his wounds, trying to drag himself away. Damn it, I have to retreat. He lightly snapped his fingers. It's useless. The wounds suddenly flared up. Kong Hu used a skill that made his opponent suffer even more blood burn. Trung Ta rolled on the ground, screaming. Damn you! He shouted, cursing and threatening. I'll tear you to pieces, damn it, do you even know who's backing me? He calmly said a name I know, Che Quan Hung from the Trung Qua Guild right. This time it was Trung Ta's turn to be shocked. How do you know that? Kong Hu waved a hand. Shut up. He pulled out a rope. Sleep tight. Late that evening, Du Hun arrived at the designated spot. He was still full of doubt. Last night, Kong Hu had raised a question, so where is your friend from the NSA, and why did you almost run into them? Du Hun didn't quite understand. What do you mean? He pointed directly to the clue. I heard the NSA handles a lot of business through their app, but you use that watch too often for it to just be a keepsake. Kong Hu reached that conclusion. Isn't your friend's account still active? He stated with certainty that to deactivate that account, the NSA would have to declare your friend dead while on duty, but the people backing Heo Trung Ta wouldn't want that. Kong Hu made a guess they probably want to solve this problem as quietly as possible. He continued to analyze the possibilities. The NSA in Seoul and Jantong, under pressure from their backers, had chosen to cover up this account, instead of following protocol. Kong Hu linked the events together. Only a few people could log into that account. They must have read the investigation info and gone to the villa. Finally, he offered the key condition, if I keep my promise, you have to cooperate with me by using that account. But right now, Du Hun was walking down the street alone. If what he said was true, then it really was the fault of the Trung Qua Guild and the NSA. He thought nervously, if that's the case, what should I do? Kong Hu spoke up to start the conversation. You're late, he said calmly. I've been waiting forever. Du Hun immediately questioned, where is Heo Trung Ta? Kong Hu reached behind him. Don't worry. He dragged the guy out. I promised I'd bring him, didn't I? I took one look and was surprised. Stealth, so that's why he was so hard to find. Kong Hu had planned this early on. I intentionally chose a time when it's this crowded. If you arrest him right now, even the people backing them won't be able to do anything. He affirmed that, but added, if you want to settle a personal grudge with Heo Trung Ta, I won't stop you. Kong Hu left the choice in his hands. What do you want to do? Du Hun involuntarily broke into a cold sweat. A short while later, blonde hair arrived, pushing through the crowd. Make way, please. He looked like he'd run here in a hurry. Even though he was panting, blonde hair couldn't hide his excitement. Were you the one who contacted us about Heo Trung Ta? Kong Hu grabbed the guy by the head and presented him. Yes. He immediately rejoiced. Great. Great, he's notorious for his stealth skills. How did you manage it? Blonde hair quickly pulled out his device. All right, send us the hunter registration number so we can test it quickly. He tapped a few things on it. Kong Hu handed it back. Done. He happily took his stuff back. Thanks for your cooperation. Blonde hair announced briefly, we've sent you 300 million won and the dungeon rental contract. Time passed quickly into the night. Do Hun was leisurely catching the breeze when Kong Hu suddenly approached to strike up a conversation. Honestly, I'm surprised you refused to take revenge with me. He sighed with relief. If it were him, he wouldn't want that to happen, Do Hun said, gazing up at the starry sky. Both of us want a place we can trust in a harsh world like this. He began to open up. We had hoped that the NSA and the China Guild would be that place. Do Hun's eyes flashed with determination. That's why I want us to make the NSA pay for their mistakes, and that is why, he stated firmly, if what you say is true, then I cannot just let the China Guild and the NSA go on like this. Kong Hu thought to himself. I is still following the path from the book. He remembered the details clearly, just like how Ju Do Hun had led the uprising against the NSA. Kong Hu was certain of one thing in the novel: he was a villain, and the enemy of the China Guild like himself. He felt a sense of relief. He had been Cha Guanheng's pawn in the original novel's incident, but this time we didn't leave a single trace. So it will be fine. Do-hun waved his left hand. Anyway, I was surprised. He held his watch up to eye level. You actually did it for the reward. Kang-Hu coolly confirmed, I'm not the type to do volunteer work. He chuckled inwardly. And cutting off Cha Guanheng's limbs was a major reward. Just then, news reached Guanheng Heojungtai had been caught with both hands severed. The blond man reported hastily. Yes, he was about to die, so we've taken him to the hospital. Patiently, he tossed the papers aside. Forget it. I have no use for him anyway. Guanheng's eyes gleamed with bloodlust. Just tell me which bastard did this. He hurried to open the device. Yes, I've received his hunter registration number. But the blonde's expression changed instantly. Sir, look at this. He frowned deeply. What is it? He panicked frantically, trying to find the missing information. The blonde stammered, explaining, another police account deleted the data. He tried to justify it, but that account belongs to a dead person. There must have been some error here. Guanheng slammed his hand on the desk in anger. He radiated a terrifying, oppressive aura. Are you telling me to believe that nonsense? Guanheng demanded loudly. No one dared to raise their head. What are the Seoul police doing? When the man was trembling with fear. We personally went to Jangdaeong, but because there was no one suspicious He moved to strike him in a fit of rage absurd. What is this? But suddenly someone spoke up to stop him. Calm down, Cha Guanheng. A massive magic circle appeared out of nowhere in the room. Siwon stepped out from it looking like an angel. He offered a gentle smile and asked, What's going on? On the other side. Do-hun frowned slightly coolly, stating his feelings. Anyway, I was quite surprised. He scoffed, emphasizing, to think that a reward was all you wanted. Kang-Hu narrowed his eyes and smirked, declaring, I'm not the type to do charity work. His hand flashed with energy. In his heart, he coldly mused. That's why I went to get Heojungtai's item. The stamina recovery item is a must. Do-hun raised an eyebrow, lowering his voice. But you still helped me with my revenge plan. Kang-Hu kept his arms crossed, his gaze icy. There's no ally better than the enemy of my enemy. He frowned, his voice filled with skepticism. What? He kept watching Do-hun, his tone slow but firm, as he explained, I need a sword to attack the China Guild. It's not a bad decision to help you take revenge and I get an ally. Do-hun heard this and laughed with interest, unable to hide his excitement. The China Guild, you're like the protagonist in those novels. Kang-Hu didn't answer, just silently narrowed his eyes, repeating coldly, me, the protagonist. He briefly recalled Siwon's radiant figure and smiled faintly. I'm not the protagonist. The villain Seo Kang-Hu exists as the dark contrast, to make Siwon shine. Thinking of this, Kang-Hu paused, lips pursed. But opposite him, Do-hun nodded. Then I'll head back to Seoul. With that, he turned and left. As for him, he stood in place watching that back view. Deep down, Kang-Hu sighed to himself, reflecting on everything he had experienced up to this point. After possessing the villain, Seo Kang-Hu, he quickly shook his head and bowed slightly optimistically, comforting himself. This could be considered actual character development, the one I wanted to write in a novel. On Guanheng's side, the situation was quite chaotic. His angry voice roared, What the hell is this? Guanheng's voice was filled with rage. What have the Seoul police been doing? He frowned, gritting his teeth, his eyes full of angry anxiety. That's the area I cleared from the security cameras to hide Heojungtai. Guanheng hissed with indignation. Which bastard is it? Just then, Siwon appeared to everyone's surprise. He gently advised, Calm down, Cha Guanheng. He leisurely pursed his lips into a smile, his tone teasing. It seems Guanheng's mood isn't very good. The soldiers saw Siwon arrive like a savior. Their voices were sudden and equally excited. Officer Siwon! But he just gave them a cold, icy glance and whispered, Get lost. The two soldiers looked like they were hypnotized. Their pupils dilated simultaneously blank. After that, their eyes looked controlled. The blond man bared his teeth and replied, Yes, sir. The guy next to him slowly followed suit. A moment later, Siwon and Guanheng arrived in a clean living room. They both remained silent for a long time. Finally, he slowly spoke up to break the quiet atmosphere. So then, the officer raised an eyebrow. His eyes were indifferent as he inquired, "What happened?" He frowned in frustration, complaining in an annoyed tone. "The guy I used as a spy to gather information, something's gone wrong. I think someone purposefully interfered." He said that, and then Guan Hung hissed in fury, "That bastard!" He hurriedly tapped his fingers on the chair arm to stop him. "Come on now." The officer let out a sigh and lowered his voice, complaining, "I've told you this before, haven't I?" He narrowed his eyes, his voice dropping to a hellish, chilling register. "Stay calm. What's the problem?" Even the officer went pale at the sight of him. The officer listened as he coldly emphasized, "It doesn't matter what kind of flies and vermin are buzzing around here." He flashed an icy grin, his gaze calm as he declared, "Every single obstacle on the path to our dream will be reduced to ash, dropping down from the cliffside." Kang Hu gently brushed off the stone statue, shoved his hands into his pockets, stood tall, and exhaled sharply. "Found you." Kang Hu slowly recalled the plot details from the original novel. Though this had once been a hidden dungeon in the story, he pressed his lips into a thin line, his eyes devoid of any warmth. Thinking about how the protagonist Zhang Sihua had exploited it, just thinking about that, Kang Hu took a deep breath, stepped inside, and told himself, "This time I'll be the one to use it." He walked forward slowly. His feet carefully probed the cold ground. Suddenly, Kang Hu reached out and silently manifested a sharp blade. He stood outside the shop, gripping his sword tightly, calmly waiting for whatever was coming. The one who arrived was the mid-level boss, Chandong. It was silently watching Kang Hu. He pursed his lips, his eyes focused and deep in thought. This guy was quite troublesome and particularly dangerous. It had been lurking to wait for its prey. Immediately after, both Kang Hu and Chandong crouched, slightly glaring at each other, getting into a combat stance. The three eyes on its face suddenly lit up, flashing with a chilling, murderous intent. Chandong clenched both fists. A copy identical to it, but giant, appeared, activating Shadow Step. The giant copy leaned forward slightly. Its ice-cold eyes stared straight at the prey ahead. The next second, its giant copy lunged forward at light speed. Chandong's copy moved like a bolt of lightning, pushing off the ground to charge, but Kang Hu stood his ground, his expression serious, calculating that the timing of the attack was crucial. On the opposite side, its copies were still crazily rushing forward, and Chandong itself was also charging with swords in both hands. Only then did he slowly narrow his eyes, firmly pulling his sword arm back to build momentum. Kang Hu quickly swung his arm, channeling energy to launch the sword forward, thinking, "Right now." The sword, like a lightning bolt, skillfully pierced through the dense layer of copies. He maintained his throwing stance, his eyes fixed intently on the blade's trajectory. The sword, infused with extra power, flew in a sharp straight line through all of Chandong's copies. Finally, after flying a distance, it slammed ferociously into the ground. Meanwhile, on the other side, the copies and Chandong himself were still crazily rushing toward Kang Hu. Without a moment's hesitation, he reached out and gripped a newly created sword. Kang Hu pushed off the ground, using his momentum to charge head-on to meet them. In the melee, he skillfully dodged the copies. Aiming straight for the original, Kang Hu quickly confronted Chandong. He swung his sword with force, but the boss's eyes flickered and it hurriedly activated a swap. He swung his sword through thin air, looking in shock as Chandong teleported elsewhere. Kang Hu's expression stiffened, his pupils constricted, and he cursed under his breath. Right behind him, the original Chandong appeared like a shot from a bow, fists clenched, rushing in. Its three eyes were filled with chilling, murderous intent. It threw a punch, but Kang Hu quickly activated illusion magic. He reacted nimbly, simultaneously reaching out to channel his power. The sword that had been stuck in the ground flew up accordingly. Chandong was instantly spun around like a top, completely bewildered. It turned its head to look, but Kang Hu had vanished into thin air, leaving it frantically looking around. At that exact moment, he stretched out his finger, channeling his power to control the sword. The sharp tip of the blade flickered in and out of existence, quickly aiming straight for Chandong's head. In a split second, the sword viciously pierced through its head. Kang Hu stood right behind Chandong, watching it tremble in agonizing pain, and then shortly after, Chandong lost all its strength and fell face down onto the Mother Earth. He narrowed his eyes, looking at its corpse, his face still showing disbelief. "I actually took him down." Kang Hu recalled the process of his sword, through his heart pounding, thinking that the boss surely wouldn't have guessed he would use an illusion and hide nearby. Not to mention, he slightly curled the corner of his lips, his mind racing, guessing that he would track the boss's attack and strike at the perfect moment. Kang Hu slowly walked closer to Chandong's corpse. Watching the body slowly fade away at that very second, a series of notifications popped up. You have defeated a mid-level boss. You have acquired a skill from the target, Shadow Step. Skill proficiency is at max level. The number of shadows has increased to 5. You can move instantly to a designated shadow without needing to chant the skill. It executes instantly. If a shadow moves outside a 100-meter radius or is physically attacked, it will disappear immediately. The shadow that reflects your non-sentient ego will always exist. Passive when deployed. He raised an eyebrow, marveling, "This skill is pretty broken?" Behind him, the mechanical voice continued. The number of shadows has increased. It can be executed without chanting the skill. Kong-Hu nodded in satisfaction. Nice. He smirked, his eyes full of excitement, whispering, "I'll use it better than you." A notification appeared again. Your level has increased significantly. You have reached level 33. Kong-Hu straight up retracted his sword but let out a sigh. The first step was completed smoothly. At this moment, on Quan Hung's side, he suddenly gave a half-smile, warning, "Don't get complacent. Nothing is absolute." The officer sitting nearby remained calm, curiously asking, "What exactly do you mean?" The officer's eyes flashed with a bizarre, murderous intent. In a deep voice, the officer said to Quan Hung, "Stop there." The officer suddenly stood up, an overwhelming aura pressing down. He emphasized, "The whole world revolves around me as the center." He leisurely curled his lip and arrogantly declared, "I am perfection, I am justice, and I am the way." Back at Kong-Hu's location, just as he was checking the notifications, another object appeared. The thing gradually coalesced into a figure. It was faint, but Kong-Hu quickly realized, "That's me." He immediately adopted a defensive posture. Gripping his sword tight, he silently compared, "This is just like in a novel." At Quan Hung's place, after hearing the officer's arrogant declaration, he frowned and asked back, "Are you saying you're the main character?" The officer smiled, his eyes like a venomous snake. He affirmed, "Exactly. I am the main character." Returning to Kong-Hu's area, his eyes were serious as he marveled at the battle against another version of himself in front of him. The main boss had transformed into Kong-Hu's appearance. He let out a slight sigh. "The main boss, huh?" Kong-Hu crouched, his hands gripping his sword, preparing to launch into battle. Immediately after, he stomped his foot and lunged forward, activating Short Dash. Kong-Hu did not flinch before someone bearing his own appearance and swung his sword straight toward the main boss. But he nimbly tilted his head back to dodge. At the same time, he pivoted his heel to change direction. His eyes remained calm, and his hand swinging the sword didn't tremble at all. Right after, the main boss also drew a similar sword, blocking his attack. Kong-Hu trembled slightly while locking blades with him, his heart sinking as he wondered, going head-to-head really? In his head, various strategies flashed quickly. His mind sharply analyzed, "If I use illusion magic, I'll be detected by his magic sensing skill." He pressed his lips together, his mind skipping to another possibility, and since both had measure the ability to see stats' weaknesses, both knew each other's weaknesses. Kong-Hu maintained his attack stance. With ice-cold eyes, he kept calculating. If he combined a short-range dash with a surprise takeover, it would be hard for his opponent to dodge. Finally, all skills could be used. Every single one needed to be calculated perfectly at this very moment. The boss suddenly swiped his hand away, knocking Kong-Hu back. Startled, Kong-Hu retreated, squinting with shock as he observed the boss secretly calculating his next move while the boss stared back in astonishment, skillfully utilizing teleportation to exploit an opening. Kong-Hu quickly tightened his grip on his sword and lunged forward, unleashing a fluid flurry of attacks, activating the bloody stab. But those attacks were no sooner launched than they were blocked by the boss's defensive line. Kong-Hu had already anticipated this. With a chilling smirk, he watched the boss use a shield to protect his hand while he silently channeled power into his short sword, activating flame shift, and muttered, "Nice reaction." The tip of Kong-Hu's blade instantly flared with a terrifying orange-red flame. He gave a cold, mocking laugh, muttering, "Let's see how much more you can take," then tightened his grip as his various clones prepared to appear. Kong-Hu's clones surrounded the boss as he had activated Shadow Step. The boss gritted his teeth, his expression serious and annoyed, clearly not having expected this maneuver. Taking advantage of the moment, the boss was distracted. Kong-Hu leaped into the air, swinging his blade at him. But the boss smiled calmly, a gleam of triumph in his eyes as if he had seen through him, quickly swinging his sword to strike Kong-Hu. But Kong-Hu had already quickly used a switch to move behind the boss. Realizing he'd been played, the boss's face turned ghastly. His teeth gritted in fury, while elsewhere Kang Hu slightly relaxed his grip, controlling the blade engulfed in fire and smoke. The boss also raised his hand, channeling power to create a shield, and the two directly faced off, one fire, one ice. I used the bloody stab again, but Kang Hu's strike was so powerful that the boss's shield began to crack immediately after. It shattered into pieces under the boss's shocked gaze. He hadn't expected this outcome at all. Gritting his teeth and trying to hold on, the boss decided to go all out, stamping his foot with desperate force and lunging forward, his eyes flashing with a terrifying, murderous intent as he thrust straight ahead. He delivered a bloody stab, but the person he struck was just a clone of Kang Hu, who was leisurely smiling as he dissipated. The boss was stunned, his brows furrowed so tightly he could pinch a mosquito. Turning around, Kang Hu leaped in to attack from behind, but the boss was quick to conjure a shield again, yet that shield quickly shattered as well, crumbled under Kang Hu's assault. The boss decided to gamble everything, gritting his teeth as he frantically thrust his sword forward, but Kang Hu nimbly jumped over him, causing the blade to pierce empty air. The boss looked like he'd been hit by a chain reaction, his face horrified as he glanced back at Kang Hu behind him and hurriedly turned around, his hand still in a defensive stance. The boss continued to swing his sword, then threw his dagger straight at him. It flew past one of Kang Hu's clones and the boss's face turned pale. His pupils contracted as he hurried to look behind him. The boss's hand trembled as he tried to raise a defensive shield while Kang Hu stood not far away watching the boss struggle. A sick, excited glint flashed in Kang Hu's eyes as he laughed out loud. "That's it. Keep going." The very next second, like an arrow released from a bow, he lunged forward, smashing the newly formed defense, leaving the boss cornered with his eyes wide in vigilance, looking at Kang Hu's clones. The boss's mind raced as he hurriedly reached out to channel his power. A new shield was created, but it was faint and shapeless. The boss groaned with effort, and Kang Hu saw right through it. In a mocking tone, he said, "Looks like you've reached your limit." Kang Hu used switch to zip forward like a gust of wind, exposing the truth. "You're out of mana to use those." He laughed smugly, watching the boss's face turn pale. "You clearly couldn't replicate my mana sensitivity." Without a moment's hesitation, Kang Hu instantly used the bloody stab. He struck the boss, who took the full impact. He stumbled, fresh blood dripping onto the ground. The boss winced in pain, blood running down his chin as he struggled to breathe. But he refused to give up, gritting his teeth until his jaw ached with the sound of grinding. The boss quickly turned and leaped in another direction, but Kang Hu stood calmly in place. He held up two fingers, then nonchalantly snapped them with a sharp click. The boss, who was mid-air, was suddenly hit by the blood stab, his body shredded as blood sprayed everywhere. He stood frozen, his body trembling, not a single part of him intact. A moment later, in the silent forest, the boss's agonizing screams finally died down. Watching the boss slowly dissipate, Kang Hu slowly began to speak. "Thanks to you, for the first time I felt—" He stood close by, hands on his hips, looking at the notification screen and sighing. "Mana absorption is pretty useful." A notification sounded. "You have received a one-time use enhancement skill." Kang Hu lazily bit into a leaf, tapping the screen as he muttered, "This is why I came to this hidden dungeon." His finger immediately pressed an option on the notification screen, and he whispered, "I'll go with this one." Immediately after the option Kang Hu pressed began to glow brightly. The screen flickered, and the option he chose displayed the words, "Ultimate." Seeing this, Kang Hu couldn't help but smile with satisfaction. He nodded to himself. "Finally, I've got my first ultimate skill, finished with everything." He looked up at the sky, which was slowly brightening. At that moment, the space around him suddenly lit up and began to fade away, and Kang Hu watched it all with delight. He gloated, "I've blocked Jiang Siguan's chance with this dungeon raid. This really was a great choice." Saying that, he looked at the Crimson Stone and the book in his hand, pursing his lips and sighing. "I never thought I'd get both the Crimson Stone and a skill book." The Crimson Stone is a rare material used for upgrading items or skills, but Kang Hu quickly put it away. He shook his head and smiled. "I would have been jealous to death if Jiang Siguan had gotten it, but now it's mine." He looked at the skill book in his hand and exhaled lightly. "Use this one first. Luckily, it's an exclusive skill book for assassins." Kang Hu slowly flipped open the glowing pages, and a stream of energy slowly rose from the book. A notification pops up, "Watch your back. Attacking a target from behind deals 33% extra damage. You have finished reading the skill book." He clenches his fist slightly while lying down. I'll see how effective it is in the next fight, he mutters. Then Kang Hu puts the book away and slowly walks off. Time to keep going. I need to handle the Heojung Tai quest. The next day near the Gapyeong station, Jaejin is sitting on a chair, legs crossed, waving her hand. I've never seen you out in public before. Daechun, it's been a while. I walks over slowly and sits down across from her, lips pursed, not making a sound. Jaejin shrugs, pulls out her phone and says, "First I have a question." She shows him the transfer screen, her cheeks flushed with excitement. "Why did you send 100 million won to my account?" Kang Hu thinks back to Sohee's appearance. With a flat tone, he informs her, "Cha Sohee must have come looking for me. She's extremely impatient. If my information got leaked, she'd be at Guangguang immediately. But she's been quiet so far." Jaejin interlocks her fingers, resting her chin on them, and says with an intrigued look, "I heard she's hunting for you and other hunters connected to her." She shrugs, holding out her hands. "Actually, protecting my client's information is a small task for me." After getting that assurance, he moves on to the next issue. "And one more thing." Without hesitation and acting all mysterious, Kang Hu drops a bombshell. "Because I've captured Heojung Tai." Jaejin stares in shock, asking, "What?" He clenches one hand and places it on the table, his eyes serious as he explains, "I didn't let you know my identity for a reason, but at this rate, even if I complete the contract, the broker won't be able to receive the payment and transfer it to me." Kang Hu lets out a helpless sigh and mutters, "That's a price I might have to pay." But she's focused on something else, her eyes wide. "He caught Heojung Tai without leaving a single trace," he thinks to himself. Jaejin props her chin up again, eyes crinkling with curiosity. "He keeps surprising me. Just how capable and powerful are you really?" She shifts her posture, head tilted. "By the way, what should I call you from now on?" He narrows his eyes, cautious. "What do you mean?" Jaejin doesn't hide it, blurting out, "I accidentally found out your real name." Kang Hu knows the reason why. He rolls his eyes, thinking it must have come from Cha Sohee. He looks at her seriously and says in a flat voice, "For security reasons, just keep calling me by my alias." Jaejin nods in agreement, smiling as she pulls out a folder. "Fine, Sun-kyu. Now let's talk about the contract missions." She lowers her voice to inform him, "The client will take you to the mission site personally. They said they want to witness your abilities." Kang Hu quickly heads to the meeting spot. He sees Young Sang-mi, who waves warmly. "I'm Young Sang-mi, nice to meet you, Jun-kyu." He stuffs his hands into his pockets and gives a polite nod. Likewise. Just then, a bus slowly rolls up. With one glance, Kang Hu recognizes it, a security bus used for transporting hunters and equipped with heavy weaponry. It uses magic bullets for protection. Although the operational costs are high, the safety of everyone on board is guaranteed. He steps onto the bus, leans back in his seat, and closes his eyes to relax. "I'll be able to rest until I reach Ulsan." But not long after the bus starts rolling, the space becomes noisy with whispering. "Let's start slowly. My bodyguard tends to finish the hunt in one go. You sure know your stuff, so when I give the signal..." Kang Hu is so bothered by the noise that he opens his eyes and glares at the group. I thinks, what's with this noisy atmosphere? Bodyguards should be alert even of the passengers. His face shows clear annoyance. He crosses his arms, muttering, "I just wanted to rest." Immediately, Kang Hu jumps up, his hand slowly manifesting a short sword. He grips it tightly, eyes locked on the figure approaching him. Reflected in the blade, Kang Hu's eyes are cold as ice. He casts a dark, sidelong glance behind him. A person is slowly walking toward him. With heavy, steady footsteps, it's a pink-haired hunter. With a cold expression, the man stares at Kang Hu, standing right behind him, aiming the barrel of his gun straight at Kang Hu's head. Without a second's hesitation, the hunter fires. It shoots a blinding flash of electricity, startling the passenger in the seat in front, but when the light fades, the gunman is shocked, eyes wide as if witnessing something impossible. And what surprises the hunter is, Kang Hu has completely vanished. Where did he go just then? Ha uses teleportation, skillfully circling behind the guy. Then without a shred of mercy, Kang Hu stabs the hunter in the back. A notification pops up. Caution, attacking a target from behind deals 33% extra damage. He pulls the sword out. Blood splatters everywhere. He mutters with interest, "This is pretty useful." As soon as Kang Hu finishes the hunter off, the remaining people stare in utter shock at the scene. Another blonde hunter immediately grabs his gun and lunges forward, teeth gritted in anger, shouting, "You bastard!" Kang Hu's gaze remains fixed on them. Observing carefully, he thinks, there are quite a few of them. Just then, his eyes stop on the red constellation above the music genius. He is sitting in his seat, frowning, staring at something. A notification pops up. Music Genius Neutral Nebula. When listening to music, recovery speed increases 5-fold. Seeing this, Kang-Hu can't help but admire it. This constellation sounds interesting. I'll recover faster if I fight now. Sang-mi took a defensive stance, ready to engage, her eyes scanning the surroundings while her hand rested on the hilt of her sword, ready to draw. Just then, the guy standing next to her spoke slowly, his tone authoritative. I'll handle this. You stay put. We'll only get in each other's way. Sang-mi's eyes lit up at that, her voice full of excitement. That sounds like a good plan. I can observe your abilities while you're at it. Kang-Hu just stood there. He didn't budge even as the assassins advanced, guns pointed straight at him. A moment later, he discreetly used chaos vision, sending the men into a panicked, agonizing frenzy. Damn it, my eyes. Seizing the moment, he showed no fear, quickly using Shadow Step to take down the remaining attackers. The blonde assassin pointed his gun in one direction. He shouted angrily, "Damn it, where the hell do you think you're looking, huh?" Amidst the chaos. The man suddenly stammered, "I see him." Kang-Hu remained calm. His cold eyes locked on the target as he lunged forward, his short sword piercing straight through the assassin. He pressed his lips together, his gaze fixed entirely on his mark. Then quickly using body swap, Kang-Hu deftly vanished. The blonde hunter fired into thin air. Like a ghost, Kang-Hu darted past the long-haired hunter, slashing his abdomen. Blood sprayed as the man groaned and shrieked, "Get away!" Kang-Hu kept using swap to charge ahead and grab another. Then without a second of hesitation, he swung his blade in a sharp arc, forcing the man to retreat in pain. The musical genius gritted his teeth, his expression filled with resentment as he hissed, "This bastard doesn't know the meaning of fear, does he?" Immediately after, he fired a shot straight at him, but Kang-Hu used swap to dodge it. He gripped his sword hilt and swapped again, sliding in to flank the musical genius. Kang-Hu's eyes flared with intense killing intent, locked onto his target. He pushed off his heels to gain momentum for a sharp strike, then skillfully used a short leap to slash right through the musical genius. A scream of pain echoed. He landed on one knee, then swiftly triggered acceleration to face the remaining line of hunters head-on. The musical genius wiped a trace of blood from his lip, his voice intrigued. "Impressive. But that's not enough. I'll pay you back tenfold." Kang-Hu's eyes gleamed with excitement as he smiled and asked, "Not enough, you say?" He opened his notification window and clicked on a line of text, "Let's do this." The text Kang-Hu clicked on quickly glowed, turning into the word maximum. He smirked with cold, sharp eyes and snapped his fingers provocatively. The hunters suddenly began to wail. They groaned in agony as blood erupted from them like a fountain. He had used blood sacrifice. A powerful energy surged from the vehicle, incinerating the assassins. They couldn't even stand. They just screamed in pain. Their bones shattered, they were barely human anymore. The blonde assassin collapsed. His head slammed into the ground, meeting his maker. The vehicle looked like a battlefield with assassins scattered everywhere, while the musical genius knelt on one knee, bracing himself with his gun against the floor. Kang-Hu's gaze never left the assassins, glued to them, especially the musical genius. The music still played faintly in his ears. His lips were bloody, his breathing ragged, and he was drenched in sweat. Kang-Hu stood before the musical genius, his expression arrogant and smug, his tone taunting. "You like listening to music, don't you?" The musical genius's hand tightened on his gun. The music drifted vaguely in the air. He suddenly let out a confident laugh and raised his gun, pointing the barrel straight at him. "You bastard!" The moment the words left his lips, the musical genius lunged forward. But coincidentally, he charged right where Kang-Hu had his sword waiting. Without a second of hesitation, he seized the opportunity and skewered the musical genius with a strike that shook the three realms. The blade pierced straight through his throat. The musical genius was left in shock, his body trembling from the excruciating pain, but Kang-Hu remained indifferent, slowly pulling his sword out. The tip of the blade was dripping with fresh, pungent blood. Sang-mi had already moved to subdue the driver. She looked back at the battlefield, her lips curling into a satisfied smile. Her face radiated delight as she quickly gave a thumbs up, her voice ringing out, "You've met the requirements." After Kang-Hu took down the musical genius, a notification popped up. "You have defeated the target and removed his contract with the constellation of music." He stood silently next to the corpse, pondering something. The notification continued, "Constellation of music, a neutral constellation. Recovery ability is increased 5-fold when listening to classical music. Kang Hu smirked, his eyes sharp, and muttered, I should make a habit of listening to classical music in my spare time. He sat down next to where the musical genius was lying and searched his body as if looking for something. Another notification arrived, Space Robber, your subordinates are truly useless. Kang Hu quickly found gauntlets that contained a powerful source of energy. He was delighted and feigned surprise. Sweet, this is a stamina-boosting item and it fits my level perfectly. After that, Kang Hu found a pair of sturdy boots radiating energy. He praised them, it even boosts my agility stats. Time for a footwear upgrade. Kang Hu glanced at the items on the other assassins, and an idea popped into his head. I'll sell the rest of this stuff. He whipped his head around to look at Sang-mi with a cold expression. He asked, aren't you going to pay me a compliment? Upon hearing that, she gave a sharp, sassy look, pouting her lips as if to say, I did help a fair bit, you know. Immediately after, Sang-mi broke into a bright, beaming smile and gave a thumbs up, excitedly making her proposal. I want to officially propose a partnership with you in my capacity as the president of Taihua Jiang. Hearing the name, Taihua Jiang, he widened his eyes, lost in a sea of thoughts, and softly repeated the name. Taihua Jiang. Kang Hu's mind raced as he exhaled, thinking about the organizations in Ulsan that were part of the side story. He only knew their names and whether they survived the crisis or not. That was about it. Taihua Jiang was one of them. To think that Jun Sang-mi was the president at this point in time. Standing opposite him with a lollipop in her hand, she suddenly announced the reward, 2.5 billion. As she said this, Sang-mi extended the lollipop, licked the corner of her lips, and declared, bring him to me. The left arm of Gong Tae-soo, the head of Ulsan. Kang Hu rubbed his chin, his gaze contemplative as he added, I want to add a condition. She raised an eyebrow and blurted out, more. He squinted slightly, his voice calm, yet promising something earth-shattering. I will help Taihua Jiang dominate Ulsan. Kang Hu smiled, reached out his hand, and slowly stated his terms for the exchange. In return, help me meet the president of ABE. Sang-mi, still holding her lollipop, had her eyes widen in utter disbelief. I knew that among the factions in the Central Guild, they were the military group with the strongest coordination and organizational skills, though he knew from the novel that they collapsed due to internal discord. Kang Hu pressed his lips together, his expression cold as he thought, I was already planning to get a foot in there. To defeat the Central Guild, powers like them were crucial. He couldn't help but feel impressed. He never expected the opportunity to come this soon. Watching Sang-mi contemplate, Kang Hu calculated carefully. Taihua Jiang was under ABE's umbrella, so he could approach ABE through them. After a moment of deliberation, she smiled brightly and nodded, accepting the condition. That's an interesting deal. We'll discuss it further after you complete the mission, all right? After finalizing the terms, the two slowly walked into the wasteland. The people along the way were all muscular, eyeing them with menacing glares. They stopped in front of a certain place. Sang-mi reached out, excitedly introducing it. Gong Tae-soo frequents this dungeon often. The place she pointed to was a ruined castle with a bizarre purple veil blocking the entrance. Kang Hu glanced indifferently at the crowd behind them, his tone slow and mocking. They don't look like they're here to clear the dungeon. Are they all after Gong Tae-soo too? Sang-mi snapped her fingers, held up one finger, and excitedly probed, Bingo, do you know about fireworks? Hearing the term, he narrowed his eyes and repeated, fireworks. Kang Hu quietly rummaged through his memory, realizing with a dark realization that it was code for when many mercenaries cooperated. To take down someone stronger, the outcome was always death for those waiting. He slowly pictured the bloodshed and sighed, reflecting on the sacrifices of the others. Kang Hu coldly noted, they'll pave the way for the survivor to complete the mission. If he weren't involved, that would indeed be the case. He quickly recalled the plot details from the story. A corner of his mouth quirked up. Although Gong Tae-soo survived in the novel, he knew all about his constellations and combat habits. With that advantage, he could turn the tide. At this moment, Sang-mi pointed to the dungeon and widened her eyes, announcing, he has so many enemies that there are countless people hired to assassinate him, about 100 people in total. Kang Hu listened with half an ear. He just observed the surroundings, evaluating, the air is starting to heat up. He slowly remembered Tae-soo's arrogant and wild demeanor, mentally reciting, the leader of the Crimson Blood, Gong Tae-soo. Tae-soo was a thorn in the side and a dagger in the heart of countless people in Ulsan criminal organizations. The military business partners, he destroyed them all. He was just a reckless madman. That was how the name, the Ulsan Murderer, came to be. Sang-mi sighed, her tone bored and lamenting, Because he's an outlaw, many are hired to assassinate him. But thanks to that level 200 item he has, no one has been able to do anything to him yet. No sooner had she finished speaking, a loud voice announced, "Gong Taesu is here from afar." The thin, arrogant figure of Taesu, escorted by his underlings, was slowly approaching. The precious red stone on his gauntlet emitted a cold light under the sunlight. Wherever Taesu went, the underlings surrounding him waved their hands and loudly chased people away. "Get out! Get out of here! Everyone! Get lost!" Sangmi stood quietly in a small corner and whispered to Kong Hu, "Did you notice his left hand?" She raised an eyebrow, reminding him without hiding anything. "This is crucial information. Gong Taesu relies 99% on his left hand to cast magic. That's why they say it's more precious than his own life." Sangmi glanced at the crowd around them, lowering her voice to emphasize, "That thing is the target of almost every mercenary here. They're all just waiting for the chance to snatch it." He glanced away uncomfortably, his face as cold as stone, listening to her clear her throat right as he stepped out of the dungeon and paused for a moment. Sangmi clenched her fist excitedly, declaring, "The fun is about to officially begin." As soon as she finished, Kong Hu suddenly turned to leave without warning. Sangmi put a hand on her hip and raised an eyebrow, asking inquisitively, "Aren't you staying here with me? Tai Huajing is waiting nearby anyway." He waved his hand lightly in response, a smirk on his lips as he announced, "Go ahead. I have somewhere I need to go first." Without lingering, Kong Hu headed straight into a shop. He observed the eye-catching ring in the box and asked indifferently, "How much for this one?" The clerk respectfully replied, 500 million, sir." As soon as he finished, Kong Hu opened his item list. Looking at the endless list, he tilted his head and declared, "I want to sell all of this. Just name your price." Finally, after selling all those items, Kong Hu bought the ring he needed. Looking at the glowing ring in his hand, he couldn't help but curl his lips in satisfaction. Damage reduction and increased stamina, huh? Level 4 items like this are pretty rare. Kang Hu quickly shoved the ring into his pocket and walked out of the shop, constantly glancing to his left as he moved. "I need to find a better way," he thought, glancing to the right with a sigh of regret, but saw nothing. He quietly recalled the scene of Gong Taesu walking by earlier. Deep down, he quickly analyzed that, while Gong Taesu didn't have a constellation sponsor earlier, his subordinates clearly did. He had acted his part well. He must be plotting something. At that thought, Kong Hu put his hands on his hips and looked around. If you're wondering where the real one is, he'd surely double-check everything before putting his plan into motion. Is he in another shop? Just then, a long-haired figure brushed past behind him. Kong Hu's intuition flared, causing him to turn his head in surprise to look at the figure. A red constellation mark appeared above that person's head. Simultaneously, a notification popped up. Holy Palace of the Neutral Constellation increases accuracy of magic and archery attacks by 5 times. Reading that, Kong Hu finally understood. He smirked, his eyes flashing with excitement. "Found you!" Kong Hu watched the beautiful long-haired figure walking by, his sharp eyes piercing through the disguise of Gong Taesu. Taesu didn't stop, quickly heading toward the hunter zone. He carefully hid in a corner, his lips curling up as he scanned his surroundings. Seeing nothing amiss, Taesu moved on while Kong Hu followed closely and discreetly behind. Hiding behind a wall, his eyes lit up as he mused, "With camouflage like this, high-end gear alone isn't enough." Kong Hu silently watched him head toward the crowded bus area. I inwardly marveled. If I hadn't seen the constellation's name, I would have walked right past him. He cast his eyes at the crowd and the figure of Taesu boarding the bus, silently assessing, "These guys are all players who have signed contracts with constellations. He guards his people pretty well." Once the bus carrying him rolled away, Kong Hu quietly stepped out from the shadows. He slightly bent his knees, his shoes flashing with energy as he thought to himself, "If I could, I'd want to take them all out in one go. Just finish it off," but immediately after, I used a short-range leap and soared into the air, his silhouette gracefully vaulting over the buildings. Keeping his eyes glued to the moving bus, he sighed to himself. "He'll get suspicious if I keep tailing him on the same path. Taking the long way around is tiring, but I have to do it." His cold eyes glanced down at his prey below, and he silently encouraged himself, "Pick up the pace." Kong Hu didn't take his eyes off the bus for a single second, his heart cold as he swore, "I will expose your plot." The bus rolled on until the twilight covered the streets. They reached the destination. Taesu was still disguised, but started laughing with sadistic excitement. "This is great." He folded his arms and let out a long, loud laugh. I really want to see the expressions on those stupid mercenaries' faces. His subordinates enthusiastically chimed in. Those blockheads probably never dreamed that they're actually the ones being hunted, right? One subordinate cheered excitedly. And with you pulling the strings, leader, they're beyond saving. But as soon as those words left his mouth, Tetsuo's expression twisted as if he realized something. Immediately his eyes flashed with killing intent. He drew his weapon and surged forward with all his strength. His subordinates were left confused. Leader Tetsuo used his ability to vault over to another area, but saw nothing but an empty wasteland. His eyes returned to their usual calm, carefully observing his surroundings. Tetsuo scanned the area slowly. Seeing nothing unusual, he wondered, did my intuition fail me? At that moment, Kong Hu was holding his breath, hiding behind a wall. I was stunned, speculating, is this how Gong Tetsuo survived the fireworks incidents in the original story? The subordinates quickly ran over, whispering to inquire, Leader, is something wrong? He shrugged dismissively and replied, No, I just thought a rat scurried by. He listened quietly to it all. Having escaped by the skin of his teeth, he folded his arms and smiled smugly. His movements are too predictable. I'll hunt you down just like this. The sky began to darken. Sang-mi was still standing in the same spot waiting for Kong Hu. Seeing he hadn't arrived, she couldn't help but bite her lip in doubt. He's too late. Where did he go? A subordinate of Sang-mi hesitantly offered an opinion. Boss, I'm quite concerned about that guy. What if he's a spy from the China Guild? He recalled a past tragedy and lowered his voice, worried. White Rose was also wiped out in a similar way. They were being followed and then assassinated. Speaking of this, the subordinate quickly suggested, how about we ask Abed for help? But before he could finish, Sang-mi shook her head and smiled confidently to reassure him. Don't worry, I've already confirmed it with Abed. A figure flashed through her mind as she mused, Blue Eye Guild leader Li Jezin. Her reputation in the mercenary community is very high. The fact that they can maintain a neutral position between major guilds shows they possess real power and strength. Blue Eye recommended him. Sang-mi smiled in satisfaction, recalling the scene of Kong Hu dealing with the music genius, she thought, and he truly has the ability, so waiting a little longer is worth it. A moment later, the phone in her pocket vibrated. Sang-mi took it out to check, and her pupils immediately constricted in shock. This was an encrypted message. The more she read, the wider her eyes became, losing her usual composure. The subordinates noticed Sang-mi's change in demeanor and asked if something urgent had happened, but she didn't reply. She just turned around, walked away, and ordered everyone to gather. Sang-mi then pointed swiftly in one direction. But follow me, she ordered. Her group quickly moved out. The remaining people kept watch by the tunnel. A moment later, steady, slow footsteps approached. The crowd hurriedly turned around to see Tetsuo and his subordinates walking toward them. Someone in the crowd shouted, Look, it's Gong Tetsuo! The crowd fixed their eyes on him, and the cry echoed, Gong Tetsuo is out! They immediately drew their weapons, sneering coldly as they rushed to seize him. Tetsuo's subordinates rushed to stretch out their arms, shouting at each other to protect their leader. But the hunters didn't falter, swarming like a relentless army. They surged forward to finish him off. The subordinates didn't stand still. One quickly conjured a wooden club, gripped its spiked handle tightly, and swung it furiously. Take this! The man facing the attacker narrowed his eyes, glanced to the side, and without a second's hesitation, he hoisted the person next to him, dragging the hunter forward, using him as a shield against the attack. The subordinate's blow missed, and he gritted his teeth in anger while the assassin laughed wildly and roared, Taste some fireworks. Immediately after, he squeezed his hand, grabbed the back of the shirt of the man he'd used as a shield, pulled him aside, and lunged forward with his sword. Come on! The subordinate was shocked and cursed with rage. You lunatic, you actually used your own man as a shield. The assassin laughed, his eyes crazed as he slashed, Who the hell cares, as long as I survive? But just as he finished, the assassin's hair suddenly ignited, followed by a deafening explosion that sent the subordinate reeling backward until he fell flat on the ground. Looking at the assassin who had just been so arrogant now burned to a crisp. Tetsuo, disguised as a woman, stood in the corner, still holding his pose, cheering excitedly, Fireworks going off! On the battlefield below, a man holding a sword stammered, asking, What the hell is this? Where did this guy come from? Another man cackled, It's starting now! As soon as he finished, he turned around in shock to look around. Tetsuo's subordinates had rushed in when no one was looking. They struck with their clubs. One of them shouldered his club and sneered, Hey, you hunters! The swordsman realized with panic that it was a bloodbath. Tetsuo's subordinates laughed coldly in unison. Are you ready to enjoy the fireworks? The man gritted his teeth in frustration, quickly realizing their intent. They had planned this from the very beginning. Before he could even finish, the swordsman froze his eyes wide with disbelief. Countless streams of power were launched from somewhere, aiming straight at the hunters below. Immediately after, those energy blasts exploded, lighting up the sky and unleashing countless cries of pain. The hunter clutched his chest, lying on the ground, muttering in agony. As he looked at the surrounding flames, he was filled with doubt. Where on earth is this shelling coming from? Just then, in a corner of a nearby abandoned building, a mysterious flash of light appeared. It was the disguised Tetsuo standing there, laughing with delight as he launched a secret attack. Right here. Miss with both eyes shut, I can still hit the target. Kong-Hu HED skillfully in the back, observing with a smirk. He understood a mage who has signed a contract with the Holy Palace would definitely pull a stunt like this. At that moment, within his line of sight, Tetsuo was reaching out, firing blast after blast below. Tetsuo laughed gleefully as a notification appeared, blessing of the Holy Palace. It will increase the accuracy of magic and archery attacks by 5 times. He reached out and a barrage of fire arrows rained down. Tetsuo raised his hands high. Standing there, watching the ruins he had created, he raved in his madness. It's absolutely beautiful. Kong-Hu followed closely, moving quickly for the right moment. He's about to cast a spell again. This is it. Immediately, he reached out, a giant hand formed of power surged forward, and that massive hand forcefully gripped Tetsuo's body. The subordinates, seeing him surrounded by a force, they were shocked and yelled, "Leader!" Kong-Hu rushed forward, simultaneously using capture. Tetsuo saw him and frowned in confusion. What is this? Who the hell are you? But Kang-Hu only smirked coldly. His sharp eyes locked onto him. In a split second, Kang-Hu's blade flashed past Tetsuo's face. He watched this stunned. Before he could even process it, the blade surged up again, about to strike a fatal blow. Tetsuo suddenly vanished from the spot. This hair-raising moment left Kang-Hu stunned. A short-range teleport. Based on his keen intuition, he immediately guessed that he couldn't have gone far. Kong-Hu turned around, concluding, then the ideal place to hide is right here. When he saw Tetsuo right in front of him, his judgment proved correct. Standing right behind him with firm determination, Kong-Hu lunged forward. With a short jump, he immediately unleashed a powerful fatal strike. Heart-piercing blood strike. Endless pain stung him. He writhed and groaned before Kong-Hu's cold gaze. Amidst the freezing agony, Tetsuo struggled to gasp, "Damn it!" Suddenly, he poured his remaining strength into reaching out his hand right in front of Kang-Hu. In an instant, a cataclysmic explosion erupted, turning the entire battlefield into a sea of fire. Inside the building, the fire burned fiercely, and intense heat radiated everywhere. Amidst the raging flames, Tetsuo's silhouette flickered. On this side, Kong-Hu thought to himself, his fire magic is stronger than I thought. Amidst the smoke and fire, he gritted his teeth, enduring the pain, while behind him his opponent quietly stepped forward with an overwhelming presence. Suddenly, Tetsuo went mad, screaming at his bloodied arm. "You bastard!" Kong-Hu didn't react intensely. He simply said softly, "My condolences in advance." With a snap of his fingers, he wore a smug expression, clearly thinking you should be grateful. But in the blink of an eye, his arm was ripped apart by an attack, and under bloodshot, terrified eyes, Tetsu let out a bone-chilling, agonizing scream. It was horrific. Overcome by pain and exhaustion, he slowly collapsed, clutching his mangled, limp arm. Trembling, Tetsu hissed, "I'll kill you." He was clearly pushed to his limit, screaming in fury, "I'll tear you to pieces with my own hands." But no sooner had he finished speaking than Kong-Hu had vanished without a trace. Tetsu frantically darted his eyes around, screaming, "Where did that bastard run off to? I have to use my magic." Suddenly, he looked blank, his eyes landing on something, Tetsu's own arm lying discarded on the cold floor. I was stunned. Before he could even react, a surge of energy snatched that arm up. Now Tetsu's limb was firmly in Kong-Hu's grip. "Grab him!" he screamed again in horror. "What?" As he scrambled to chase after him, Tetsu shouted desperately, "No, you bastard!" At that moment, Kong-Hu turned around, holding the arm with an amused expression, as if he knew exactly what the guy would do next. His face tightened as he roared, "I'm going to tear you apart." Tetsu desperately searched for him, his voice echoing out. He looked miserable, yet he shouted loudly, "Show your face!" Suddenly, Tetsu accidentally spotted a few figures in the shadows. Without a second thought, he poured all his strength into his hand, snarling, "You think you can hide there and I wouldn't know? Come on out." Suddenly, Tessu's pupils dilated in absolute terror, for in front of him lay countless corpses scattered everywhere. You people among all this mess. A figure slowly emerged. It was Sang-mi looking triumphant. Troops move. Kong-hoo's plan was slowly being revealed. The Gong Tessu in the dungeon was a fake. He wanted to lure the mercenaries into one spot to wipe them out. He had calculated that the real Gong Tessu would be hiding far away supporting his underlings. Once that was done, Kong-hoo instructed Sang-mi to secretly head to the building that was about to explode. He had assured her that there was a Gong Tessu there missing a left arm and losing his mind. After it all, Sang-mi smiled and swung her sword, wondering, how did he know? With just a gentle swing of her blade, she unleashed a fierce power, blowing everything away. These people were caught in the gale, spinning in the air. Down here, a terrifying vortex of energy erupted. Tessu, unable to resist, lay sprawled on the cold stone floor. On this side, the fake Tessu was struggling in a fierce battle when he suddenly panicked, muttering, "What the hell, what's going on?" Looking at the ruined building that remained eerily silent, the fake Tessu was curious. Why did the leader stop supporting us? At that moment, a sword pierced straight through his vital point. The group cheered in excitement. "We got him! I caught Gong Tessu." But that joy was quickly extinguished when they saw the fake Tessu transforming. The person lying there was just some nobody. A voice sounded in shock. Was he just a body double? In an instant, the group stood stunned. Behind them, Sang-mi was charging in like a madwoman, sweeping through everyone with extreme excitement. Her face glowed with thrill. She screamed, "Surround them!" Without a moment's hesitation, Sang-mi charged forward at lightning speed. A guy watching from the side clicked his tongue in annoyance, all his frustration channeled into his sword hilt. The others scowled, raising their weapons to follow Sang-mi. They all charged in with burning momentum. "We're joining in too." Now that things had settled down, the guy beside her grumbled, "The casualties are heavy. We almost walked into a trap." Just then, a notification beeped on Sang-mi's phone, a text message. The guy continued, curious, "But how did this boss know where Gong Tessu was hiding?" On her phone screen, a line appeared, "Remember to keep your word." Kong-hoo's voice echoed in her mind, "Help me meet the head of Abe." Sang-mi replied to the message, "Dealing with the stragglers is taking a bit of time. Once that's done, I'll contact Abe immediately." Then she suddenly sighed with regret. "Oh, he's gone already. I should have at least said goodbye." Inside the glass, Kong-hoo's voice came through. "Hello, Sun-kyu. Take Tessu's arm." It was Jejin's voice. "You did a good job, didn't you?" She happily said, "I'm so glad to see you again at Daechun." Then he asked, "How's Chaso-hai doing?" Jejin quickly replied, "She's at Cheongu. I spread a fake rumor." Suddenly, the corner of her mouth pulled up with calm, "That's it." Then Jejin excitedly spoke up. "Have you seen the news?" Faced with Kang-hoo's scowl, she announced, "You've become a celebrity, right now on social media." The news about Kong-hoo was spreading along with Jejin's voice. "You've become a celebrity, even though they don't know who you are." Seeing that he frowned and muttered to himself, "Everything is starting to deviate from the original story." Kong-hoo calculated that a supporting character like Gong Tessu didn't matter, but he would have to be careful with plot points involving the main characters. Trang Si-kwan. Suddenly, she smiled and said, "You'll still cooperate with Blue Eye, right?" He smiled back, "Until I find a better deal, that is." Hearing this slightly teasing tone, Jejin laughed. "You know how to joke, too." She quickly got down to business, "So let's talk about the next mission." Jejin calmly explained the situation. "The target is Chubin, a serial killer and a nightmare for children," but suddenly her tone became tense. The last time he was seen was at the 0 floor. Jejin handed over a file suggesting that the information inside would surely come in handy. Kong-hoo smirked, thinking to himself that he'd have to get there sooner than expected. He cheerfully told himself he needed to prepare a bit while in this posh room. A voice rang out again. "I don't know who he is, but he's impressive." Upon hearing the mysterious news about Kong-hoo, Shi-kwan gently muttered, "How interesting." On the other end of his phone, someone spoke up. "Yes, this is the strategic intelligence team from the Central Guild speaking." Shi-kwan immediately ordered, "Investigate everything you can about Gong Taesu's death for me." Visibly impatient and excited, he emphasized, "Find out who took his left arm," as the sunlight bathed the tall guild buildings. Inside the office, a grumpy voice snapped, "It sounds like we don't know each other at all." That was the voice of the dungeon management supervisor, Han Sung-hook. "I don't care who sent you, but we don't issue dungeon permits to outsiders. Besides, we've never met before." Without beating around the bush, Kang-hoo quickly made an offer, 1 billion. I'll pay 1 billion for a permit to the Batman dungeon. 1 entry is all I need. Faced with such an offer, Sung-Huk seemed a bit swayed. Truly, money dictates consciousness. In an instant, he welcomed him respectfully. Please follow me. Seeing this, Kong-Hu chuckled. Did you just use Shadow Step? Sung-Huk was both thrilled and smug, thinking to himself, that cheap 8-man dungeon is just leftover stock anyway, kid. Have fun in there, you blockhead. Then he spoke softly. Let's go over there and discuss the details further. Seemingly understanding Sung-Huk's true intentions, he smiled to himself. Compared to what he would gain from inside, 1 billion was nothing. On that side, every demon charging at him was easily taken down by Kong-Hu with a cold gaze and fluid precise strikes. Just like that, the demons he defeated were sent to the afterlife. Suddenly, the system notification chimed, "You have leveled up. You have reached level 37. Hearing that, Kong-Hu muttered, "Nice," sticking all points into physical strength as usual. On the other side, suddenly a row of torches flared up, flickering. The flames burned intensely as if containing great power, and from within the fire a stream of lava formed. In the blink of an eye, a fierce wolf appeared, the final boss, Batman. It growled threateningly, "Don't waste your effort, turn back." Batman glared at Kong-Hu and roared, "Pathetic human." Despite the immense pressure, he charged forward without hesitation. Seeing this, the beast unleashed its power and shouted, "You've got guts." In an instant, the path turned into a raging inferno. As Batman declared, "I will burn you to ash," those massive claws kept spewing endless flames. Behind him, a wave of lava surged as if to swallow everything. Kong-Hu quickly sprinted, picking up speed. Suddenly, his eyes showed absolute determination. It was as if his soul and body had detached. It was Kong-Hu's technique, Shadow Step. Seeing him charging fearlessly, Batman drooled, savoring the thought of a meal. It inhaled deeply with its massive lungs, then quickly exhaled a blast of terrifying crimson fire, straight at Kong-Hu. I was engulfed by the raging flames, his body scorched, and it felt as if every piece of him was dissolving into nothingness, along with his spiritual energy. He had become one with the fire, slowly being absorbed. Finished. Batman flicked its long tongue, licking its lips with delight. Tasty food. Seeing this, Kong-Hu grinned and muttered, "Just as I thought. You'll eat it once it's burnt." Facing this monster, it seemed he had a plan. He rushed forward again. "This time I'll feed you a super special meal." In his mind, Kong-Hu thought, "I've been saving this for this very moment." After defeating the Alisa bug, the voice continued, and obtained his book. Finally, the voice sounded a bit excited. "I've been waiting for this day forever." Returning to reality, Kong-Hu was charging wildly at an incredible speed, accelerating. Suddenly, the corner of his mouth curved with intent. The technique from before was repeated by Kong-Hu, but it was an upgraded version of Shadow Step. On this side, Batman's nose twitched, assessing its opponent. With power in its grasp, it shouted excitedly, "More food!" At this moment, Batman inhaled with all its might, then unleashed a disgusting, massive blast of fire. At this very moment, in Kong-Hu's hand was a magic book. He whispered to himself. With 2 clones in front, the real Kong-Hu was channeling his power, preparing a finishing move. In a flash, he threw the book toward his 2 clones, right into Batman's intense flames. Kong-Hu smirked smugly. How could I keep feeding him the same old thing? Its technique was still being performed smoothly, burning away. On this side, he sarcastically remarked, "Taste this and wake up, sweetie." Facing that furious wave of fire, one of Kong-Hu's clones quickly dashed forward, joining the main body to form a pincer attack. Suddenly, he smirked with a look of triumph. Batman, unable to see anything, remained focused on the fire before him. Now that it had fully absorbed the flames back into its body, that tongue was still licking its lips greedily, just as before. It remarked that the taste was strange, then glared at Kong-Hu and growled, "How will you handle this, I wonder?" Suddenly, a very strange book appeared above its head. The Great Cleaver witnessed this phenomenon. Batman was immediately shaken. What is this? Then its entire body slowly dissolved into particles of spiritual energy. Suddenly, a bright red warning display appeared right before its eyes with a message declaring, "You cannot use skills without a weapon." In an instant, dozens of similar warnings surrounded Batman. It stood stunned, staring at the hallucinations all around, completely unaware that Kong-Hu had already set the trap. Batman roared madly, "You bastard, what did you do?" Witnessing this reaction, he replied cheerfully, "Knowing that won't help you anyway. That's my skill, you see." Just then, a terrifying vortex of firepower appeared above Batman's head. It gasped in shock. You bear the title of final boss, yet you let yourself get hit by a move. Batman flew into a rage. It launched scorching fireballs toward Kong Hu. You inferior human flame dance facing this chilling attack. His expression remained unchanged. Before its eyes, a shockwave explosion erupted. It seemed as if he had been defeated, and Batman smiled triumphantly. That's more like it. But as the smoke cleared, only dust remained, leaving it stunned. Batman exclaimed in shock, "Damn monkey, where did he disappear to?" At that very moment, Kong Hu was right behind it. Substitution. He quickly unleashed his fierce power, grabbing a stream of spiritual energy to bind Batman tightly. The monster let out a pained moan. Batman instinctively turned its head to look at Kong Hu, who calmly said, "I won't finish you off just yet." Taking this opportunity, it glared, radiating fierce power with a contorted face. Gift of fire. Arrogant as a volcanic eruption, the red flames burst out violently along with Batman's roar. "I'll burn you to death." Suddenly it narrowed its eyes in surprise because Kong Hu had created a shield to resist that scorching attack. He whispered, "This shield will hold for a few more seconds. Earth barrier." Suddenly Kong Hu flashed a meaningful smile. But that's enough. Batman didn't stop charging forward once more with surging aura and power. Gift of fire. Suddenly, its agonizing scream cut through everything. Kong Hu had decisively pierced his sword straight through Batman's body. The barrier slowly faded, and its massive body instinctively recoiled. Kong Hu's gaze instantly turned sharp. Deep wound stab. He exerted force and dashed in a different direction, not letting Batman recover. Seeing this, it shouted, "Don't you dare run!" The hot lava flows were summoned like a waterfall. Closing in on Kong Hu, he calmly replied, "I'm not running." In an instant, Batman's entire body seemed to be torn to pieces by Kong Hu's technique. Blood burn. Its appearance was now utterly miserable. One side of its body was severed. At this moment, Batman completely collapsed onto the cold ground. The system voice rang out, "You have defeated the final boss. You have leveled up. You have reached level 39. Received one skill from the target, the Great Cleaver." Facing this information, Kong Hu just stared, his expression unchanging. He arched a brow, his tone somewhat composed. "This is exactly what I needed." Just then, Kong Hu's voice echoed out, "Skill collection upon killing a monster regardless of the level gap between the monster and me." Looking at Batman slowly dissolving, he continued, "In that case, there won't be many penalties for me." Just then, the system voice appeared again. "Received one skill from the target, the Great Cleaver." Following the system's voice was Kong Hu's inner thought. "From that, I gained an original skill. This could be considered a bug. I took advantage of it. Now I have many necessary skills in my hands. Now everything will be much simpler." Suddenly, he exclaimed excitedly, "With this?" Kong Hu's expression became triumphant. "I can reach the next floor now." The evening sun was casting its light over the city at Seoul Station. He was blending into the bustling crowd, thinking to himself, "My route has to go through Seoul." Looking at the image of the 13 on the screen, Kong Hu complained softly, "Man, this is so annoying." From the screen, the program's voice boomed, "Right now, the chairman of the Chinese Guild and Fortuna have officially signed a partnership agreement." Witnessing this, the crowd began to murmur excitedly, "That's amazing, the Fortuna Guild, I heard they're huge in America." Those lively voices didn't stop. "They are reaching a global scale now." Kong Hu, hidden in that excitement, whispered to himself, "This moment is truly touching." Looking at the friendly handshake, he thought, but that's only if people didn't know that this whole act was orchestrated by the 13. Kong Hu's voice whispered again, "The 13 include 13 hunters who are in principle the heroes highly praised by everyone. Sequan and his peers are among them." Suddenly his tone darkened. Of course, in reality, those people are the key factors leading this world to its destruction. Kong Hu sighed with regret. What's more terrifying is their network. It spans the entire globe. They can manipulate public opinion whenever they want. But above all, I know one thing very well: once they unite, everyone will begin to submit and worship them as the strongest hero team. After it all, Kong Hu sighed wearily and muttered, "My burden is that I'm the one who wrote this novel." Just then a voice suddenly chimed in, "Seoul is really boring, isn't it?" He instinctively turned his head to look. It was the voice of Sequan, which continued on, "Everything is just daylight robbery. You need connections to do anything or go anywhere these days. There's an aura of hers spreading out, don't you think so? Seeing Zhonghua approaching, Kong Hu instinctively grew wary, his eyes fixed on those ominous wisps of energy. His guard went up and following his intuition, Kong Hu whispered to himself, "This is..." As that aura seeped into his mind, everyday images suddenly flashed before his eyes, the sweet, almost dizzying appearance of Zhonghua. Kong Hu realized instantly it was a mental-type skill. In a split second, a memory of being bullied surfaced, then a scene of chilling, lonely isolation, and even the bizarre image of himself standing before a blood-soaked corpse. Kong Hu snapped back to reality almost immediately, shaking off those eerie illusions. Seeing this, Zhonghua was stunned. "You can counter my mind reading." She offered a faint smile, thinking to herself, "Is his level higher than mine?" Kong Hu spoke up, then, "Stop wasting your time." He glared at her sternly. "My mind isn't something you can just read whenever you please." Kong Hu contemplated internally. "Seeing her constellation, I know exactly what she is." A panel appeared clearly above Zhonghua's head, beauty of the nine-tailed fox nebula. When there are no mental barriers, you can view the status windows of those at a lower level. Then he realized she was one of the 13 star spirits. Zhonghua, but the information had changed to the taciturn lady. Neutral constellations don't display any information regarding other constellations besides the two representative ones. In any case, a glint of intrigue appeared in Kong Hu's eyes. Interesting, he thought, feeling genuinely excited. A world he couldn't see through. Even without a specific counter skill, there were still ways to temporarily block mental-type abilities. Kang Hu began to calmly analyze her move from earlier. The secret of this type of attack lies in instantly recalling pleasant memories to make people drop their mental guard. His expression was full of caution now. "So if I force myself to recall other painful memories, I can temporarily negate its effects." Suddenly, Zhonghua spoke in a gentle voice. "I thought that here in Korea, only a few officers could do that. You're quite interesting, too." Then she added excitedly, "I only give my guild business card to those who can block my skill at least once." Zhonghua gave a charming, calculated invitation. "If you ever get bored working in the country or need help, come find me." Looking at the business card, Kong Hu thought, "See-do. A top 5 guild in China, huh?" He smiled cryptically. "These people won't be easy to deal with." Then he replied cheerfully, "I'll take it." And just like that, Zhonghua turned and walked away with a goodbye, "See you later." Once she was out of sight, Kong Hu started calculating again. To go up against the 13 stars, I'm going to need allies. In this desolate, bone-chilling wilderness, suddenly firm footsteps echoed. It was Kong Hu standing in the middle of the endless expanse. He spoke, "Finally arrived. This location is the 0 floor." Kong Hu pulled out a map and said, "Shall I go treasure hunting before finishing the mission?" Right then, a murderous aura suddenly emerged behind him. A somewhat terrifying female shadow had taken form. A deep blue aura began to coil around Kong Hu. With his sensitive, innate mana perception, he mused to himself, "Even though my ability to sense and absorb mana is incredible, if I use too much, beyond the threshold, my body will overload." Kong Hu continued, "Bone-piercing pain and various abnormal status effects will occur, severely reducing my physical stamina. If this happens while I'm in combat, the only thing waiting for me is death." He then emphasized, "The important thing now is to suppress this overload. My upcoming battles will be much more intense and difficult than this. I might need some frenzied mana herbs for protection." Frenzied mana herbs. In the novel, Shin Kong Hu used this plant. It has effects many times stronger than normal medicine. Using it will temporarily stop the activity of innate mana for 30 minutes. During that time, I won't be overloaded. Even though it has side effects, it's still very useful in battle. It's hard to harvest, not just because it grows in dangerous areas, but because it's guarded by those frenzied monsters. Looking at the map, Kang Hu muttered, "There are 6 different areas. I've marked them with the numbers I usually use." Then slowly rolling up the map, he exclaimed happily, "It's great to reach level 40. Now, Kong Hu's expression became intrigued. "I'll unlock a new skill." At this moment, he was fighting these terrifying monstrous plants. In a flash, Kong Hu ripped the head off one of them and tossed it aside. The system prompt appeared, "You have defeated a normal monster." Time passed, and he gradually grew tired. Looking back at the battlefield, Kong Hu muttered, "There are too many monsters. Area 0 is a very dangerous place. There are powerful mutated monsters here." Right at this very moment, Kong Hu bolted his footsteps, hurried and desperate. There are so many mutated creatures around here. Even a single moment of carelessness could cost you your life. Glancing at the lifeless corpse slumped by the rocks, Kong Hu felt a strange flicker of doubt. Even with the environment here slowing down decomposition, something felt off. His intuition triggered a question in his mind. This body shouldn't look this well preserved, should it? Kong Hu quickly tapped into his God-given power to find the answer. Using his mana-enhanced vision, he instantly spotted a monster lurking there. No wonder the corpse was emitting traces of mana. He looked at the pristine weapon clutched in its hands. Kong Hu immediately grasped the reality beneath the surface. This was just a dark trap, designed to lure hunters with shiny loot. If he touched it, a parasite would latch onto him. It would stick to him and tail him just like Lee Zezin's frog. He thought to himself, trying to use bait to hunt, are you? Suddenly, the pitiful memories of his past flashed back. Back when he went by the name Park Min-sung, struggling all on his own. Living in a living hell, enduring harsh taunts. Look at Park Min-sung, see if anyone actually helps him. The contempt and scorn that used to shadow him returned, but as he snapped back to reality and closed his eyes, he pushed those feelings aside. He recovered his composure in an instant. Sweeping his gaze past the corpse while he searched, he finally spotted a medicinal herb. Staring at the treasure, Kong Hu calmly muttered, "Found my first flower." Suddenly, a creature began to stir just as he told himself he'd grab it quickly. Kong Hu instantly slammed his feet into the ground, bracing himself. He leapt high into the air to pluck the herb, but suddenly out of those dry, brittle branches, a surge of dark energy erupted and a pair of eyes filled with malice snapped open. Kong Hu had already grabbed the herb thinking he had pulled it off easily, but roots whipped out to hold him back. With fierce determination, he yanked the herb free, staring at the gnarled roots digging deep into the rocky cliffside. These roots rapidly spread across the entire cliff. What stood before Kong Hu now was a massive, monstrous treant. Its roots slithered through the rock crevices and lunged at Kong Hu. He kicked out to deflect the attack, using the impact as a springboard. He vaulted high into the air. "Hello there!" The treant lashed out with a dry wooden limb, unleashing a lethal strike, but Kong Hu dodged it with ease. Kong Hu swiftly slipped behind it, moving with instant blink-like speed. A sharp blade, burning with the fire of his flame-wielding weapon, struck out. He pierced the monster's most vulnerable spot, and flames instantly engulfed its entire body, consuming it. Suddenly, the system chimed, "Caution, incoming attack from behind. Attacking enemies from behind deals 33% extra damage." Even though he had taken down the monster, a look of surprise lingered in Kong Hu's eyes. The flaming treant was slowly plummeting into the abyss, a terrifying sight to behold. Kong Hu watched from above, his expression remaining cold and unmoving. He looked on as the body slowly dissolved. The system chimed again. "You have defeated a normal monster." The voice continued relentlessly. "You have reached level 40. You have acquired a new basic skill for the assassin class, evasion." Kong Hu finally breathed out, "Finally level 40. The system continued, "Due to the power of your constellation, evasion has been upgraded to ultimate evasion." Seeing this, he smiled and remarked, "The system always knows how to surprise me, doesn't it?" Suddenly, he tilted his head to look at the shadow. "Just got a new skill, I should test it out," Kong Hu muttered to the uninvited guest, and with those words, he lunged straight toward the darkness. With a fiery intensity, he closed the distance to the shadow. Glaring with cold, piercing eyes, he growled, "Why have you been following me?" From the shadows, a pale face was revealed. It was Juji, her expression full of surprise. How did you know?" Facing her, Kong Hu scowled slightly, muttering, "This girl." Juji just stood there, looking completely bewildered and stunned. But in a split second, memories of the past resurfaced, observed by someone who always kept watch. Young Duji, the daughter of a successful businessman. She was a diligent and exemplary student, though she became infamous for her closeness to the student council vice president Cheon Guan-hung, only for him to abandon her. When her father's business shut down, her family's assets dwindled, and she was even ostracized by a faction that bullied her to the breaking point. Kong Hu thought to himself, lost in thought. That is why in the novel she was written as a foil who always resented Cheon Guan-hung. Though I didn't write much detail about this character. Just then she spoke softly. "I'm sorry if me following you is a bother." Young Duji then beamed and complimented him. "You're just really skilled. We've only just reached the starting point. But you were already able to dodge the dark forces." Her voice lingered as she continued. "And you were even able to defeat that frenzied monster." Suddenly Kong Hu gripped the sword in his hand tightly. He lunged forward with malicious intent. Young Dooji, caught off guard, instinctively raised her arms to defend herself. Just as she was gripped by fear, a different kind of confusion set in. In reality, he was protecting Yuji from the monster behind her in that situation. Kong-hoo's body pressed close to hers as he whispered, "There's a bug." Yuji felt a flutter of excitement from this action. "Thank you," she said, but then he stood up and spoke coldly. "Don't follow me anymore." With that, Kong-hoo immediately jumped away, leaving her all alone. Once he landed, he turned his back and walked off without a second glance. Seeing this, young Dooji felt a lingering regret and whispered, "He left. I wanted to talk to him a little more." Right then, under the sunset beside the decaying corpse of the demon, Kong-hoo's ragged breathing echoed. That blood-stained sword. He quickly pulled it out, glanced at the system window, and groaned, "I'm exhausted." Scrolling through the notification screen, Kong-hoo muttered, "That's 5 times now. Regardless, I've made it through 6 zones already." After resting for a moment, he told himself it was time to get back to the main mission. Just then, Kang-hoo suddenly spotted several demons behind him. With a terrifying appearance and wings as light as feathers, he immediately recognized them as angel-type monsters. Maintaining his calm composure, Kong-hoo walked away step by step. As he walked, he wondered to himself, is there a territory nearby? Kong-hoo stood before a wandering corpse, deep in thought, his eyes flashing as he caught sight of the monster inside. He mused to himself, the puppet attached to this corpse isn't too dangerous. Suddenly, he started rummaging around for something. Kang-hoo's voice continued, "The real danger here is the bastard standing behind and controlling this guy." Regarding this, Kong-hoo knew very well that the dark forces were a collection of ghosts. Because they were black and moved without a sound, they were hard to detect at night. Even if you discovered and attacked them, you couldn't use ordinary methods to destroy them. That is why the senses of those caught by them would gradually fade, causing their minds to spiral. Eventually, they would go insane and lose their grip on reality like a madman who takes their own life because they lose control. Because of that, Kang-hoo resolved, "I'm not going to let myself fall into such a simple trap." Immediately, he used his skill to probe the dark shadow. When a clone of Kang-hoo touched the corpse, the monster revealed itself. Following his plan, he immediately grabbed the weapon from the hands of the soulless corpse just as the monster was about to invade Kang-hoo's body. He quickly used his skill with determination, swap. He would use it to fight them back. And now, that sharp sword was securely in his hand. "You see that? I need weapons to counter you guys too. Over here." The monster suddenly let out a shrill cry. Seeming to anticipate their next move, Kang-hoo quickly ran far away. He bit into a leaf and muttered, "It's starting." Just then, behind Kang-hoo, thick streams of black spiritual energy were desperately chasing him. A grudge spirit also burst forth, looking horrific. While biting into the medicinal herb, he spoke up. "Damn it, you guys are persistent. I knew you'd show up." At this moment, Kang-hoo poured all his strength into his agile legs. He leaped from one side of the cliff to the other, but unfortunately, he was blocked by the grudge spirit. Just as it tried to pounce on Kang-hoo, he used his power to speed up his escape. His body kept moving without rest. Right beside him, that spiteful grudge spirit remained. He had to catch his breath to keep running, but unfortunately, the leaf in Kang-hoo's mouth fell out. At that moment, the grudge spirit was about to catch him. Facing this critical situation, Kang-hoo was inevitably surprised. Right then, he quickly used his skill, leaving a handful of nothing in the spirit's hand. Swapping places, Kang-hoo stood on high, looking down at the grudge spirit as he spoke. "You idiot, I'm up here." Feeling toyed with, the spirit's face turned as black as coal. Now, the grudge spirit also had to face 2 angel-type monsters with murderous intent. They glared at him with an evil glint. At this moment, the grudge spirit revealed a look of extreme fear. Instantly, these angel-type monsters spread their wings, establishing absolute dominance. From above, Kang-hoo muttered, "There are only 2 things that can destroy darkness." His voice slowly echoed. First is the power representing the night, similar to dark power, the yin power. The voice continued slow and steady, describing the remaining power, a force polar opposite to the sunlight now fading. Kang-hoo coldly turned away, indifferent to the world, and muttered to himself about the holy art. Because their territory had been violated by someone from the opposing side, they would now hunt them down one by one. "Until every intruder is dead," he said, staring at the sword gripped firmly in his hand. I smiled and whispered, "Time for me to take this." Kang-hoo returned to the lifeless body, silently taking the business card from its hand. I thought to himself, I've never seen this name before. Kang Hu pondered, even though you're already gone, I can still bring you back to your family. With that, he gently reached out with a promise, wait for me a little longer. The man's eyes softly closed at his words. Now Kang Hu turned away with firm resolve. I'll settle the client's grudge now. Before he walked off, a shadow flickered vaguely behind a rock. It was Duvy secretly following him, watching with an amused expression. Memories of the past resurfaced. The target's name was Chubin, a murderer who targeted minors. Those were Jezin's words. That's all the info you'll need. Kang Hu had calmly replied, this file is different from the usual ones. She immediately added, right, that file came directly from the client. The following details made his responsibility weigh even heavier. It had been compiled by the father of a victim. Back to reality dawn was slowly breaking over North Korea. Starting point. Please be careful. Jezin had warned him, serious as ever. This mission isn't just a simple assassination. Please follow the client's requests exactly. Remembering those words, Kang Hu fell into a deep, meaningful silence. A flicker of power surged in his eyes as he surveyed the area. Instantly, the landscape before him mapped out like a blueprint. Monotrace, Kang Hu whispered softly. Found you. But over here, a savage laugh rang out. It was Gubin, who had just taken a life, his face twisted in sadistic pleasure. There we go. Now this is more like it. I knew the starting point would be a goldmine for me. Suddenly, the system window appeared. Mad Murderer Tainted Nebula. You will receive EXP for every kill. The man gloated, filled with excitement. Just one more and I'll level up. Suddenly, Gubin's eyes narrowed as if he'd spotted something. Right at that moment, a powerful burst of spiritual energy gripped his hand. Gubin quickly used his strength to repel it and immediately shifted into a defensive stance encased in frost armor. Seeing Kang Hu standing there so arrogantly, Gubin stepped closer and bellowed, Who the hell are you? Hearing this, he replied indifferently, You don't need to know. Seeing Kang Hu's arrogant attitude, Gubin roared, You bastard! Then he formed shards of ice as sharp as thorns. His feet were also reinforced with a layer of ice. The system window flashed again. Frost Mage Neutral Constellation. You have acquired the Frost attribute. Abilities with the Frost attribute will be enhanced. Facing a savage like him, Kang Hu instinctively frowned, his expression unchanged. Gubin immediately spat out, If you don't want to talk? Kang Hu lunged forward without a moment's hesitation. Then I'll just open your mouth for you. Seeing his boldness, Gubin sneered. Kang Hu deftly wove through the falling needles of freezing rain, ignoring the man's taunts. Let's see how long you can dance. Acceleration. He had only just begun. Kang Hu quickly realized, this guy is the real deal. He assessed the situation. That tainted nebula power. His level is relatively high. His magic resistance is on a whole different level compared to Heo Jung Tai. Kang Hu calculated that clairvoyance probably wouldn't work. More importantly, what he was really focused on was the sturdy armor on Gubin's body. I have to do something about that frost armor. In a flash, Kang Hu closed the distance with acceleration. Gubin's eyes narrowed, a moment of stagnation appeared, and he laughed brightly. After observing everything, he whispered, A fake, huh? Just as Kang Hu lunged with confident momentum, a spike of frozen blood suddenly erupted. How about this, then? Caught off guard by the sudden attack, he could only curse. Damn, he can even turn blood into ice. With nimble feet, Kang Hu quickly triggered extreme evasion. I couldn't dodge that one. The instant the blood-red light struck, he activated Resilience Shield. A flicker of terrifying surprise flashed in Kang Hu's eyes. Gubin's stunned expression was proof enough that his processing speed had exceeded expectations. Kang Hu smiled faintly. I thought I'd get hurt using this skill, but the system window appeared again. Extreme evasion. Skill proficiency. Max level. You can dodge in 4 directions up to 5 meters. Due to maximum proficiency, agility is applied, allowing you to dodge instantly. While dodging, the resilience shield effect is applied. Dodge rate increased. You have acquired a basic assassin class skill. Thanks to the nebula skill, my dodge has been upgraded to ultimate dodge. He smirked to himself, thinking, first time using this skill. Ever since I got it, the side effects have actually been pretty useful. Seeing his attack miss by a hair, Reuben scowled. Damn it, that was so close. Reuben gripped his ice staff tightly, radiating a murderous aura as he growled, I was this close to finishing you in a heartbeat. Facing Kang Hu, he scoffed. Playing tag with someone like you isn't even fun. I'm going to kill you and take all the items you're carrying. Despite that aggressive taunt, Kang Hu calmly spoke up. I want to ask you one thing. Why couldn't you even spare the innocent children? Hearing this, Ruben looked stunned, then shook his head in exhaustion and retorted, I had a feeling about you. Who commissioned you? Facing him, Kang Hu answered with a serious look. Tao. And Ruben didn't hesitate to reply, you didn't know. Suddenly his expression turned completely manic as he answered, because they were still small, that's why. Excitement bubbled over in every word. Ruben said, playing with them is so much fun. They're so innocent and clueless they don't know a thing. Such barbaric words. They still echoed as Kang Hu's face darkened. But do you know what the funniest part is? You pretend to be their friend, then you trick them, and finally you finish them. Juji, hiding in a corner behind him, could feel the cruelty in every word. When they fall into total despair, their expressions, they get me so excited I can't stand it. People who don't trick others are just fools, aren't they? Every single word, it was as if it were dragging her back to a horrific time, living under the shadow of that terrifying expression on Ruben's face. It was sickening. Back then she had to grit her teeth to endure the humiliation and contempt. Playing with you is fun too. Returning to the present, to the twisted brutality of Ruben. They're just toys for me to play with. In the blink of an eye, he conjured a layer of dense, jagged ice spikes surrounding the area. An ice barrier. Ruben's face looked incredibly gleeful. At this moment, Kang Hu softly spoke, full of resentment for the victims and resolute in his intent. I'll make sure you know exactly what it feels like to be toyed with by someone else. Instantly, a dozen after-images of Kang Hu appeared. Using illusion magic, those clones darted in all directions, encircling Ruben. Seeing this, he frowned and cursed. Damn it, which one is the real one? Staring straight at the Kang Hu in the center, he guessed, it's this one. Then observing the other clones. Ruben started thinking in a new direction. No, he must still be hiding to find an opening. While he was distracted and searching, two Kang Hus charged in at once. Ruben didn't back down. He prepared a lethal strike. Kang Hu's cold voice echoed, too slow. Before Ruben could even react, several more Kang Hus had slipped behind him. Now he was completely surrounded with no way out. Amidst the confusing illusions, Ruben panicked. Which one is the real one? Trap number 31. At this moment, Kang Hu swung his blade with a thick aura of murder. Not just one, but all of his clones rushed in simultaneously. Surrounded, Ruben screamed, only children rely on numbers. Having said that, ice needles crystallized on his fingertips, condensing into freezing blades. The ice element exploded violently, locking down the entire battlefield in an instant. I'll wipe you all out, Ice Blast! The Kang Hu clones that rushed in were swallowed by the freezing air trapped among the sharp ice blocks and then vanished into thin air. Witnessing this scene, Ruben looked horrified. All three were illusions. Then where is the real body? Right then, Kang Hu was charging in from the front like a speed demon. His expression didn't change at all. His eyes were locked onto his opponent. With just one simple movement, Ruben's freezing air turned into a killing blow. A piercing strike with explosive acceleration. Kang Hu tore through the wind, rushing straight at him with a challenge. Let's see whose attack is faster. Acceleration, ice and fire fusion, a perfect blend. A freezing aura mixed with scorching heat engulfed his arm, signaling a powerful finishing move. You're too slow. Firepower. Then Kang Hu unleashed a blood forest piercing strike. The ice and fire spear tore straight through his body. Feel a bit of my pain. Now, Ruben took the full force of the energy, coughing up blood, his eyes rolling back. But Kang Hu didn't stop, repeatedly stabbing with the sword in his hand. How's that? How does it feel to be tricked, to be stabbed? Ruben was now in a pathetic state, groaning to himself. It hurts so much. I can't focus enough to cast magic. While Ruben was in agony, Kang Hu quickly grabbed the sword stuck in his body, then spun around so fast he left after images along with a curse. Do you piece of trash, instant movement. Now the fear in Ruben's eyes was clear. At this moment, a crimson aura gathered on the blade and a surging bloodlust erupted from within Kang Hu. The system's voice rang out, 25% of stamina and mana consumed, skill activated. In a flash, he moved as fast as lightning, too fast to see. Not giving Goben a chance to recover, Kang Hu raised his blood sword high, preparing to deliver the final blow. Facing this situation, perhaps he was terrified to the core. The system appeared again. Warning from behind, attacking a target from behind, deals 33% bonus damage. At that exact moment, Kang Hu's finishing move was unleashed. Blood-red light exploded instantly, crushing Gobin's ice defense. The air grew frigid, filling the space while the boss's ragged, wheezing breaths grew faint. Kong-Hu suddenly pulled out his phone as the system menu appeared. Great Executioner, a critical skill that consumes 25% of the user's stamina and mana. Targets with a level lower than 33% of the user's level will die in one hit. Kang-Hu mused. Even though it costs a lot of mana, this skill is seriously powerful. It's also quite fitting for Nebula, the father of music. Suddenly, Ruby let out a painful groan and collapsed. The excruciating pain made his eyes roll back until only the whites showed. With a faint, dying glance, he thought in shock, "What is he doing?" Over there, on the other end of Kang-Hu's phone, a voice rang out. "Yes, it's me," he answered softly. "Sir," his voice continued calmly, "thank you for waiting so patiently. Your revenge for your daughter begins right now." Under the sunset covering the building, footage of Kang-Hu was being displayed alongside a mysterious voice. "This is security camera footage from Guyun's house." The voice continued. "You can see the train speeding toward the north." Hearing this, Sohee muttered to herself, "He must be heading to the starting point." She then calmly replied, "He's going there for personal business, then coming back. Guyun, keep me updated on everything that happens." The other side immediately obeyed, "Yes, sir." Now the phone call ended. Sohee's rage instantly exploded. "Kang-Hu, you bastard, damn it!" Gritting her teeth, she vowed, "I will make you regret looking down on me." Meanwhile, a trembling voice pleaded on the other side, "I'm sorry. I'm sorry." By now, Ruben's entire body was soaked in blood, a horrifying sight. The desperate voice kept pleading, "I'm sorry," and his whole body shook with terror. "I'm sorry, sir. I'm so sorry." On the other side of the screen, with a vacant stare, the man muttered, "That's enough." His tone softened as if satisfied. "That's enough. With this, my daughter can finally rest in peace." At this moment, he collapsed in tears. "Thank you so much," he said, his voice a mix of despair and gratitude. "You helped me do what both the law and the security agencies forbid." Kang-Hu humbly replied, "I'm just doing the job I was assigned." Suddenly, his tone carried a note of empathy. "My condolences to you as well. I hope your daughter rests in peace." Now Ruben finally spoke to Kang-Hu. "It's done," he roared in frustration. "I did everything you told me to, you bastard." At that very moment, Kang-Hu's technique was executed. The blood sword slashed down decisively. Ruben took the critical hit, blood painting the battlefield red. Blood burn. In Kang-Hu's eyes, pure hatred lingered and his words were filled with venom. "Now you can die." The system appeared. "You have eliminated the target and seized his contract with the Ice Witch." Notification windows popped up one after another. "Confirmaton Hysteria Spatial Thief. A trash star has been sent to us." The final message read, "Spatial Thief, a trash star has been sent to us. I think we need to teach him a lesson." Just then, Kang-Hu spoke up, "He's all yours." Having said that, he walked away nonchalantly. Kang-Hu casually looted the remaining items on Ruben's body. "Selling all this stuff should get me at least $1 billion, right?" Suddenly, his phone rang. It was Ji-Jin calling. "Great job," she informed him. "The client gave you an extra bonus. I'm transferring $2.5 billion to your account now." Kang-Hu immediately responded, "Got it. I have one request." He quickly explained, "Retrieve the body and verify his identity." Hearing this, Ji-Jin smiled and agreed, "No problem." Once that was settled, she said her goodbyes. "See you later." Suddenly, Kang-Hu turned his head, his voice cold. "I told you yesterday." His eyes flashed with anger. "Stop following me." Just then, a pair of footsteps slowly emerged. It was Juji who had gathered the courage to step out in front of Kang-Hu. Her lips trembled slightly, then she clenched her fists and spoke firmly. "I know of a dungeon, but I can't conquer it because the bugs are too strong." She pleaded gently, "Could you please help me?" 32. Juji scratched her cheek, feeling a bit embarrassed as she asked, "There's a dungeon I can't clear because of a mid-boss. If it's not too much trouble, could you go with me?" Afterward, the two stopped in front of an ancient, dilapidated dungeon. Kang-Hu observed it for a long time, muttering, "It looks like it could collapse at any second." It's no surprise a dungeon like this appeared. That very fact made him even more curious. "I already knew there were many hidden dungeons, so there are still many things yet to be discovered." Juji, standing beside him, spoke slowly. "I didn't think you'd actually come." She smiled happily and said, "Thank you." Kang-Hu replied calmly, "Well, it's also good for me." All dungeons offer their own benefits after all. Juji, bubbling with excitement, shouted that she could finally take it down as she stepped inside. He watched her closely, secretly calculating while also observing her abilities. If Juji was skilled enough in the dungeon, she could become a valuable asset against the Young Guild. The corners of Kong Hu's mouth curled up a bit, thrilled himself. This was his first ever team battle. She stood before the dungeon gate, pointing at a stone tablet and said, "Look at that. It's carved with strange characters that are hard to read." As she turned to him for help, asking, "Can you read it?" "I can't translate it because some letters are missing," Kong Hu replied. Though he recognized it instantly as Latin, he began translating line by line. "It says, 'Those who dare to reach the deepest depths, with blood-soaked feet shall be buried here for eternity.'" Kang Hu stared down the passageway and said, "Shall we head down and see what kind of extraordinary thing is waiting for us?" Without another word, he started down the stairs. As they moved together through the darkness, Kang Hu suddenly tilted his head and asked, "Right, what kind of mid-boss was the one you mentioned?" Juji rolled her eyes, recalling the fight, and explained, "It's a monster that relentlessly unleashes powerful long-range attacks. I was almost able to close the distance in that last battle." She had cast her magic with great resolve. Juji fought fiercely, but the result wasn't what she wanted, and although she tried to land a finishing blow the moment she got the chance, it was blocked by a skill. It was called self-defense, and it nullified my first attack, and after that I couldn't find any openings, she explained. He listened with deep empathy, saying, "That must have been tough, right?" Just then the first monsters appeared, making Kang Hu's eyes widen in alert. They let out terrifying, enraged roars before both monsters charged at them simultaneously, weapons in hand. I immediately summoned his dagger and said, "I'll take the lead, you provide backup." And she nodded, saying, "Got it." As one of the demons aggressively lunged forward, swinging a brutal strike, Kang Hu dodged it in a flash. He teleported behind the beast, his blade igniting with sacred flames ready to burn everything. Kang Hu decisively plunged the sharp tip into the monster's back. A system notification popped up. "Careful behind you. When attacking enemies from behind you, deal 33% extra damage." As Kang Hu finished off the first one, the other one prepared a sneak attack, launching a spear straight toward Juji. She raised her hand, channeling a surge of magic, and a spatial portal opened up. It swallowed the spear whole, and then it reappeared right in front of the monster, sending it straight to the afterlife. He witnessed the scene and couldn't help but be surprised. Deep down, Kang Hu marveled, thinking, "Her reaction speed and proficiency are truly impressive. Her level must be around 200. And he genuinely complimented her. "You did great." Juji blushed shyly, replying, "Thank you." And they continued deeper, efficiently dealing with the monsters blocking their path. She was incredibly excited by how smoothly the trip was going. We finally did it. The two moved forward through the dungeon, unaware that in a dark corner, something was quietly following them. Two eyes flared with blue, murderous flames. Intruders detected. Juji smiled, remarking in awe, "I've never seen such powerful skills combined like this before." And she excitedly recounted each of Kang Hu's combat techniques. With sheer enthusiasm, she listed them off. The restraint skill, monster-only techniques, blood-burning manipulation, and those skills that only mages could possess. They aren't skills an assassin class should have. Juji looked like she wanted to jump for joy, adding, "At this rate, we'll clear this dungeon in no time." He thought calmly, "She doesn't even think it's weird. Luckily, she's simple-minded." Kang Hu secretly checked the system interface. He felt satisfied. Thanks to this, he'd leveled up quite a bit and was excited to hit level 50, but also frustrated that from there to level 100, he wouldn't be able to gain any more skills. Suddenly, a cold chill ran down his spine, causing him to turn instantly, as if a sharp blade had slashed from out of nowhere. They luckily dodged it just in time. He looked up and stared at the wall, which had been sliced in two. Kang Hu understood the danger and asked, "So this is the mid-boss?" Juji frowned and replied, "Yes." Before them stood a terrifyingly large monster. Its blade was razor-sharp, pointed at the ground, while the surrounding torches burned brightly, lighting up the space. The mid-boss. Pachala spoke with an imposing voice, demanding, "Are you here on a mission?" "To attack me." Kang Hu grew serious, analyzing in his head. "It uses constant high-damage attack skills, and it has a self-defense skill, too." Coming up with a strategy, he proposed, "Can you get me on top of its head?" Juji was startled, asking anxiously, "You'll be okay, right?" Kang Hu coldly reminded her, "Just focus on using your skills accurately." She straightened her face and accepted, "All right." She felt surprised by herself, finding that she trusted him strangely. He slowly lowered his center of gravity to build momentum. Then Kang-Hu used short bursts of speed to dash forward. Potala lashed out, swinging a sharp blade down in a flash, and at that moment Juji cast a portal. Kang-Hu seized the opportunity to run straight into the portal, making the enemy's attack useless. He reappeared on the other side, aiming to disorient the enemy. Kang-Hu accelerated, moving out of Potala's range. The boss, furious, unleashed another strike, but he hid in the portal again. Potala missed both attacks completely. Juji focused with all her might to open the portals as accurately as possible, knowing that because of those constant long-range attacks, it would be very difficult to get close to it. Kang-Hu ran out from another side, surprising the boss, but whenever Potala made a move, he disappeared, rendering all its techniques useless. Potala was so infuriated that it let out a savage roar. Juji immediately spotted the opening, and right then the familiar dagger flew straight toward the boss's nape. It turned out Kang-Hu had timed it perfectly to shatter the defensive layers around Potala. By the time that guy realized it, it was already too late. His eyes were sharp as blades, his hand gripping his weapon tightly. He'd broken through the magical barrier. Potala has lost it. Its precious treasure began to panic, lashing out repeatedly. Juji remained calm to activate her mana effectively. A portal opened right on the ground. Kang-Hu lunged up from below, knife clenched in his hand, exclaiming, "Your timing with the spells is spot on." He unleashed a powerful fatal Great Executioner strike at the enemy. After hitting Potala, Kang-Hu quickly leaped back, his eyes glued to him, waiting for the result. Juji smiled with complete trust, saying, "You attacked well too." Chapter 33. Potala, caught off guard, immediately turned toward him and used all his strength to swing a fatal sword strike. But just as Potala acted, Kang-Hu had already vanished into the portal. I was dropped right behind Juji, which took Kang-Hu by surprise. Observing the current situation, he thought to himself, "I thought she was going to bring me." Teleported behind that guy, she began unleashing intense lightning bolts surrounding Potala. Juji's power flared with iron-willed determination as she declared, "I want in on this too." She firmly announced her intent to fight alongside him. As she spoke, she unleashed a paralysis-inducing lightning strike directly at him. Potala took the full force of the attack. His whole body stiffened, a pained groan escaping his lips. He lost the ability to fight and collapsed to the ground. The system notification popped up, "Skill acquired from target." Kang-Hu pondered for a long time, wondering what she was thinking. In the end, he didn't doubt her. Perhaps she just wanted to coordinate their fight. A satisfied smirk curled his lips. "Nice work." Immediately after, both of them moved to the center of the dungeon, where someone's silhouette was kneeling with hands clasped. Kang-Hu was still lost in his own thoughts. She was progressing faster than he expected. If she kept up this pace, she would be very useful when dealing with the Junghwa Guild later. He couldn't hide his appreciative smile toward Juji. She suddenly froze and said, "Look over there." Kang-Hu immediately summoned his dagger, moving into a combat stance. The man with the deathly pale skin remained silent, as if praying. He cautiously took slow steps forward. No content provided in original for this line, skipping to match structure. "Is that the boss?" Kang-Hu stepped onto the platform and whispered, "Looks like a humanoid type." Suddenly, dark red liquid began flowing from the corners of that being's eyes, and his entire body started to crack. The space shook violently as a terrifying wave of magic erupted, causing tremors everywhere. Juji, witnessing this, was extremely panicked, crying out, "What is that?" Kang-Hu swiftly threw his dagger straight ahead. In a split second, it sliced right through the creature's body. The system notification appeared, "You have defeated the boss." The creature slowly faded away, but the next notification made his eyes widen in horror. "No skill acquired." The central room began to shake violently. Kang-Hu immediately realized the problem. "Damn it, this is a dungeon reset." He hurried to urge her, "Use every skill you have to get out of here. Hurry." Juji, dripping with sweat, nodded. Understood. She focused completely on casting magic, and then Juji quickly vanished into a space portal. Kang-Hu kept a stern face, monitoring the situation. As the place began to rot away, he used a short-range blink to escape. "Time to run." Kang-Hu bolted straight ahead, accelerating to get out of there. Kang-Hu finally realized the creature's subtle trick. Damn it, that boss was just a trap for hunters and adventurers. He summoned a divine potion, thinking, "I have no choice. Even though it's a rare item, I have to use it. I can't be stingy now." Kang-Hu began to gulp it down. If he couldn't escape, he would surely die. As soon as he swallowed it, Kang-Hu felt a clear rush of energy surging through his body. Thanks to that, his speed increased significantly. Kang-hoo gave a slight smirk of satisfaction, muttering, this was the perfect time to use this item. It felt better than he imagined. He performed multiple short blinks smoothly. Not only did the pain vanish, it felt as if his entire body was boiling over with power. A spark of hope ignited in Kang-hoo's mind. I will make it out of this hellhole. The architecture was collapsing faster and faster. The ground cracked and giant boulders fell from the ceiling. Juji struggled, trying to run and escape. Her body was drenched in sweat, her breath heavy and ragged. Oh no. Juji remembered the earlier fight and felt extremely anxious. I wasted too much mana back there. While running, her feet accidentally tripped over each other. She collapsed to the ground in pain. Looking over, Juji saw Kang-hoo sprinting past her. She reached out her hand toward him, wanting to cry for help. Wait! Memories of being abandoned surfaced in her mind, making Juji feel even more desperate. Wait for me. She could only close her eyes and accept the harsh reality. Suddenly, Hugh turned back, lowering his hand to help her. What the hell are you doing? Your leg is injured. Juji's eyes widened in amazement. Suddenly, a large boulder fell right above him. She screamed in worry, Careful! But the rock only hit the automatic defensive shield Kang-hoo had triggered and was deflected away. Juji blinked, bewildered. He didn't explain, simply hoisting her onto his back. Kang-hoo stood up and declared, Get ready for one last burst of speed. He firmly shouted, Hold on tight, and launched forward at light speed. Both luckily escaped the dungeon safely. Kang-hoo knelt on one knee, breathing a sigh of relief. We survived. I was incredibly satisfied, thinking, that skill I got from that mid-boss works pretty well. The system notification appeared. Automatic Defense, Stage 1. Skill Proficiency Level Maximum. Passive skill can nullify one attack. Kang-hoo read it over, and was very pleased that the effect was maximized and the cooldown was significantly shortened. It would be very useful in the future. The dungeon had now collapsed into nothing but rubble. A blue screen appeared announcing, You have acquired the enhancement skill. Kang-hoo laughed, exhaling with a look of immense delight. This is the reward for betting my life. Not bad, Juji whispered, curling up beside him and softly thanking him, a faint smile touching her lips as she added, If I had been alone, I never would have made it out of there. Juji lowered her head, struggling to hide her inner turmoil. I can't bring myself to move. That situation. It just reminds me of what happened before. Kang-hoo was curious and asked, What happened in the past? Her face turned somber as she admitted the truth. The past? You know. I used to be a pathfinder for the Zhonghua Guild, Juji said, shrinking into herself as the memories flooded back. I was a mercenary guide for other hunters. She recounted that day carefully. But one day Guanhong from the Zhonghua Guild came to find me. With a look of absolute confidence, he made me an offer I couldn't refuse. We always do our best to ensure the safety of our guild members, she recalled. Juji had been completely taken in by his sincere demeanor. The Zhonghua Guild is the best guild in our country, so I trusted him and joined his team. Everything was fine until the day an incident occurred while I was on a mission. But one time I was severely injured during a dungeon raid. Juji said, her mood darkening as she remembered. My wounds were so bad that I wouldn't be able to enter any dungeons for a while. She still vividly remembered the cold, chilling look in Guanhong's eyes back then. He had just left her behind. Come on. Guanhong turned and walked away, leaving Juji and everyone else in shock. No need to waste time on something useless. As soon as those cold words hit her, she was furious and confronted him, so all of it was just a lie. Didn't you say you would do everything in your power to keep your members safe? Guanhong spoke up, crushing all of Juji's hope. That only applies as long as you're still useful. He dropped the mask entirely. Don't you feel like a fool for believing that? Guanhong flashed a look of utter contempt before dropping the words that shattered the last bit of Juji's hope. What a shame, though. You weren't a bad little toy. Kang-hoo couldn't believe what he was hearing. He frowned. Leaving someone behind wounded in a dungeon, that's basically attempted murder. Juji lowered her head, forcing a smile full of resignation. That's right. The fact that I'm still alive is a miracle. If I hadn't been able to sign a contract with a constellation at that moment, one that controls space, I probably wouldn't be here right now. She tried to sound cheerful. I guess I just got lucky enough to sign a contract with that constellation. Right, but Kang-hoo saw right through that smile. I don't think it was just luck. Juji was a bit surprised, so he gently explained, Constellations won't sign a contract with an adventurer who has no purpose in life. Kang-hoo's words were like a light at the end of a tunnel, a glimmer that warmed Juji's heart. At that time, your constellation definitely must have seen that you had the potential to achieve your purpose in life. Her eyes welled up with emotion. You're praising me, aren't you? Seeing Juji so moved, Kong-hoo only thought to himself, I'm just stating the facts. After opening up to Kong-hoo, her mood improved. Saying it out loud, I feel a bit better now. Even though her trust had been exploited for sinister schemes, Juji still held on to a resolve. That's why I came to the starting point. The hardships you face here aren't caused by other people. She sighed, though she added, but it's also very lonely here. She turned to Kong-hoo with a look of pure trust. Deep down, I've always wanted to find someone I could trust. Hearing this, he smiled faintly. Suddenly, Kong-hoo jumped. He hadn't realized he'd been touching Juji's hand. It left both of them flustered. Kong-hoo suddenly put a hand on Juji's shoulder, making her jump, but then his face darkened and he slumped backward. Juji couldn't help but be shocked. Are you okay? Gasping for air. Kong-hoo waved her off. Don't worry about me. He seemed completely drained of energy. It's just the aftermath of using the solarium too recklessly. I just need to rest and I'll be fine. Juji immediately took a cloth to wipe the sweat from his brow, smiling brightly and gratefully. Thank you so much for today. Seeing that Kong-hoo finally felt at ease,